No way, I'm a civil official now, busy with state affairs. Where's the time to spar? Yu Qigong chuckled. Heh, I'm a civil official too, just came to buy tea. Why are you selling tea now? Old Zhang cupped his hands. Thanks to you both, I'm now enjoying life with a new boss, helping out at the new shop. If you're an old friend, I'll support your business. 5 Jin of Jade Guanyin. Cheng Yao Jin slapped down a 50-tael silver ingot. Yu Qigong followed. 5 Jin of Jade Guanyin. Another 50-tael ingot. I'll take 5 Jin too. I want 3 Jin. I want 1 Jin. 1 Jin of Biluakun, 1 Jin of Jade Guanyin. Su Xiaochun smiled so hard her eyes nearly disappeared, busy collecting money, while old Ma and old Zhang packed the tea. Some merchants and young masters strolling the East Market saw the commotion and gathered over. What are they selling? Can't you see? Xinglong Tea Shop, they sell tea. This tea doesn't need boiling, just brew with boiling water. Fragrant and refreshing. Really? I'll try a Jin too. More and more people joined the tea-buying crowd. In no time, the silver piled up into a small mountain. Li Tai bid farewell to Changsun Wuji and went to Sanha village, heading straight to Qingxiu's residence. Entering, he saw Qingxiu and the cook eating. Though starving, Li Tai upheld manners and bowed. Master, I've returned. Sit down and eat. Li Tai sat down to eat, 4 dishes, 1 soup, plus braised meat and meatballs. While eating, Li Tai praised, Master, your cook skills are amazing. I've eaten countless delicacies in Chang'an, yet none taste as good as this simple meal. May I send 2 cooks to learn from Aunt Yunyang? Aunt Yunyang? Qingxiu twitched his mouth. Yunyang panicked, blushed, glanced repeatedly at Qingxiu, then lowered her head, shyly eating without looking up. Li Tai blinked. Did I say something wrong? Qingxiu said sternly, call her sister Yunyang. She's not married yet, still a maiden. Li Tai said awkwardly, I thought Yunyang was your second wife. That was a perfect blow. Yunyang covered her face with a bowl and ran to the kitchen, not coming out again. Qingxiu snapped, if you're so good at talking, talk more. What did you do back in the city? Li Tai respectfully said, Master, I told father everything you taught me. But don't worry, I didn't mention you. Father agreed to let me and uncle handle the matter. Qingxiu frowned, you're only 8, and you dare do this? Li Tai proudly said, Father loves me the most. He accepted my proposal, even awarded me, and let me handle the Xiaoguan disaster. Qingxiu flipped his chopsticks and said, give me your hand. Li Tai was confused but reached out. Qingxiu struck his palm 3 times with the chopsticks, leaving it red and swollen. Li Tai held back tears, eyes wet, and asked, Master, why did you hit me? Qingxiu frowned, to teach you a lesson. The tallest tree in the forest is the first to be blown down. A little success made you arrogant. Remember, you're still a child. If you show off too much, you'll invite jealousy and disaster. Qingke, remember one thing, if heaven wants to destroy someone, it first makes them arrogant. You're too young to compete with adults. Your father might tolerate you, but others won't. If you do everything yourself, others will feel useless, and their status threatened. That's not good for you, especially in officialdom. You must learn to hide your talents and protect yourself. Understand? Li Tai suddenly understood, stood up, and bowed solemnly. Master, your lesson is right. I was wrong. He also firmly remembered Qingxiu's words in his heart. After Li Tai finished eating, he left. Sitting in the carriage, he thought the whole way about what Qingxiu had told him and finally figured something out. That was, in the future, he should avoid showing off, even if he had to, it should only be in front of Father Emperor. At the same time, he warned himself, don't be arrogant, don't be conceited. Master truly is a good teacher. To be accepted as his student, how fortunate I am. After understanding this, Li Tai laughed happily. By evening, Su Xiaochun and old Zhang the Blade had returned by carriage. As for Lord Ma II, he had voluntarily chosen to stay at the shop to watch over the tea that hadn't been sold yet. As soon as Su Xiaochun got off the carriage, she excitedly ran home, shouting while running, Husband, husband, I'm back. At that moment, Qingxiu was in the courtyard opening up a vegetable garden. From the wall to the main house, there was a plot of over 100 square feet, which he and Yunyang had already turned over. Since the weather was warm, he had decided to plant the seeds he had brought through time tomorrow. Upon hearing Su Xiaochun's voice, Yunyang's expression turned panicked and she seemed flustered. After all, she was just a servant, secretly stealing food behind the wife's back. Aside from guilt, she felt uneasy. What if they got caught? She was scared. Qingxiu slapped Yunyang on the butt and said unhappily, why panic? Use the nerves you had when you bragged last night. Put your heart back in your chest. Yunyang's face burned, and even her forehead began to sweat. With this half-baked mentality, she still wanted to act like a mistress? She'd probably get caught before anything started. Fortunately, at the moment Su Xiaochun only had silver on her mind and completely ignored Yunyang. That eased Yunyang's heart, and she wasn't so flustered anymore. Qingxiu smiled and said, "Wife, why are you so happy?" Su Xiaochun grabbed Qingxiu's hand and tried to pull him outside. "Husband, come, I'll show you silver." Qingxiu said irritably, "Your husband is blind, what silver is there to see?" "Oh right, I forgot husband can't see." Su Xiaochun smiled foolishly and said excitedly, "Husband, guess how much silver we made today?" Qingxiu said, 500 taels? 810 taels. "Husband, we made a total of 810 taels today." Su Xiaochun was a bit too excited. Qingxiu nodded, as expected. Su Xiaochun continued, "There's something I don't understand. Bilyuakun is cheaper than jade guanine by 5 taels, yet far more people bought jade guanine. We sold only 30 jin of Bilyuakun, but 70 jin of jade guanine." Qingxiu said, "Not much. After another 2 days of fermentation, we'll sell 2,000 taels a day. Maybe even who merchants and Persian traders will buy from our shop. Sales will go up even more." Su Xiaochun took out a handkerchief, wiped her sweat, and smiled, "Husband, I'll go arrange for people to move the silver." "Go ahead. Yunyang, you come help too." Oh. Su Xiaochun called for the house guards, moved several wooden boxes into the bedroom, and after everyone left, she went to the head of the bed, opened a floorboard, and began putting silver into the underground silver vault. The silver vault was something she and Qingxiu dug before laying the floor. It could hold at least tens of thousands of taels. Qingxiu said irritably, "Just this bit of silver and you're storing it? Don't bother. We need to buy fresh tea tomorrow. Store it later when there's more." Su Xiaochun slapped her forehead, began moving the silver back out, and laughed awkwardly, "Sorry, I made a fool of myself. I forgot we still need to restock. Tea isn't a one-time sale." Qingxiu had no way of dealing with this penny pincher. That night, after bathing, the two lay on the bed. Su Xiaochun exhaled deeply, finally a moment to relax. Today was exhausting. Those officials in Chang'an City seemed crazy buying tea. At first, I didn't get it. Then I realized, it started from the palace. "Husband, you're truly amazing." Qingxiu said mischievously, "Then is there a reward?" Su Xiaochun blushed, her eyelashes fluttered, and she said shyly, "Husband, what reward do you want?" "No need for rewards. Just fulfill what you promised me. From now on, listen to everything I say. Let's start now." Qingxiu whispered something in her ear with a wicked grin. "Ah?" Su Xiaochun glanced at the seal, her shy eyes looked like they could drip water. Her cheeks blushed, and her cherry lips blew warm breath into Qingxiu's ear. The sweet whispers lasted until midnight. Early next morning, Su Xiaochun went to the tea shop early. Qingxiu invited Geng Taicheng to his home. The two chatted while drinking tea. Qingxiu said, "Uncle Geng, I plan to build a factory in Sanha village. I need you to organize some workers. Also, for all masons helping with house construction, give them 10 more won per day. For the factory building team, give them 50 won per day." Geng Taicheng asked, "What's a factory?" Qingxiu smiled, "It's a workshop." "Oh, a workshop. No problem. I'll go organize them later." "Qingxiu, what's the workshop for?" "To make tea." Qingxiu didn't hide it from Geng Taicheng and said directly, "I've asked my wife to go to the brokerage to buy slaves. Once the workshop opens, the slaves will handle the operations and produce tea in large quantities." Geng Taicheng said hesitantly, "Qingxiu, why not let the women in the village help you make tea? Why let the slaves do everything?" Qingxiu shook his head, "The tea-making process is simple. Almost anyone can learn just by watching. Though tea can make money, it won't last. In less than 6 months, many will figure out the process." "Uncle Geng, to be honest, everyone has selfish motives, including me. But I promised to make the village wealthy, and I won't go back on my word." Geng Taicheng nodded, "Qingxiu, I'm glad you told me this. I believe you're not a selfish person." Qingxiu smiled bitterly, "Uncle Geng, don't praise me yet. Wait until we're all wealthy. Besides building the workshop, I plan to gather all the women in the village and assign them small businesses. Though these small businesses won't make them rich, earning a few or even dozens of taels a month is no problem. After the workshop team is formed, I'll hold training sessions for the women." Geng Taicheng cupped his hands and smiled, "With your words, I feel at ease. We villagers don't seek great wealth, just enough to eat and wear. If the women can earn some extra money each month, they'll be more than satisfied." After sending off Geng Taicheng, Qingxiu began thinking about his next steps. First, the street vendor business was still profitable, and in Great Tang, it wasn't regulated. No need to push carts around. In just one morning, he thought of many street-side small businesses. All required time and endurance to make hard-earned money, which he currently didn't value. Even if the tea business failed, he had the wine business. If wine failed, he could still make soap. If soap didn't work, he'd make perfume. If perfume didn't work, he'd make glass. Colored glass beads in this era were worth a fortune. The construction team for the workshop was formed smoothly. Because of this, many people argued fiercely to get into the workshop construction team. After all, the daily wage was 50 when more than other construction teams, so naturally, there was competition. Today's Sanha village was no longer the Sanha village from 2 months ago. Everywhere there were red brick and tile houses, which looked festive. Anyone passing by would stop to look, showing envy in their eyes. At noon, in the largest private room of the 10 Fragrance Pavilion, a group of well-dressed grain merchants were all smiling flatteringly as they toasted Changsun Wuji, while Li Tai was comically standing on a chair picking food. Changsun Wuji normally only interacted with high-ranking officials and noble dukes, and had never dealt with these flattering merchants. Although his own family also ran an iron business, half of which was for the royal family, even then he dealt only with officials and shop managers. After several rounds of wine and 5 flavors of dishes, a fat grain merchant squinted and flattered, "Lord Changsun, you are a minister assisting the nation. Usually, we little merchants can't even get a chance to visit. Why would you be so kind today to invite us lowly merchants for a banquet?" Changsun Wuji suppressed his disgust and smiled, "You are all the biggest grain merchants in Guangzhou. Gathering you here today is indeed for something important." "What is it?" "We are all ears." 5 or 6 grain merchants pricked up their ears. Changsun Wuji continued, "To be honest, let me reveal something to you. Yesterday in the morning court, His Majesty proposed to abolish the lowly status of merchants." "What? Abolish the low status of merchants?" One grain merchant's face turned red with excitement. "Heavens! Is this true? This is too good. If merchant status is abolished, even if I die, I can face my ancestors with pride." One merchant even began to cry, "His Majesty is wise. We merchants are so poor that all we have is money. But being of low status, no matter how much we earn, it always feels stifling. If this status is abolished, I'm willing to donate 1,000 dan of grain to the court." "Me too. I'll donate 2,000 dan." Changsun Wuji glanced at Li Tai and sighed, "Alas, but after His Majesty proposed abolishing the merchant status, it faced strong opposition from the ministers. Some said you merchants only care about profit, not conscience. Others said you are bloodsuckers feeding off the people, buying low, selling high, not worthy of sympathy. Others said merchants value profit over integrity, all blinded by money. Lord Changsun, that's unfair." One grain merchant slapped his thigh and cried, "We may be lowly merchants, but we're not heartless. During the disaster relief under Wu De's reign, didn't we sell the grain we collected to the court at original prices? Yes. Did we earn even a single copper coin? Yet they slander us like this? Lord Changsun, what did His Majesty say?" Changsun Wuji patted Li Tai and said, "This is His Majesty's beloved son, Prince Wei." Everyone was shocked and immediately bowed respectfully to Li Tai. "Forgive us, Prince Wei, we failed to recognize you. So it's Prince Wei, truly a remarkable presence. Prince Wei has inherited His Majesty's style." Changsun Wuji was already tired of hearing the merchants flatter and quickly said, "It was Prince Wei who strongly opposed the criticism and said that the people of Great Tang are honest by nature. If merchants are blinded by money, it's only momentary. Prince Wei said merchants are not all bootlickers or parasites. They're just blinded by wealth and lack opportunities to show their sincerity." Prince Wei, already ill with cold, even knelt in His Majesty's chamber all night until dawn. Only then did His Majesty. Li Tai quickly interrupted, "Uncle, don't say that. I just couldn't bear merchants being labeled as lowly. Besides, I didn't kneel all night, only half the night. Father Emperor then told me to wait for news back home." Li Tai smiled innocently, "Hard work pays off. This morning, Father Emperor, after much opposition, agreed to my proposal. But abolishing merchant status is a big matter and needs further discussion. I only managed to earn you merchants a chance to be seen differently by the officials. It's not some great merit." "Ah, Prince Wei truly has sympathy for us merchants." As he spoke, Changsun Wuji secretly wiped his eye corners. Anyone could see he was just putting on a show. "Thank you, Prince Wei, for restoring our name. If there's another life, I'd serve Prince Wei as a horse or ox to repay the kindness. Prince Wei is truly a living bodhisattva for us merchants. Please accept our bow, Prince Wei." Li Tai looked at them with pity, "Why are you doing this? You are all elders, don't humble me so. Let me show you something." Li Tai pulled out an imperial edict from his sleeve and raised it high. "This is the edict I got after kneeling half the night. Father Emperor issued this for you, under heavy pressure from officials. An edict? Prince Wei, what does it say? Quick, kneel and receive the decree. One merchant had already knelt in eagerness. Li Tai opened the edict and laid it before them, saying, "This edict is not for all of you, only for one of you. You can all read what it says. There are over 100,000 disaster victims in Xiaoguan. You are all old, established grain merchant families. Whoever can provide 50,000 dan of grain to aid the victims will be granted a baron title. 1 dan of grain feeds a family of 3 for more than a month. If they eat sparingly, it lasts 2 months. For over 100,000 victims, calculated as 30,000 families, less than 2 dan per family can last until the autumn harvest. With grain, people can plant fall crops, and in just over 3 months, a harvest will relieve the famine. 50,000 dan of grain? Phew! This, 50,000 dan of grain." The merchants stared at Li Tai in disbelief. Li Tai looked at them and said unhappily, "What? Is 50,000 dan a lot? Have you forgotten that someone once spent a fortune and still couldn't get a title? Do you really think noble titles in Great Tang are so easy to get? Do you know how much grain a fortune can buy? 1 guan, string of coins, buys 2 dan. Even with over 20,000 guan of silver, it's just enough. This is a chance to bring honor to your ancestors. Miss it, and you may never get it again." The grain merchants all hesitated. Li Tai sneered, "It's just 50,000 dan. Great Tang collects hundreds of thousands of guan in taxes each year. Taking out a few tens of thousands for disaster relief should be effortless. If you're not interested, then forget it. I won't waste words with you. I'll just return this edict and drop the idea of abolishing merchant status. Uncle, let's go." Li Tai turned and pulled Chang Sun Wuji to leave. Just as they stepped out of the private room, Chang Sun Wuji smiled, patted Li Tai on the head, and gave a thumbs up. "Qin Ke, you're getting more and more eloquent, well done. Even your uncle feels ashamed in comparison." Li Tai, however, held out 5 fingers and softly counted, 1, 2, 3. As soon as he said 3, a fat grain merchant anxiously rushed out and knelt before Li Tai, grabbing the imperial edict tightly, his face full of flattery. "Your Highness, Prince Wei, please wait. I'm willing to provide 50,000 dan of grain to relieve the disaster victims." Another merchant rushed out, also anxious. "Your Highness, if a title is involved, I'm willing to provide 80,000 dan of grain for relief. This is a great opportunity to bring honor to my ancestors. If I miss it, I may never get another chance. I'll provide 80,000 dan." The fat merchant shouted angrily, "Zhou Yuantong, are you going against me on purpose? I asked Prince Wei first." Zhou Yuantong sneered, "Fatty son, the higher bidder wins. I must get this title. With it, I'll become the biggest grain merchant in Guangzhou in a few years." Fatty son fumed, "Do you even have that much grain? I remember you only collected 50,000 dan last year." Prince Wei, "Don't believe him, he doesn't even have that much grain." Zhou Yuantong gritted his teeth, "I don't have it now, but I can buy it. I still have tens of thousands of taels of silver at home, why should I worry about buying grain?" The remaining 4 merchants stood at the door, anxious but helpless. They simply couldn't offer 80,000 dan. The biggest grain merchant in Guangzhou was this fatty son. After Zhou Yuantong spoke, he flattered Li Tai, "Your Highness, my 50,000 dan will arrive soon. The remaining 30,000 I will deliver within half a month. How about that?" "Hee hee." Fatty son panicked, "Prince Wei, I came first." Li Tai hesitated, "Boss son, I mean no disrespect, but he offered 80,000 dan, 30,000 more than you." Zhou Yuantong proudly said, "Stupid fatty, trying to compete with me? You're still too green." Fatty son's face turned red with anger, "You bastard Zhou Yuantong. We're now mortal enemies. Prince Wei, I'll offer 100,000 dan, let's see you compete with that." Zhou Yuantong was stunned, then growled, "You're ruthless, Fatty Sunday. We'll see." Then he stormed off angrily. Fatty son looked smug. Even Chang Sun Wuji inhaled sharply at the mention of 100,000 dan. 1 dan of grain is 100 jin, and in Great Tang, 1 jin is 16 taels, around 600 grams. That means 1 dan weighs about 120 jin now. 100,000 dan equals about 6,000 tons. At 5 qian per jin, 1 dan costs 500 qian. So, 100,000 dan equals 50,000 taels of silver. Li Tai calmly handed over the edict and said, "I keep my word. The edict is yours. But the Prince of Wei's seal will only be stamped after all the grain arrives. Boss son, start dispatching the grain to the Prince of Wei's residence tomorrow." Fatty son excitedly looked over the edict again and again, then tucked it away like a treasure. He thanked Li Tai profusely, gave a triumphant glance at his peers, and rushed home to prepare the grain. Chang Sun Wuji and Li Tai got into the carriage outside 10 Fragrance Pavilion. Chang Sun Wuji sighed, this fatty son really is a grain merchant with generations of wealth in Guanyi. He pulled out 100,000 dan just like that, more generous than His Majesty himself. Li Tai squinted and smiled, Uncle, the reason I picked fatty son is because he's greedy and lustful, and he's also the biggest grain merchant in Guanyi. 100,000 dan is nothing to him. I had someone investigate him yesterday. He collected over 200,000 dan of grain last year alone. In previous years, it was over 100,000 each year. With generations of accumulated wealth, he's probably richer than the treasury. He's a true parasite feeding off the people. Many families have been ruined because of him. Gathering evidence of his crimes will be easy. So slaying him brings me no guilt. Chang Sun Wuji praised, Qin Ke, after disaster relief, you still plan to deal with him. Li Tai nodded, Master said, those who feed on the people's blood, everyone has the right to kill. Those who serve the people, everyone should respect. This fatty son has sucked too much from the people, it's time he gave it back. Master also said, you must fatten the pig before slaughtering it. Chang Sun Wuji's scalp tingled. His face turned ugly, I didn't expect Wang Gue to be this cunning. He's from a prestigious Confucian family. Who knew he could devise such ruthless schemes? Li Tai almost spoke, but remained silent. He didn't plan to reveal Qingxiu. Chang Sun Wuji suddenly smiled, that's fine too. An invisible edict, secretly granting a title, no one knows. After the relief work, we collect evidence and strip him of the title. Qin Ke, even I admire you now. Chang Sun Wuji now felt his own mind wasn't even as sharp as this 8-year-old boy. Li Tai looked forward firmly and said seriously, Uncle, Master taught me. Without him, I'd never have thought of this. He's truly a rare talent. Chang Sun Wuji wanted to argue but said nothing, only shook his head. Suddenly, Li Tai said, stop at the corner ahead. After the carriage stopped, Chang Sun Wuji asked in confusion, Qin Ke, why are we stopping? Li Tai smiled innocently, waiting for someone. Waiting? Who? Chang Sun Wuji was puzzled. But moments later, he understood, because a tall, thin man appeared before the carriage and bowed. Zhou Yuantong greets Prince Wei and Lord Chang Sun. Chang Sun Wuji opened his mouth, a drop of cold sweat ran down his temple. He quickly looked at Li Tai. Li Tai smiled and lifted the curtain. Boss Zhou, have your son report to the Prince of Wei's residence in half a month. Zhou Yuantong bowed, thank you, Prince Wei. I take my leave. After he left, Chang Sun Wuji stared at Li Tai like he'd seen a ghost. Qin Ke, was that also your master's idea? Li Tai nodded awkwardly, yes, uncle. Master taught me this too. Chang Sun Wuji's expression shifted. In his mind appeared the image of a kindly, stern-faced old man, Wang Gue. He couldn't believe today's events were connected to that old man. First lure fatty son with a title, then provoke him with Zhou Yuantong, and finally, prepare to slaughter the fat pig. This seamless scheme shocked even Chang Sun Wuji. He couldn't have come up with it in 2 days. This Wang Gue is hiding deep. Chang Sun Wuji decided to stay far away from Wang Gue in the future, and also remind the emperor. Li Tai asked, Uncle, what's wrong? Chang Sun Wuji shook his head and smiled bitterly. Qin Ke, when did you plan this with Zhou Yuantong? Li Tai replied, last night, I sent someone to his house, promised to be his backer, and arranged for his son to serve in my residence. As long as he doesn't make major mistakes, I can protect him and help him become the biggest grain merchant in Guangzhou. Don't worry, uncle. I investigated Zhou Yuantong. He's an honest merchant, never used underhanded tricks. That's why he's always been beneath Fatty Sunday. But, Li Tai continued, Uncle, don't tell Father Emperor yet. Let's finish the disaster relief first, then report it. All right. Chang Sun Wuji agreed happily. And decided to visit Wang Gue soon. Fatty Sun had been entrenched in Guangzhou for many years and had grain depots all over. Early in the morning, he began organizing the gathering and transporting of grain. By noon, he had collected 60,000 dan of grain from around Chang'an. Together with 40,000 dan from the Xiaoguan grain depot, it totaled 100,000 dan. Since it was for the court, he dared not cut corners, each dan of grain even weighed an extra pound. Li Tai and Chang Sun Wuji led a few left-guard soldiers to start transporting the grain. Although Xiaoguan was only 30 to 40 li away, due to poor ancient transportation, moving grain was slow. Even at that distance, it would take 6 or 7 days to arrive. After dark, they camped at nearby relay stations. The next morning, Chang Sun Wuji got up early, but Li Tai was nowhere to be seen. When he got to Li Tai's room, the 2 maidservants quickly saluted him. Chang Sun Wuji frowned and asked, Prince Wei hasn't woken up yet? First time traveling far, he must be tired. Let him rest a bit longer. Have the station prepare some food to be sent over later. One maid replied, Lord Changsun, Prince Wei isn't in the room. He left before dawn. Changsun Wuji was stunned. Left before dawn? Where did Prince Wei go? Did he take guards with him? The maid whispered, His Highness said he went out for a run. His personal guards are with him. Running? Changsun Wuji's eyes widened, puzzled. What is running? In the Tang army, they didn't practice running for fitness. Training methods were simpler, using military sticks, lifting rocks as weights, or sparring. The term running was new to Changsun Wuji. Forget it. I'll ask him myself when he returns. Soon, Li Tai came back into the station, drenched in sweat and panting heavily. Changsun Wuji hurried over. Qingke, why are you so exhausted? If your father emperor saw you like this, he'd be heartbroken. Here, wipe your sweat. He pulled out a handkerchief and handed it to him. Li Tai didn't mind and wiped his sweat while gasping. Uncle, master said the root of illness lies in fatness. He said I'm too fat, and if I stay like this, I'll get sick sooner or later. So I run to lose weight. Changsun Wuji glanced at his own big belly and said awkwardly, I'll run with you tomorrow. So, on the road to Xiaoguan, for 6 days, Li Tai ran every day with Changsun Wuji. Even after reaching the county office in Xiaoguan, no matter how busy the relief work was, he kept running 10 li each day. After half a month of disaster relief, Li Tai had visibly slimmed down. That morning, the ministers were discussing the matter of relocating the morning court from Wuda Hall to Taiji Hall. A guard rushed into Wuda Hall. Report. Right Chancellor and Prince Wei have returned from disaster relief in Xiaoguan. They are now at the palace gate. Li Er was overjoyed and quickly said, Summon them into the hall. He hadn't seen his beloved son in half a month. He had even dreamed of Li Tai several times, waking up in the middle of the night in a daze. Now that his son was back, how could he not be excited? A remonstrance official stepped forward and said, Your Majesty, Prince Wei is still young. It's too early for him to be involved in state affairs. Disaster relief is no joke. Letting your young son lead the effort, won't that make people think you treat the victims lightly? Li Er frowned. Half a month ago, I ordered Prince Wei to lead the relief effort and had the right chancellor guide him. There would be no error. Why are you only now questioning this? What is your intent? The remonstrance official looked flustered and glanced at Wei Zheng, then said stiffly, Your Majesty, I am a censor. It is my duty to raise issues with any policy that violates court regulations. That was the original purpose of the censorate. I meant no harm, just wanted to remind your Majesty that Prince Wei is too young to be given merit too early. Li Er glared, emanating authority, so you're saying I'm favoring Prince Wei? Trying to grant him undue merit? The official panicked, Your Majesty, that's not what I meant. I meant, enough. Li Er sat down and slammed the table. Silence. I know he's young. Do you think I'd be heartless enough to let my beloved son endure the elements for half a month? If Prince Wei hadn't proposed a way to resolve the Xiaoguan drought without spending a single coin or grain from the treasury, would I have sent him? Do any of you have a solution like that? Do you? The official was so terrified he said nothing and bowed to the ground. Li Er scolded, Get out. The official obediently withdrew. Wei Zheng raised his eyelids and lazily said, Your Majesty, the censor's role is to correct your mistakes. Though Lord Wang's words were a bit sharp, his intentions were good. Can't your Majesty even accept suggestions anymore? Why bother having a censorate then? Might as well dissolve us. I could retire. Li Er laughed in anger. Wei Zheng, I won't argue with you. Right now, the priority isn't arguing, but seeing what results Prince Wei and the right chancellor achieved. You, Herald, what are you waiting for? Summon them. At this, Wei Zheng knew that disaster relief mattered more than nitpicking, so he stopped talking. Soon, one tall and one short figure entered the hall. Li Er squinted at them. Changsun Wuji was tanned, and his belly was gone. He looked rougher now. As for Li Tai, he no longer looked like a ball. Compared to half a month ago, Li Tai was completely different. Once a fair, chubby, cheerful-looking boy, he was now visibly tanner and much leaner. Half a month ago, he had been about 1.1 meters tall and weighed nearly 100 jin. After daily runs and eating more nutritious food, he had grown a few centimeters and lost 20 jin of fat, now weighing 80 jin. Li Er's eyes widened in disbelief. The civil and military officials were also stunned, staring at the two like refugees. Li Er's eyes turned red. He glared fiercely at the censorate officials. Look carefully, who is this standing before you? This is my son. Just half a month ago, he was still plump. Now for the sake of disaster relief, he's become this thin. And you still say I gave him merit for nothing? He's lost so much weight, doesn't he deserve credit? As he spoke, Li Er was moved to tears, looking at Li Tai with heartache and guilt. He deeply regretted sending his son on such a hard mission. Changsun Wuji bowed, Your Majesty, I, Changsun Wuji, and Prince Wei have returned from the disaster relief mission. We did not fail. The drought in Xiaoguan has been completely resolved, and everything Prince Wei said was confirmed. This mission did not cost the court a single coin or grain. Prince Wei also bowed, Father Emperor, not only did we not use any state funds, but uncle and I also brought back 30,000 dan of grain. Li Er was stunned, unable to believe his ears. The officials exchanged glances. Is that possible? They went for relief work, didn't spend silver or grain, and even brought back 30,000 dan. Is such a good thing even real? Heavens, how did Prince Wei manage this? Disaster relief without spending money, and even profited? The civil officials were shocked. Even the military officers stared in disbelief. Li Er said excitedly, Right Chancellor, Prince Wei, explain this to us. How did disaster relief result in bringing back 30,000 dan of grain? Prince Wei replied, Father Emperor, I'm tired. I want to rest. Please let uncle explain. Li Er immediately said, Someone, bring the dragon carriage. Escort Prince Wei to my chambers. Serve him well. Whatever he wants, give it to him. Quickly. Li Tai smiled and shook his head, No need, father. I want to leave the palace and share this news with grandfather. I'll stay at his home tonight. Please allow it. Li Er hesitated, then spoke with a tinge of sadness, Qin Ke, I haven't even had a proper word with you, and you want to leave? All right, but come back tomorrow. Understand? Yes, Father Emperor. Li Tai took his leave and went to Sanha village with his guards. He now couldn't wait to share the good news with his teacher. After Li Tai arrived, he urgently asked, Right Chancellor, explain to me and everyone how you managed to carry out disaster relief without costing the court a single coin or grain, and even brought back 30,000 dan of grain. Changsun Wuji did not speak but looked toward Minister of Rights Wang Gui. He cupped his hands and said, This was all thanks to Lord Wang Gui. Majesty, it was Lord Wang who gave the idea to Prince Wei. Why not have him explain everything? All the ministers, including Li Tai, turned to Wang Gui, a goat-bearded, kindly-looking, scholarly old man. Wang Gui was 57 years old, in poor health, somewhat stooped, and looked older than his age. Hearing Changsun Wuji's words, Wang Gui was stunned. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. Li Tai asked curiously, Wang Gui, did you teach me the method of disaster relief? Wang Gui came to his senses and said with confusion, Majesty, I don't understand. Although I am Prince Wei's teacher, I haven't seen him for over 10 days, nor did I teach him any method for disaster relief. The officials were all shocked. Changsun Wuji scolded, Lord Wang, don't pretend. With this much scheming, if not you, then who? Wang Gui panicked and beat his thigh, Majesty, Right Chancellor, I truly did not teach Prince Wei. I didn't even know about this. Also, why did you reward me with 100 taels of silver last time? He was still confused. First he was rewarded without reason, and now he was being credited with teaching the disaster relief method. Changsun Wuji frowned, It wasn't you? Wang Gui shook his head like a rattle, No, Lord Changsun is mistaken. Whoever taught Prince Wei the method is definitely someone else. Changsun Wuji raised an eyebrow, Someone else? Li Tai stared and asked, And the proposal to raise merchant tax, was that not taught by you either? Raise merchant tax? Wang Gui shook his head in confusion, Majesty, I had no idea. Li Tai nodded, If you don't know, then wait until Prince Wei returns to the palace. I'll ask him personally. Right Chancellor, you tell us how you did the relief. Changsun Wuji stopped arguing with Wang Gui and began, Majesty, do you remember the noble title edict? I remember. Was it useful? Changsun Wuji smiled, Very much so, and for a big purpose. Prince Wei and I invited all major grain merchants in Guanyi, presented the edict, and said whoever provides relief grain would be made a baron. A merchant surnamed Sun rushed to supply us with grain, 50,000 dan would have sufficed. But another surnamed Zhou promised 80,000 dan in exchange for a title. Sun only secured the edict by supplying 100,000 dan. I thought that was the end, but Prince Wei had already bribed Zhou's storekeeper, pushing the offer from 50,000 to 100,000 dan. Only 50,000 dan was used for relief. 20,000 dan was given along the route to victims. The remaining 30,000 dan was all brought back and is piled at Prince Wei's mansion. Li Tai applauded, Great! Such a plan, I'm ashamed I didn't think of it. This person is truly talented. In Tang, talents are everywhere, but hidden among the people. Majesty, why not appoint this person to office? Did he also teach Prince Wei to raise merchant taxes? One civil official jumped up frowning, Your Majesty, this is extremely improper. How so? Li Er asked. The civil official said, although the relief cost nothing, a noble title was still handed out. How many soldiers died on the battlefield and never got a title? Handing out titles so easily, won't that discourage the army? Merchants, driven by profit, will swarm to get titles. If Tang has more famines, will we need more titles? Besides, we don't know what merchants will do once they gain a title. If they abuse power over local people, how can Tang remain upright? Your Majesty, we must not set this precedent. The ministers nodded in agreement. Changsun Wuji replied, no harm done. The title edict stayed secret. Meanwhile, Prince Wei investigated Merchant Sun, collected evidence of his abuse of the people. Once sent to the court of justice, Sun could be stripped of his title and imprisoned. This matter was anticipated. Prince Wei has already prepared for it. Many officials gasped in shock. Prince Wei's tactical mind is truly meticulous. With such wicked cunning, this person, who is he? How can such a ruthless method come from a youngster? Majesty, make sure Prince Wei doesn't learn from this person. Your Majesty, Wei Jing spoke with concern, a young royal should learn virtue and righteousness. Associating with such cynical plotting may corrupt him. Majesty, consider carefully. Li Er looked hesitant, he feared his son might have learned from this person. Even generals from the old Tian's Guard, long opposed to Wei Zheng, stood up and advised caution. Your Majesty, as the censure minister correctly said, morals come first. This person behind Prince Wei's plans is ruthless, don't let Prince Wei learn such evil tactics. Prince Wei is bright and quick to learn. What's scary isn't that he knows these methods, but that he absorbs their evil intent. Uncle Bao is right. Chang Yaojin nodded. Changsun Wuji immediately realized the gravity. He too nodded, your counsel is sound. Li Er asked, Right Chancellor, do you also feel this is improper? Changsun Wuji didn't speak but bowed his head. He too was unsure. Li sighed, Fin. Let tomorrow's court decide. Let Prince Wei come and argue. If he can't defend, he'll stay in the palace and stop seeing this person. All correct. Dismiss. The ministers filed out, murmuring about Prince Wei and his backer. Meanwhile, Li Tai had already arrived at Qingxiu's home. Qingxiu, seeing Li Tai's appearance via a vision, was shocked and asked, Qingke, how did you get so slim? Li Tai paused, puzzled, Master, how did you notice I lost weight? Qingxiu pointed to his ear, my eyes are blind, but my ears aren't deaf. Half a month ago your footsteps were heavy. Now they're light. If you hadn't slimmed, you'd have to be a martial arts master. In just half a month, but you're nowhere near mastering martial arts. Li Tai gave an awkward laugh, hee, nothing escapes you, master. Qingxiu smiled and asked, did you finish your mission? Tell me about it. Li Tai recounted everything. After listening, Qingxiu frowned. Li Tai asked, Master, why do you look so worried? Qingxiu relaxed his face and sighed, what was bound to happen has happened. When I taught you the method, I already anticipated this. What did you anticipate? Li Tai asked curiously. Qingxiu said, this method is poisonous. If it becomes known, some self-righteous hypocrites will criticize it as wicked. Your father and his colleagues may think your teacher is teaching you to become a scheming scoundrel. Of course, this is just my guess. But we must guard against it. If it happens, your father may forbid you from leaving the city to study. Li Tai's face changed, and he hurriedly said, Master taught me, my true skills haven't been tested yet. If father stops me now, I'm finished. Li Tai looked anxious and panicked. He still hadn't learned the flying technique. It couldn't end like this. These days, the tea business was booming. On top of that, a tea roasting workshop had also been opened. Batch after batch of tea was shipped to various districts in Chang'an. Su Xiaochun had already opened 7 tea shops in Chang'an, with daily earnings of over 2 taels of silver. Su Xiaochun was extremely busy, managing tea business in Chang'an by day and teaching over a dozen enslaved women to read and write at the same time. She gradually realized how terrible illiteracy was. These days she found several teachers to practice writing, and even while supervising the tea shops, she insisted on learning characters. However, her handwriting looked like demons dancing on the page. During this time, Qingxiu also improved her arithmetic skills. Arabic numerals spread exclusively among the dozen female slaves and Su Xiaochun, a clever little method for bookkeeping. For the past half-month, Sanha village had been very lively. Because Qingxiu gave the village women some small businesses, some went to Chang'an to trade, some set up stalls in nearby counties, those too old or infirm set up stalls nearby. Now at the village entrance, a small market had formed, not only selling snacks, but also vegetables and meat. This solved the shopping problem, one didn't need to go to Chang'an. Just go to the village entrance and buy anything needed. Villagers from 18 nearby neighborhoods came to buy daily. Sanha village's scale grew larger. Adding outsider households bringing families to seek work, there were now over 1,000 households. Those outsiders without brick houses built grass huts on the outskirts. With more money coming in, storage became a problem. Qingxiu asked Su Xiaochun to convert all the silver into gold and store it in a small vault under the bedroom floor. Together with the warehouse's copper coins and small change, they had more than 30,000 taels of silver. For now, he didn't need to worry about lacking funds. The guards' salaries also rose from 1 tael to 3 taels of silver, making them very grateful to Qingxiu and Su Xiaochun. Besides daily training, they were in charge of village security and overseeing the workshop. Construction sites were booming as well. Blacksmith Wang and carpenter Zhang's businesses improved significantly. Their shops, once ignored, were now full of work, building beds, making wardrobes, and they even employed many apprentices. Better living conditions brought higher desires, which was both good and bad. Overall, Sanha village was full of vigor and positive energy. Even local gentry came to the village, hiring bricklayers to build brick antile houses, paying dozens of copper coins a day. These past 2 days, Qingxiu had rare free moments, sipping tea and practicing qigong daily, as well as teaching Su Xiaochun and Yunyang math. His qi range had already increased to 200 meters, and his physical fitness was over 10 times better than normal. With recent improvements in qigong techniques, defeating Master Zhang would be easy. Seeing Li Tai looking dissatisfied, Qingxiu teased, "I'm here, why are you so worried?" Li Tai fretted, "Master, I really want to study flying technique with you. But if my father doesn't allow me anymore, where will I learn to fly?" Qingxiu thought for a moment and called, "Yunyang, bring me brush, ink, paper, and inkstone." Yunyang hurried to fetch them. As she ran, her breasts shook like jelly, fragrant and lovely. Her hips swayed enticingly. Soon Yunyang returned with the brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone. Qingxiu said, "I cannot see." "Qingke, I'll recite and you write." "All right, master, please begin." Qingxiu first recited the 3-character classic once, then said, "Qingke, if tomorrow your father and his colleagues challenge you, use this 3-character classic to respond. If it's not enough, I'll teach you another cautionary moral essay." Li Tai's eyes lit up, "Please teach me, master." A moral essay, titled Diligence. Fields lie unused, storehouses stay empty. Books go unread, children stay stupid. A fine sword comes from sharpening, the fragrance of plum blossoms comes through bitter cold. If the young don't study hard, in old age they'll regret starting too late. Only when using knowledge do we regret lacking it, only through experience is difficulty understood. To sit on a bench, endure 100 cold days, to write an essay, not a single empty line. On the mountain of books, diligence is the path, in the sea of learning, hard work is the boat. A moral essay on goodness. Make things easy for others and it helps yourself. Better to wrong me than wrong others. Do good, avoid evil. Those with good relationships are blessed by heaven. A moral essay on self-cultivation. Outward appearance is less important than inner character. A person must accumulate virtue. The world turns like a wheel, how could heaven wrong the good? Drink moderately, that is best, love beauty not obsessively. Don't take unjust wealth. During anger, endure, it avoids disaster. A moral essay on nurturing character. A general must carry his stride, a prime minister must hold it together. If you can bear anger one moment, you avoid 100 days of worry. Wrong arises from speaking too much, troubles come from showing off. Those with true hearts stay together, those who know contentment are always happy. A moral essay on gaining wealth. A gentleman loves wealth but gains it with principle. A true hero loves beauty but accepts it with propriety. A gentleman speaks little when drunk, a real man sorts money clearly. Better to gain straight than seek crookedly. Promise something, worth 1,000 in gold. Once said, even 4 horses can't catch it back. A person without trust stands not firm, heaven only shines on those true. Qingxiu recited slowly. Li Tai wrote fast. After a long time, he finished. His wrist ached. "That's enough, let's stop here." Qingxiu turned away, hiding his embarrassed expression. He wasn't a god, memorizing all moral essays isn't easy. Yet these few were already impressive, learned from his past life teaching his son to memorize. Even just these few essays, in Tang, could cause great discussion. Li Tai read them, delighted, "Master, these moral essays are simple and universal, the lessons clear. Truly rare texts, I like them very much." Qingxiu smiled. It wasn't about whether Li Tai liked them, soon all scholars would love them. Li Tai gathered the 3-character classic and moral essays, looking expectant. "Master, I've already slimmed down. Will you now teach me flying technique?" Qingxiu's mouth twitched. This kid couldn't forget the flying technique. But Qingxiu didn't rush. They had nothing now, no means to build a hot air balloon. Even if they built one, it'd be dangerous. One mistake, Li Tai could die. If Li Tai died, Qingxiu would surely face punishment, maybe even exhumed and scolded. Qingxiu shook his head. Flying technique isn't learned in a day. You can't just say, learn, and you do. Qingke, you mustn't be impatient. Calm down and focus on knowledge, that's the true path. You still have a long way to go before flying. However, I can teach you a technique to lift a heavy cauldron, how about that? Li Tai, slightly disappointed, heard that and his face flushed with excitement. Master, truly? Truly? If I learn it, can I really lift a cauldron? Qingxiu rose and said, have I ever lied to you? If you don't believe me, I'll teach you the cauldron lifting technique now. Li Tai excitedly followed. He turned to Yunyang, little master, please pack up the brushes and bring 2 sets of bowls and chopsticks. Tonight, I'll eat at master's house. Qingxiu angrily rapped his head with his palm and said sternly, don't say nonsense. If your master hears this, she'll skin me. Li Tai ducked and backed away. A flesh bump came up on his head quickly. Yunyang, called little master, blushed like a plum blossom and her heart fluttered, but she felt conflicted. She wanted to be little master, but knew her place. If the master occasionally showed favor, she'd be content. Li Tai looked curiously at the structure made of 3 wooden poles in the threshing yard, feeling completely puzzled. Wasn't he supposed to learn the technique to lift a cauldron with his bare hands? What's the point of this triangular frame? Besides the frame, there was a 6-meter pole. One long end was tied to a millstone, and the short end had a rope attached. The physicist Archimedes once said, give me a fulcrum, and I can lift the earth. Qingxiu pulled the rope while facing Li Tai, his face full of playful teasing. Qingke, watch carefully. He gently pulled the rope, and the millstone was lifted. Then he pressed the wooden post with his foot, suspending the millstone in midair. Qingxiu said calmly, this is the cauldron lifting technique I teach you. How is it? Powerful, right? Li Tai looked upset and shouted, Master, this is too sloppy. I want to learn how to lift a cauldron with both hands. What you're teaching is just a trick. How is this a real cauldron lifting technique? Qingxiu frowned, you brat, what are you thinking? Don't you know what it means to use knowledge to change fate? This is the power of knowledge. Our bodies are carbon-based, we're limited. Our bones can't support weights beyond what our bodies can bear, it would hurt. Though our bodies are limited, our minds and knowledge are limitless. I thought to use a frame to lift the millstone, can you think that way? Li Tai looked utterly hopeless. Master, is this so-called flying technique also a trick like this? Qingxiu nodded, yes, but let me correct you. This isn't a trick, this is knowledge's power. Qingke, I know you're disappointed, but that's the fact. Stop fantasizing. To truly lift a cauldron and fly in one step is the domain of immortals. We ordinary people can use knowledge to do what even immortals could, don't you think that's great? Li Tai collapsed. That wasn't what he imagined. It wasn't heroic or fantastical, it was just using tools. Master, you tricked me. You're a liar. I don't want to study with you anymore. He broke down crying and ran toward Li Yuan's mansion. Qingxiu thought a moment and muttered, good, won't learn then, saves me trouble. Then he tapped his blind cane and left. At that moment, Li Yuan was drinking tea with Li Taicheng and Ma Lauer, looking content. If the scenery here were better, drinking tea and wine, how wonderful. Just then, they heard a child screaming and crying as he ran in. Li Yuan turned, frowned, where did this brat come from, barging into my mansion? Believe I'll give you a spanking? Li Tai cried out, Grandfather, don't you recognize Qingke? Qingke? Li Yuan looked closely, jumped up in surprise and anger. Qingke, why are you so skinny? Li Tai sat on a stool, bent over the table, crying like a baby. Li Yuan roared, who bullied my grandson? Qingke, tell grandfather, I'll wipe them out. Li Tai threw something he'd written that afternoon on the floor and cried, I don't want to learn scholarly things from Master Qing anymore. He's a big liar. Li Yuan frowned. Qingke, explain clearly. How did Master Qing lie to you? Li Tai cried, he said he'd teach me flying technique and cauldron lifting ability, but they're all lies and tricks. Li Yuan's expression softened, half laughing. Qingke, did you actually think flying and cauldron lifting are real? Of course these are tricks, I already knew that ages ago. Li Tai protested, if you knew, why didn't you tell me? Li Yuan smiled and explained, Qingke, when I was here repairing Taiji Palace, a column weighing over 1,000 jin had to be lifted by over 10 men. Even using tool-assisted trickery, it still took many people. But one person using tools can do it alone. Li Tai thought and nodded, grandfather is right, but I don't want to learn tricks, I want real skills. Li Yuan smiled indulgently, all right. If you don't want to learn from Master Qing, we won't study with him. He picked up the sheet of paper from the floor and asked, "What's this?" Li Tai looked at it. Master Qing taught the 3-character classic and the moral essays. Li Yuan murmured, "A fine sword comes from sharpening. Diligence is the path." A flash of surprise lit his eyes as he studied it. A general's head can bear a horse. Too many words cause trouble. Good, very good. Li Yuan looked at Qingke sternly. "You brat, do you know your crime?" Li Tai was frightened and trembled. Grandfather, why are you asking?" I did wrong." Li Yuan waved the paper and said angrily, "You're outright wicked. Master Qing taught you these, the 3-character classic and moral essays. Don't you know they are classic texts that enlighten generations? Master Qing taught you this. Did Wang Gui ever teach you?" Li Tai shook his head. Li Yuan glared. "These texts enlighten the people, they're lasting works. Yet you discarded them like trash. Do you think that's innocent? Even if Master Qing didn't teach you flying or cauldron lifting, teaching you this knowledge was a blessing. It deserves your lifelong respect. Li Qingke, when I first came here, this place was poor. In just 2 months, it's become prosperous. The villagers live in comfort, happy and grateful. Since Master Qing arrived, villagers can earn money, eat well, dress warmly. Isn't that a noble skill? Isn't it worth learning? There's a saying, conquering the nation is easy, ruling it is hard. Our Tang dynasty is the Li family's kingdom. A nation based on the people means stable rule when people have food and clothes. Master Qing taught you how to stabilize a kingdom, you won't learn? Then you're not worthy of the Li family. If you remain stubborn, I will expel you from the household." Li Tai's face turned pale. He swallowed hard. In his life, grandfather never got angry, but now he was, and threatened to expel him. No wonder he panicked. Li Yuan said sternly, "Tell me, did you offend Master Qing earlier?" Li Tai was too scared to speak. He nodded repeatedly. Li Yuan called out, "Feng Fei, bring a jar of Sanla wine. You and I will go to Master Qing's house. We'll apologize to him until he forgives you." Li Yuan held the jar of fine wine and, with Li Tai, headed toward Qingxiu's home. Yunyang sat at the table, with a basin of lamb on it. She was diligently skewering the lamb with bamboo sticks. While lighting the barbecue grill, Qingxiu said, "Yunyang, you better save the kidneys and the lamb penis for me. If you dare sneak a bite of my lamb kidneys, I'll make sure you can't get out of bed tomorrow." Yunyang blushed, her eyes sparkling with watery emotion, silently picked up the lamb kidney from the basin and threw it on the ground. She said in a panic, "Ah! Master, the kidney fell on the ground, it's dirty now, can't be eaten, please punish me, master." Qingxiu, who saw everything, was so angry his nose almost twisted. He shouted, "What misfortune in my house? You clearly threw it on the ground yourself, think I don't know? Pick it up, wash it clean for me, and if you try to play smart again, I'll throw you out of the house." Yunyang panicked, quickly picked it up and ran to the kitchen to wash the kidney thoroughly. She looked at Qingxiu's back with a bit of grievance in her eyes and quietly continued skewering the lamb. Although last time Yunyang gave him a bit of oral pleasure, during the past half-month Su Xiaochun had been working hard from dawn to dusk. Qingxiu clearly had plenty of time to do bad things but hadn't touched Yunyang since. At most he joked verbally or slapped her but a little. This left Yunyang a bit resentful. Clearly he desired her, but always pretended to be proper. Was he waiting for her to make the move? As she was deep in thought, footsteps came from outside. Yunyang turned and saw Old Li leading his grandson Li Qingke in. She quickly said, "Master, Old Master Li and young Master Qingke are here." Without looking up, Qingxiu replied, "So what if they're here? It's not their first time. I say, Old Li, your nose must belong to a dog, huh? I haven't even started grilling the lamb skewers, and you already smelled it and came over." Feng Fei, the head guard, twitched his mouth and looked up at the sky, pretending not to hear. Li Yuan's face darkened, full of murderous intent. "You little brat, getting more and more outrageous. I'm at least of your grandfather's generation, and you dare compare me to a dog." Qingxiu fanned the fire as he said, "I didn't say you're a dog. The dog is one of the 12 celestial deities in the Chinese zodiac: dragon, snake, rat, ox, pig, dog, horse, goat, rabbit, tiger, rooster, monkey." Li Yuan waved his hand, "I don't have time to joke with you. I heard Qingke offended you today. He's too ashamed to come by himself, so I brought him to apologize. Qingke, kneel." Li Tai, having been scolded by Li Yuan, obediently dropped to his knees. "Mr. Qingxiu, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me." Qingxiu said, "To recognize and correct one's mistakes is a great virtue." Li Tai looked delighted, "So sir forgives me?" Qingxiu stood up, cracking his back, and grumbled, "Who said I forgave you? Offending your teacher and ancestors can't be brushed off with a few words." Li Tai lowered his head pitifully. Then I'll wait here on my knees until you forgive me. I shouldn't have offended you, shouldn't have left without letting you finish speaking, and definitely shouldn't have called you a fraud. Please forgive me. Qingxiu nodded. Since you're sincerely apologizing, you may get up. But don't sit idle, go wash your hands in the kitchen and help Yunyang skewer lamb. Li Tai didn't hesitate. He had only ever knelt to Li Yuan and Li Er and Empress Zhongsun in his life. He quickly washed his hands and quietly started skewering meat. Li Yuan didn't stand on ceremony, sat on a small stool, stretched his neck to watch Qingxiu grill lamb, and gulped. Qing brat, what delicacy are you cooking this time? Qingxiu replied, Old Li, it's better to come late than early. You're in luck tonight, it's barbecue. Li Yuan smiled, patted his wine jar, and said, I brought a jar of Sanlijiang, it's not like I'm eating for free. Cough cough, Qingxiu coughed from the smoke and pointed at the fan. Bringing wine isn't enough. You need to work. Come fan the fire while I grill. Li Yuan didn't argue. Having freeloaded meals for a month with Qingxiu, helping out seemed only fair. He moved his stool and began fanning. Qingxiu picked up the plate, sprinkled some mixed seasoning, salt, savory spice powder, crushed sesame, and a little pepper powder. If only there were chili powder, it would be perfect. Sadly, the chili seeds had just sprouted, still a month or two from harvest. Chili peppers didn't exist in the Tang dynasty, they were introduced in late Ming, after Emperor Longqing opened maritime trade. Fortunately, Qingxiu had a small packet of dried chili seeds among the transported seeds. Li Yuan clicked his tongue in wonder, didn't think lamb could be eaten like this. Taking advantage of Qingxiu's distraction, he grabbed a skewer and took a bite. Qingxiu said, It's not even fully cooked. Aren't you afraid of getting sick? Then he recalled that Li Yuan had nomadic blood and supposedly could eat raw lamb. Li Yuan proudly said, Half raw is just right. Not bad, quite delicious. Feng Fei, come here and learn. You'll have to grill this often for me from now on. Yes, master. Feng Fei crouched at the edge of the smoke, tears and snot streaming from the smoke, and had to change positions. Besides grilled lamb, there were tofu rolls with mushrooms, and several dishes made by Yunyang, braised pork, vinegared bean sprouts, pepper salt lamb ribs, cold spinach, cold wild celery, cold kunlun melon. Kunlun melon is actually eggplant, also called barbarian melon, and was one of the Tang dynasty's main vegetables. A sip of Sanlijiang proved it was indeed better than most wines on the market, clear, with almost no impurities. But sadly, it was too weak, only around 30% alcohol. Ah! Qingxiu put down his cup and sighed, if we had a plate of chilled seafood, it would be perfect. Li Tai glanced up, then continued eating, silently noting that the teacher wanted seafood. From meal to now, the teacher hadn't said a word to him. He must not miss this chance to perform well. By torchlight, Li Yuan unfolded the calligraphy Li Tai had discarded and said, Not bad, this essay on moral awakening is quite good. Why didn't you bring it out during the Moving Day celebration with the 3-character classic? Qingxiu didn't hide it, the relief methods I taught Qingke were a bit ruthless. I feared his father and officials would think I'm leading him astray, and wouldn't let him learn from me anymore. So I had him write this moral piece to offset it. Didn't expect you'd see it. Li Yuan's eyes widened angrily, who dares? Tomorrow I'll personally take Qingke to court. If anyone says a word against you, I'll tear their mouth apart. Qingxiu laughed, Old Li, that's the imperial court. If you make a scene there, aren't you afraid the emperor will chop off your head? He asked knowingly. Li Yuan paused, realizing his slip, then smoothed things over. My son is a founding minister and I have some respect with the emperor. Besides, I'm an elder, causing a little scene is no big deal. Qingxiu nodded, as long as you're happy. Come, let's drink. After another cup, Li Yuan started swaying, patted Li Tai's head and laughed. Kid, you have to teach my grandson more ways to help the people. He's only 8 and still childish. Don't take it to heart. If he makes a mistake, beat him. Spare the rod, spoil the child. You're his teacher, basically his half-father now. If he refuses to learn, just beat him half to death. Li Tai trembled beside him and made up his mind, he would never offend the teacher again. Seeing how frightened Li Tai was, Qingxiu chuckled and said, Don't be afraid. As your teacher, I won't hit you without reason. I know you still have doubts, thinking I'm just a trickster who relies on flashy skills. And no, teacher, I wouldn't dare. Li Tai quickly shook his head in panic. But Qingxiu didn't let the opportunity slip by. He continued, having great strength or flying through the air is nothing special. What's truly impressive is to stand shoulder to shoulder with the divine using a mortal's body. Li Tai's eyes widened in disbelief. A mortal, shoulder to shoulder with the divine? Qingxiu scoffed, there's a lot you need to learn, digging canals, building roads, moving mountains and filling seas, blessing the people, strengthening the country, giving the people food and clothing, making travel easier, ensuring children can study, and the sick can be treated. Even completing one of these would be a merit praised for generations. Chinke, the people are easily satisfied, as long as they are well fed and clothed, and not oppressed, they will be as steady and reliable as the water that carries a boat. Li Tai didn't quite understand, still confused. Li Yuan asked, "What do you mean by that?" Qingxiu sighed, "Governing for the people isn't just empty words. You must love the people as your own children. The ruler is light, the people are heavy. The ruler is the boat, and the people are the water. Water can carry a boat, but it can also overturn it. That's the essence of why the people's well-being matters." Li Yuan's eyes lit up. He understood the weight behind these words. This line, in fact, was something Li Er had realized in his later years, but here it was spoken first by Qingxiu. Time travel had its perks. Not only could one marry many beautiful wives, but also freely borrow the wisdom of future generations to impress others. It was getting late, and Li Tai, rubbing his sleepy eyes, said, "Grandfather, I'm tired and want to go back to rest." "All right, Feng Fei, escort Qingke back. I'll chat with Qingxiu a bit more." Li Tai followed Feng Fei, still holding a lamb skewer in his hand, but no longer hungry. He tossed it aside. Qingxiu frowned and snapped, "Come back." Li Yuan was startled and huffed, "Why are you shouting? Nearly gave me a heart attack." Li Tai turned back, puzzled. "Teacher, did you call me? What is it?" Qingxiu picked up a punishment stick. "Come here. Hold out your hand." Li Tai flinched, stepping back in fear. Li Yuan frowned. "What are you doing with that stick? You're scaring the boy. I told you to discipline him only when necessary, not just whenever you feel like it. Give me a good reason." Qingxiu said, "Hoeing grain at midday, sweat drips onto the soil. Who knows that every meal on your plate comes from hard work? Wasting food is shameful. Do you still not see what you did wrong?" Li Tai glanced at the skewer he had thrown away, quickly picked it up, wiped it off on his clothes, and ate it in 2 bites. Teacher, I finished it. I don't need to be punished now, right? Good. Since you know your mistake, just don't let it happen again. Never waste food." Relieved, Li Tai left, while Li Yuan praised the poem, visibly pleased. Though Sanlijiang wine was only about 30% alcohol, drinking enough still got them tipsy. Li Yuan had to be supported, and Qingxiu staggered with every step. If Yunyang hadn't held him up, he might have wandered off who knows where. Yunyang helped him to bed, gently removing his shoes and outer robes, looking at him with hope. She was ready to give herself to him. Rumor had it that drunk men would get wild, and her master was indeed drunk. Surely, he'd do something. But Qingxiu simply collapsed onto the bed and began snoring. Yunyang sighed helplessly and quietly stayed by his side. The next morning, Qingxiu woke to find Yunyang asleep at his bedside, her head resting on the covers. He gently shook her. She woke slowly, and upon seeing him up, hurried to stand. "Master, you were drunk last night, and I stayed to watch over you. I must have dozed off by accident. I'll go fetch water now." As she turned to leave, Qingxiu pulled her back. She cried out in surprise and fell onto the bed. Qingxiu lifted her chin, smirking. "Yunyang, do you like me?" Yunyang blushed deeply and stammered, "And no, I don't." "Then tell me, are you ugly?" he asked. Yunyang shyly and honestly replied, "I don't know if I'm pretty or ugly." Qingxiu grinned. "Then in your opinion, am I seeing you as ugly or beautiful?" Yunyang panicked, not knowing what to say. Qingxiu whispered, "Have you heard of the blind man feeling the elephant? And no. What about feeling your way across a river with stones?" She nodded quickly, "Yes, I've heard of that." He said, "You don't know if you're ugly or pretty, and I can't see you either. So, why don't I use my hands to find out if you're ugly or beautiful?" "Huh? What do you mean?" Her head was spinning. No one had ever teased her like this. She didn't know how to react. "Take off your clothes." "Master, she clutched her robe tightly, her delicate fists pressing against her chest. Qingxiu teased, "Last night, you threw away my lamb kidney on purpose, clearly to seduce me. Why are you hesitating now? I'll give you the chance, do you want me or not?" Yunyang scrambled off the bed and fled, covering her flushed face, stomping her feet in the kitchen. She felt scared, disappointed, even blaming herself for being too timid and missing the perfect chance to climb into her master's bed. Oh well, next time. She comforted herself with that thought. Su Xiaochun hadn't returned last night. Qingxiu decided to visit his official wife in the city and maybe look for a decent house. Keeping her in an inn wasn't safe or hygienic. He ordered Taizhu to ready the carriage, loaded it with over 1,000 taels of gold, and set off with Yunyang and a squad of guards toward Chang'an. Inside the carriage, though she knew her master was blind, Yunyang didn't dare look at him directly. Instead, she peeked at him from the corner of her eye. After these few days together, she had learned that no matter what she did, he could sense it. Qingxiu smirked, lowering his voice. Yunyang, your heart's beating fast. It is. Her cheeks turned crimson as she quickly placed her hand over her chest. Sure enough, her heart was pounding. Seeing her like that, Qingxiu teased, are you nervous? No, she muttered stubbornly, though her blushing cheeks betrayed her. Thinking of that night, Qingxiu suddenly felt warm. He took a deep breath and said, come here. Yunyang obediently slid closer. She seemed to sense what was happening. Her body trembled slightly, her face shy and flustered. Here? Yes, right here. Such boldness? Yunyang bit her lip lightly, her eyes like spring water. Last time she'd missed her chance, blaming herself for days. This time, she seemed to have gathered her courage. After about half an hour, Yunyang looked up innocently. Seeing her expression, Qingxiu cursed himself inwardly. Her eyes were clear and pure, her face soft and pitiful. He suddenly felt a strong sense of guilt. But thankfully, Yunyang showed no displeasure. Her cheeks were still flushed, and she remained quiet and gentle. Once she cleaned up, Qingxiu lifted the curtain, and they had already arrived at Chang'an. Chang'an City was extremely prosperous. Even Qingxiu, a man from the future, couldn't help but sigh at its splendor. He had seen roads before, but never such wide ones. Zhuke Street was fully 200 meters wide. Even the vertical roads separating the wards, besides Zhuke Street, were each about 100 meters wide. The horizontal roads were narrower, but still 20 to 30 meters wide. The straight Zhuke Street had wards on both sides arranged neatly like tofu blocks. Each ward's street-facing buildings were roughly identical, uniformly divided and arranged, all looking the same. The chief designer responsible for building Chang'an City must have had OCD. When they arrived at Xinglong Tea Shop in Ani Ward, Qingxiu noticed through his mind's eye that at the shop's counter stood a foreigner wearing a scarf, long gown, pointed V-shaped shoes, and a big beard. From his attire and appearance it was easy to tell he was a foreign friend, just not sure which country he was from in this era. The foreigner was babbling something and gesturing wildly. Ma Lauer and Zhang Laodao looked bewildered, and Su Xiaochun was trying to gesture as well, attempting to communicate with the foreigner. But the two were clearly talking past each other, not understanding at all. Qingxiu burst out laughing, because he recognized what the foreigner was saying. It was the official language of future Persia, Persian. The funny part was that no one else understood, but he could. When he studied abroad in the past, he had studied Persian and had even worked as a translator for many domestic tourists. He had made hundreds of thousands of translation commissions in Tajikistan. Su Xiaochun saw their carriage from afar. She saw her husband lifting the curtain, smiling. She walked over, both surprised and delighted. Husband, why have you come to Chang'an? Qingxiu smiled indifferently. Wife, you've been working too hard these days. I came to visit you. Su Xiaochun's face flushed, but her happiness was apparent. She smiled sweetly. Since my husband cares for me so much, though you cannot see, I must support the family. With your concern, no matter how hard it is, I won't mind. Qingxiu asked, Wife, I just heard you speaking with someone. Did something happen? Playing blind had become Qingxiu's habitual role. Su Xiaochun froze, amused and exasperated. Husband, a foreigner came babbling nonstop. I couldn't understand him. Zhang Laodao said he was a Persian merchant, but even he couldn't understand what that bearded foreigner was saying. Qingxiu tapped his blind cane and walked forward, asking in Persian, What do you want? The words escaped, and Su Xiaochun froze. She glanced at Yunyang and saw the same stunned expression. At the tea shop's door, Ma Lauer and Zhang Laodao similarly widened their eyes. Laodao, did I hear wrong? Our master also knows a foreign language? Zhang Laodao couldn't stop himself. You heard right. I heard it too. He spoke in Persian. The Persian merchant's eyes lit up, and he babbled excitedly. He and the shopkeeper had been talking past each other all morning and were already tongue-tied. Qingxiu tapped the counter. Laodao, brew me a pot of tea. Zhang Laodao brought over a pot of tea, clearly brewed earlier, and poured a bowl for Qingxiu. Qingxiu didn't drink it himself. Instead, he offered it to the Persian merchant, saying in Persian, Speak slowly. Don't rush. Drink some water first. The Persian merchant gratefully finished the tea, made a satisfied expression, glanced enviously at the tea barrel, and then explained his purpose. Qingxiu understood. The Persian merchant was named Zilihade and was here to purchase large quantities of tea. After clarifying the details, Qingxiu nodded. Granted. Tea costs 10 taels of silver per jin. If you buy more, I can give you a 10% discount. The Persian merchant was straightforward, saying, I want 500 jin of perfumed tea. I didn't bring silver. I can use this in exchange. He took from his cloth pouch a bead the size of a walnut. The bead was translucent, not perfectly round, with many bubbles and even some sand inside. Under sunlight the bead sparkled brilliantly. This immediately attracted many passers-by, all gazing at the bead in amazement. Ma Lauer's breathing turned rapid as he exclaimed, "Jade glaze." Zhang Laodao trembled. "My goodness, such a large jade glaze. It must be worth a lot." "Laodao, I remember Lord Li also had a jade glaze, but it wasn't this big. He treasured it, don't you remember? I recall, he even showed it off during his 60th birthday." Li Yuan was 61, more than 10 years past his 60th. Zhang Laodao and Ma Lauer stared at the glaze bead, their eyes filled with envy. The Persian merchant proudly looked around, as if to say these simple folk had never seen such a large glaze. At that moment, Qingxiu's lips twitched and his face turned pitch black. Without warning, he slapped across his head. "Damn it, you're trying to fool me?" Smack. The Persian merchant got hit so hard 4 front teeth flew out and he collapsed, seeing stars. This scene not only shocked the onlookers but also startled Ma Lauer and Zhang Laodao. Both understood well that Tang law and civil regulations prohibited mistreating foreign merchants. They were allowed to trade freely in Chang'an, as long as they didn't break Tang laws. However, they had to stay at a designated camp for foreigners at night. This was a form of control. Qingxiu, face dark, shouted in Persian angrily, "You son of a bitch, trying to fool me with a bead made from burnt sand? Do you think I'm blind or stupid?" The Persian merchant was stunned, shocked, and terrified. Tang people already knew glazed beads were made from burnt sand? Su Xiaochun and Yunyang were also petrified, standing still, at a loss. Not satisfied with one slap, Qingxiu swung his cane on him, though not too hard, enough to avoid killing him. Still, the Persian merchant howled in pain, rolling on the ground, repeatedly apologizing in Persian, "Sorry, Tang Lord. I'm afraid. I won't dare again." As Qingxiu beat him, he cursed, "I haven't even sold this for profit yet, and you try to cheat me. Do you take Tang people for fools? Take your broken glaze and get lost." He shouted this in Persian. The Persian merchant, relieved, ignored his pain, fled in panic, frequently looking back to see if this slap-happy Tang Lord was chasing. Qingxiu thought to himself, he was planning to make glass beads to profit from wealthy people, but didn't expect a Persian merchant would come sell him low-quality glaze to cheat him. It felt ironic. The process of making glass was actually simple and didn't require rare materials. Judging by its color, the bead was low-quality glass. Glass is silicon dioxide, sand is also silicon dioxide? You just need high heat to make glaze. Obviously, the Persian merchant didn't master the true essence of glazing yet. In fact, you need to add other substances to remove impurities and make the glaze smooth and clear. That's boric acid, borax, and lime. Otherwise, the glaze turns green and full of impurities. Su Xiaochun was terrified, and she and Yunyang huddled together. When Qingxiu returned to his usual gentle and refined demeanor, Su Xiaochun timidly stepped forward and whispered, "Husband, that big glass bead is a rare treasure. Why were you so angry when that Persian merchant took it out?" Qingxiu said in a low voice, "Because all the glass in the world is made from free sand." "What? Sand?" Su Xiaochun exclaimed in disbelief. Qingxiu quickly covered her mouth and smiled bitterly. "Dear lady, do you want the whole world to know that glass is made from sand? Your husband still wants to make money selling these so-called jade glass beads." Su Xiaochun quickly shrank her neck and helped Qingxiu up. "Husband, let's talk inside the shop. But you hit that Persian merchant, he won't take this lightly. He might even report to the officials. What do we do if the authorities come?" She looked genuinely worried. Qingxiu said indifferently, "He wouldn't dare. I just explained to him in Persian the origin of glass. Even if he had the courage of a tiger or leopard, he wouldn't dare report it. If he does, the ones in trouble would be those Persian merchants." "Why?" Su Xiaochun didn't understand. Qingxiu flicked her forehead with a smile, "You're really making me want to cry from your foolishness. If the whole Tang dynasty learns that the glass beads those Persian merchants use for trade are made from sand, wouldn't those who've been fooled beat them to death? So that's it." Su Xiaochun suddenly understood, then blushed and pouted, "Husband, I'm just a woman. I'm not as clever as you. Managing the tea business is already tough enough." Qingxiu pinched her soft cheek and smiled, "My wife is actually very smart and capable, especially at night." Su Xiaochun blushed even more, looking adorably shy and tempting. Nearby, Ma Lauer and Zhang Laodao overheard their conversation. Zhang Laodao cleared his throat and lowered his voice, "Master, did you say glass is made from sand?" Qingxiu nodded. Ma Lauer's face turned red with anger, "That damned Persian merchant. How dare he deceive us Tang people like this? Master, report this to the court." His Majesty will surely order all those black-hearted Persian merchants expelled from the Tang dynasty. Qingxiu frowned. Old Ma, calm down. Years ago, due to war, Persian merchants couldn't use glass to cheat people. Now the world is at peace, and they dare show up again. Glass beads have only been popular in Tang for a year or so, not enough to form a trend. Even if you report it, without evidence, what's the point? If you're convicted of false accusation, can you bear the consequences? Ma Lauer gritted his teeth. Still, we can't let these damned Persians treat us like fools. Qingxiu smiled. No rush. I came to Chang'an to buy a residence. We can secretly produce a batch of glass beads far superior to those of the Persians and make some money first. Zhang Laodao's eyes lit up. Ma Lauer looked uneasy. Master, even you want to cheat our own people? Qingxiu said sincerely. Old Ma, I won't cheat poor folks. I'll cheat the filthy rich, and I plan to fool other foreigners too, like Tubo, Turks, Zhuangzuo, Goguryeo, and Arabs. They've got plenty of money. Ma Lauer raised his eyebrows and nodded. As long as it doesn't harm common people, I support you no matter who you want to cheat. Ma Lauer was born a commoner. As a boy, his family starved during wartime. Some died from hunger, others were killed. If he hadn't been taken in by a martial arts master, he'd have died too. Because of that tragic youth, he never married. Even after becoming a village chief and receiving a salary, he only kept enough for food and gave the rest to villagers who couldn't eat. Qingxiu then asked, tea sales have dropped a lot recently, haven't they? Ma Lauer and Zhang Laodao both nodded. Su Xiaochun looked a bit dejected. Yes, not as good as before. Today, we only sold 3 jin of tea in the Ani ward. I hadn't told you about this yet, how did you know? Qingxiu said, it's expected. Tea is consumable but not essential. There are many rich families in Chang'an, but still limited. Tea is expensive. Common people can't afford it. We only make money from the wealthy, so profits are limited. If every rich family has already bought tea, they'll have enough for a while. When they have tea, they won't buy more. That's market saturation, leading to a long sales slump, possibly lasting until we die, unless we find new markets. Su Xiaochun's face fell, regretfully saying, if I had known, I wouldn't have opened so many shops. I paid a full year's rent for one new location. Earlier, we earned thousands of taels a day. But now, we may only earn a few dozen a day. Husband, what do we do? Qingxiu laughed. I knew this day would come. That's why I'm here. Su Xiaochun's eyes lit up. Husband, you must have a plan, right? You heard it just now, unless we open new markets. If we can't sell tea in Chang'an, then we sell it in Jiangnan, Longxi, Shandong, or overseas. Su Xiaochun sighed. Sounds easy, but it's hard in practice. Qingxiu smiled. We don't need to sell it ourselves. In a few days, someone envious of our tea business will approach us. They'll help us make money, like the Persian today. Su Xiaochun's eyes sparkled, and she nodded quickly. She knew her husband well. If he said someone would come talk business, then someone would. Her job was just to wait. Qingxiu suddenly said, Old Ma, Laodao, my wife and I will watch the shop. You two take Taizhu and Xuanzi to check around Furong Garden and see if there's a large residence for sale. I want to buy a home in Chang'an. Ma Lauer and Zhang Laodao agreed and left with the 2 others. Guzi and some house guards stayed to protect the couple. Less than half an hour later, Ma Lauer and Zhang Laodao returned, excited. Master. Zhang Laodao took a sip of tea and said, near Furong Garden, in Qinglong Ward, there's a mansion for sale, about 12 mu of land. They say it was once a general's residence. Old Ma and I climbed over the wall to look. The place is grand and imposing, with big front and back courtyards, perfect for a few dozen people. It's less than 2 li from Furong Garden. Qingxiu's eyes lit up, and he nodded. That's a good spot. Is the seller the government or a noble? Zhang Laodao grinned. I have friends working as guards in a gambling house. They said a noble named Dou Fengjie lost 8,000 taels of silver gambling and wants to use the mansion as collateral to pay off his debt. Qingxiu frowned. Dou Fengjie? I remember Empress Taomu's surname is Dou. Are they related? Zhang Laodao nodded. Yes. Dou Fengjie's father, Dou Gue, is Empress Taomu's brother and our emperor's uncle. Master, he's desperate to sell the general's mansion but can't find a buyer. Do you want to negotiate? Qingxiu nodded and smiled faintly. Since it was the empress's nephew's household, this deal would be easy to settle. Gambling houses in the Tang dynasty were as legitimate as brothels, they were respectable businesses, but you still needed connections to open one. In Chang'an, those who could open a gambling house were either imperial relatives or nobility. In Changle Ward, many gambling houses were located. Lao Dao said that Dou Fengjie often came here to gamble when he had nothing else to do, and mostly lost more than he won. Inside one gambling house, a dealer with mustache was embarrassed as he said, "Master Do, you already owe 9,500 taels of silver. We're just small-time business, can you stop owing so much?" Do Fengjie, 20-something, handsome, impatiently said, "Who in Chang'an doesn't know I never leave debt? My uncle is the retired emperor, my cousin is the current emperor, how could I ever owe you gambling debts?" The dealer looked at the gambling house owner, who casually waved and smiled, "No worries." Master Do said that once he loses 10,000 taels silver, he'll use the former general's mansion as collateral, and borrow another 50 taels. Do Fengjie smirked, "You lowlife who looks down on others, your gambling house owner wouldn't dare speak to me like that. Quickly, give me 50 taels." The dealer reluctantly pushed over 10 large silver ingots of 50 taels. Less than an incense stick later, Do Fengjie, unhappy, looked at the now empty chest before him and muttered, "Damn it. Such bad luck today, I lost over 4,000 taels again. Damn." In the next 10 to 15 days, he came daily, winning and losing, but lost a total of 10,000 taels. The gambling house owner came over, patted him on the shoulder, smiling, "Master Do, you've lost 10,000 taels. Isn't the Qinglong Ward General's mansion, hee." Do Fengjie, annoyed, shook off the owner's hand, "Can't I still owe you? Wait, I'll go back and get the deed." As Do Fengjie was leaving, the owner signaled his 2 lackeys to follow. They followed Do Fengjie outside, to see him greeted by 2 old men surrounding a blind man. One old man waved. Do Fengjie frowned, "What do you want?" Old Ma smiled, "You must be the eldest son of the Duke of Zongua, young Master Do?" Do Fengjie was puzzled, "You know me." Old Ma nodded, "In Changle Ward, every gambling house knows you, young Master Do, are the god of wealth here. You gamble money like water, those of us born from fields have heard your name." Do Fengjie, flattered, said, "You old man are amusing, what do you want from me?" Old Ma and Lao Dao exchanged glances. Then they lifted a wooden box from a carriage, placed it on the ground, and opened it. Gold glittered under the sun. Do Fengjie's eyes lit up with greed, "What are you offering?" Old Ma laughed, "Our boss wants a residence in Chang'an. Here's 1,100 taels of gold. Instead of mortgaging 10,000, why not sell it to us for 11,000? Do Fengjie was delighted, "You'll pay 11,000? Lao Dao tapped the box, "You see, 1,100 taels of gold, converted to silver ingots, equals 11,000 taels silver. What do you think?" Do Fengjie, excited, "Wait, I'll fetch the deed." "Don't worry, we'll go with you." "Please get in," Old Ma said. Do Fengjie got into the carriage without hesitation. The 2 lackeys, seeing this, quickly returned to inform the manager. The manager's eyes widened, "Are you sure someone will buy the general's mansion for 11,000 taels? That's the place our boss has wanted for years." "Yes, we saw them bring 1,100 taels of gold," they answered. The manager raged, "Damn it. After 2 weeks setting the trap, couldn't let it slip. Where's Yazi? Bring him and his men, steal their gold. Under no circumstances let the mansion go to someone else. Or I lose my post." Yazi was a hulking man, missing 2 front teeth, but fierce-looking. Hearing the order, he took 7 or 8 thugs, masked and with clubs, and rushed out. In the carriage, Do Fengjie sized up Qingxiu, "Are you the one buying the mansion?" Qingxiu smiled faintly and nodded. Do Fengjie asked, "Are you blind?" Qingxiu nodded again. Do Fengjie chuckled, "Nowadays, blind men have this kind of money?" Qingxiu replied modestly, "Business at home earns some money." Do Fengjie sighed, "The market price of that mansion is well above 10,000 taels silver. The beginning of the year a merchant offered 30,000. Didn't think it'd sell for only 11,000. Qingxiu said nothing. Earlier, he investigated, Qinglong Ward is far from the imperial city, almost at the wall, but close to Furong Garden. Prices aren't cheap. 30,000 taels was just a conservative estimate. Just then, the carriage passed an alley and suddenly stopped. Old Ma, the driver, joked, "Master, someone's blocking the road. Looks like a robbery." Qingxiu was surprised, "Is Chang'an so unsafe now?" Do Fengjie's face turned angry, "They dare rob in Chang'an? Must be brazen." He lifted the curtain and saw 7 or 8 masked men. The leader looked familiar. Yazi whispered, "We only want their money. Leave your gold, and we'll spare you." Old Ma and Lao Dao glanced at each other, amused. "Heh, Old Ma, don't take mine. These 8 belong to me." Old Ma replied, "We split in half. Lao, you rest." Lao pulled a big naked club from under his coat and sneered, "You old men better shut up, parading robbers, you come at me, I'm not messing around. Anyone sees me, they'll bow down." Then Lao flipped the club and jumped off the carriage. Old Ma cursed, "Damn you. We agreed to split 4 each." Old Ma jumped too. In the carriage, Qingxiu quietly smiled. They really picked the wrong men, these two are living demons. Before they met, outside there were horrific screams and bone-cracking sounds. Even Yazi was crushed, his kneecap broken, rolling and shrieking in pain. Dou Fengjie was stunned. When old Ma returned, he bowed and said, "Master Dou, sorry. Lao was too rough, broke bones to bits. Didn't scare you, did he?" Dou Fengjie was a noble and used to spectacles. He wasn't frightened, but was amazed by their skills. He considered Qingxiu's identity, employing martial experts as carriage drivers meant his status must be remarkable. Yet Dou Fengjie, the most dissolute among nobles after the royal, had never seen such a person. Lao said, "If the authorities investigate, please speak well of me, Master Dou. I was defending." Dou Fengjie nodded grimly. "Appropriate, a group of robbers? Chang'an isn't theirs to decide. I'm imperial kin. Robbing in my territory is disgrace." Dou Fengjie stepped out of the carriage and blew a bamboo whistle from his sleeve. At once, 4 agile young men appeared in the alley. He instructed, "These are the robbers, leave 3 to guard them, and 1 go to the Yongzhou government office to arrest them. After verifying their identities, send them to the Dali Temple." The Yongzhou office was responsible for Chang'an's security. Old Ma and Lao watched the young men, satisfied. Qingxiu wasn't surprised, it's normal for an imperial kin to have guards. Wealthy families also kept loyal fighters, an open secret. Dou Fengjie returned to the carriage, cupped his hands, and smiled, "Brother, don't show off your wealth. Those men are probably from the gambling house, perhaps sent to prevent you from buying the mansion. Once the deed is transferred, they won't have anything to do with you." Qingxiu was surprised. "If you saw through this, why did you still use the mansion as collateral to the gambling house?" Dou Fengjie's face turned red. He stammered, "Well, to be honest, I suffer from gambling addiction. If I don't gamble every day, I feel itchy all over. Losing money in the gambling house is routine for me. A gambler is not worthy of pity." Qingxiu smiled lightly. "You seem very open about it, young Master Dou." Dou Fengjie sighed, "There's no other way. I've lost the money. If people block my home demanding gambling debts, our imperial family's reputation would be ruined. My father might even beat me to death." Qingxiu asked, puzzled, "Then if you sell the mansion and the Grand Minister discovers it, what will you do?" Dou Fengjie chuckled, "It's fine. My father won't find out. Besides, it's not even our mansion, we can sell it as we please." Qingxiu was puzzled, until the carriage stopped at a place called the Zhongren Mansion. He immediately understood. It turned out Dou Fengjie worked at the Zhongren Mansion. The Zhongren Mansion was a department composed of imperial relatives, in charge of royal expenses, property, ceremonies, sacrifices, and imperial travel. Dou Fengjie entered the Zhongren Mansion and, soon after, sneaked out. On the carriage, he took out a property deed from his pocket and threw it to Qingxiu with gusto. "Sign here, the general's mansion in Qinglong Ward is yours." Qingxiu didn't hesitate. He had the literate Lao Dao verify the deed. After confirming it was fine, he signed it. When returning Dou Fengjie to the gambling house, Dou Fengjie patted Qingxiu's shoulder before alighting. "You're reliable. If I ever want to sell deeds in the future, you have first consideration. The price will definitely be cheaper than market. Zhongren Mansion has many deeds, not only in Chang'an, but also in Luoyang and Jiangnan." Qingxiu nodded, "Of course. My shop is in Ani Ward, come to Xinglong Tea Shop and find me. Free business delivered to the door, isn't that something? If flipping mansions can earn 20,000 taels each, that's a fortune. He could even start a Tang real estate company." Dou Fengjie was surprised. "Xinglong Tea Shop is yours?" When Qingxiu nodded, Dou Fengjie's eyes showed a flash of jealousy. He said no more. After he got off the carriage, he signaled to a hidden figure, and soon a skilled guard quietly began to follow the carriage. Of course, this could fool Lao Ma and Lao Dao, but not Qingxiu. He noticed everything. The most popular business in Chang'an right now was tea. If nobility weren't jealous, they'd be unreasonably blind. Lao Dao and Lao Ma said many people were already investigating the tea shop owner. Meanwhile, early today, Ling Yuan took Ling Tai to the palace. Ling Tai first paid respects to his birth mother, Empress Zhang Sun. Upon seeing her chubby darling thin and dark, the empress almost fainted with concern and cried for a while. If not for Ling Er sending people to summon Ling Tai, Empress Zhang Sun might have forced him to eat more to regain weight. Ling Tai, relieved, left Lijing Hall and proceeded to Wuda Hall. At this morning's court session, Ling Er was uneasy, because Ling Yuan was secretly listening from backstage. Ling Er didn't want Ling Yuan involved in state affairs, but Ling Yuan wouldn't relent, so Ling Er could only let him continue messing around. Fortunately, Ling Yuan didn't disrupt anything. He sat quietly drinking tea behind Wuda Hall all morning. It wasn't until someone announced, Prince Wei has arrived, that sleepy Ling Yuan suddenly became alert, his face showing more joy and anticipation. When Ling Tai entered the hall, he bowed, "Your Majesty, your son pays respects." Li II nodded calmly, no need for ceremony." Ling Tai asked knowingly, "May I ask why your Majesty summoned me?" Though he already knew the answer, neither Li II nor court officials had insight. Li II said, "Prince Wei, your disaster relief efforts were done well, I'm pleased. But your methods are too ruthless, causing dissatisfaction among ministers. They worry my prince might pick up bad habits from unsavory people." Ling Tai replied calmly, "Are you unhappy with me, your Majesty? I wish to hear your Majesty's thoughts." Li II nodded, "I feel the same. Your methods are cunning and ruthless. I and others don't know the character of the person teaching you. Can you describe whether he's upright or evil?" Ling Tai remained calm, "Your Majesty, to be honest, he is my teacher among ordinary people." "Really?" Li II raised his brow, interested, "Can you tell me who this teacher is?" Ling Tai hesitated and shook his head, "Your Majesty, my teacher once told me he likes freedom, avoids palace intrigues, and instructed me not to reveal his name." Li II frowned, displeased, "Prince Wei, your teacher says he hates factionalism, so why is he plotting with you?" Ling Tai explained, "Your Majesty, you don't know, when I became his student, I didn't tell him my true identity. Otherwise, he would never accept me as a disciple. Even grandfather with him didn't reveal status. We both interacted as common people. If he knew our royal identity, he wouldn't associate with us." Li II's expression darkened, "Prince Wei, who is this godly person to clearly separate himself from the royal family? You and your grandfather lowered yourselves to associate as commoners? This greatly offends the royal dignity." Ling Tai smiled wryly, "Your Majesty, my teacher is a disciple of an immortal, noble and pure, naturally." "An immortal?" Li II gaped, incredulous. Court officials were equally astonished. "Nonsense, how could immortals exist?" "Li Jing, you seen immortals?" Li Jing, over 50, frowned and shook his head. Prince of Hejian, Li Xiaogong, chuckled and said, "Doesn't your brother with the azure beard still haven't returned from searching for immortals at sea?" Li Jing flew into rage, grabbing Li Xiaogong's collar, "Prince Hejian, what do you mean?" Li Xiaogong shrugged, pushing Li Jing's hand away, "I just asked if you've seen immortals. Since you haven't, fine. Old Li, why make such a fuss?" "Oomph." Li Jing snorted and ignored Prince Hejian. Officials knew this topic was forbidden with Li Jing, anyone who mentions it will face his wrath. This was a scene at court, Prince Wei's teacher is an immortal's disciple, totally shocking. The court erupted with discussion, and even Li II was unsettled. After hearing this, Li Yuan slapped his thigh in silent delight. Although he didn't truly believe Qingxiu was a disciple of an immortal, Qingxiu's words convinced him he had seen it with his own eyes. Wei Zheng frowned and said, "Prince Wei, are you aware of the crime of deceiving the emperor?" Li II's face changed instantly and paled, clearly panicking. If what Li Tai said was false, that was indeed the actual crime of deceiving the emperor. Even he, as emperor, could not shield Li Tai. Under the pressure of the ministers, he would have to enforce the law impartially. How could Li II not become anxious? He glared and rebuked loudly, "Li Tai, what nonsense are you spouting? How could immortals exist in this world?" Li Tai replied cautiously, "Father, my teacher once met an old man in Qinling Mountains, who taught him knowledge. One day, the old man suddenly said he was going to Baiyujing. There was a flash of white light, and he disappeared. Before leaving, the old man recited a poem to my teacher." The civil and military officials widened their eyes, some breathless, many incredulous. Baiyujing? Going to Baiyujing? Could it be that the old man was an immortal from Baiyujing? He said he would go to Baiyujing, then vanished in white light. He must have been an immortal from Baiyujing. Are there truly immortals in this world? Li II slammed his hand on the table, excited, and asked urgently, "What poem did he recite?" Li Tai read aloud. "In heaven is the white jade capital, 12 towers and 5 cities. An immortal strokes my head, binding hair to gain eternal life." Xiao Yu and Pei Ji's expressions became extremely animated, even gleeful. They had heard this poem before at a previous event. But since Li Yuan had threatened them, they dared not mention it and had been silently bitter. Li II's breathing quickened. He pressed, "Besides this, what more proves he is an immortal's disciple?" "Second son, don't question Prince Wei. I'll answer for him." Li Yuan held a purple clay teapot in his right hand near his mouth, while with his left he held 2 sheets of calligraphy paper and slapped his thigh as he walked forward. Li II restrained his excitement and helped his father, "Father, please sit." Li Yuan waved it off, "No need. I'll stand." Li Yuan scanned the court and exclaimed, "He was right. The methods he taught Prince Wei for disaster relief were ruthless. No wonder the ministers complained, Mr. Qing truly is divine. The officials all stared wide-eyed. Retired Emperor, are you saying this immortal disciple foresaw today's court debate? My goodness, how is that possible? How could he know? He's an immortal disciple, prescience isn't impossible. Li II, astonished, asked, Father, did he anticipate today's turn of events? Li Tai quickly said, Yes, Father. My teacher foresaw today. Initially, I asked how to carry out relief, and he taught me this method, but didn't tell me to do it myself. He wanted me to relay it to you. Yes. I didn't mention your Majesty's identity, I only said you were an official struggling with relief. Teacher saw my filial piety and then shared the method, saying I should tell Father. But I was too eager to show off, so I took action alone. When he learned this, he punished my palm with the disciplinary ruler. And collecting grain tax was just casually mentioned by him. Li Tai sheepishly tapped the back of his head in embarrassment. Li II, surprised, he intended you to relay it to me? Yes, Li Tai nodded. Teacher said I'm too young, like a tree that stands out and is easily killed by winds. He told me not to be pampered, to be steady, and not to stand out. Disaster relief is for adults. I should focus on learning and not worry about other things. Father, uncles, you know, I chose that fat shopkeeper because he had abused villagers, splitting families, destroying lives. My teacher said, one who eats from the people's toil deserves execution, one who ministers to the people deserves respect. You thought my teacher was sly, but he always cares for the people. How could he be cunning and ruthless? Yes. Li Yuan smiled. Mr. Qing truly cares for the people. In villagers by the Ba River, who were impoverished, he used his methods to make them prosperous within 2 months. Every household had endless grain and silver. Even women and children in the villages earned silver monthly to help at home. And every household was building brick houses. Li Yuan spoke proudly, as if it was his own accomplishment. Is there more? Li II's eyes widened. Father, why did you never tell me this? Li Yuan was displeased. Do you think I would tell you? I became close friends with Qing, and he's free-spirited. If he'd known I concealed identity to dupe him, he'd have left me. Besides, if he learned Prince Wei's father was the emperor, he'd expel Wei from his school. I didn't tell you. If Qing hadn't anticipated the minister's attack, I wouldn't have set foot in the palace again. Humph. Li Yuan snorted and flared his temper. Everyone exchanged glances. Li Yuan swept his gaze to Li II and said, Second son, I drank with Qing last night. He said something that moved me. What did he say? Li II asked eagerly. Li Yuan replied, he said, the Tang Empire was founded with the people as base, the ruler is light, the people are heavy. The ruler is a boat, the people are water. Water carries the boat, but can also capsizes it. Remember this, and you secure the kingdom. Li II's body shivered. He abruptly stood from the dragon throne, eyes gleaming, and praised, Wonderful, wonderful, a metaphor of water carrying and capsizing the boat, comparing people to water and the emperor to a lone boat. Such a brilliant analogy. This Mr. Qing is indeed a great talent. Li Yuan dismissed, that's nothing. The knowledge Mr. Qing taught Prince Wei is true knowledge. He slapped the 2 sheets of calligraphy on the desk. Look, this is what he taught Prince Wei. This is only a drop in the ocean. He has much more real talent yet to reveal. Li II eagerly unfolded the papers, muttering, 3-character classic? People at birth are inherently good. Yes, yes. Wonderful. Li II's face turned crimson with excitement. The 3-character classic is a great primer for young children. He unfolded the other sheet, and its content made him breathe rapidly. The edge of a treasured sword comes from sharpening, the fragrance of plum blossoms comes from bitter cold. On the path of the book mountain diligence serves as the way, on the sea of learning hardships make the boat. As each philosophical line was read, the court officials could no longer remain calm. Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, Zhang Sun Wuji, all these civil ministers looked visibly shaken. They were scholars, and recognized the profound, clear truths embedded in the 3-character classic and the admonitions for the wise, simple, well-known wisdom. Li II read the admonitions for the wise and the 3-character classic several times, then suddenly exclaimed, I must meet him. I will entrust him with great responsibility. With such talent and learning, it would be a shame not to appoint him Grand Scholar of the Hongwen Academy. The diligence chapter in the admonitions is a stunning exhortation, constantly reminding people to study diligently. As for the virtue chapter, anyone capable of writing those ideals cannot be a cunning or ruthless person. Li II looked around, clapped his hands, and laughed. This Mr. Qing is such a great talent. Appointing him as chancellor would be appropriate. With such talent serving the state, how can our Tang dynasty not prosper? Xiao Yu's expression shifted, and he lowered his head. He was the left prime minister, the current chancellor, but the position meant little to him now. As a senior minister of Li Yuan, he was nearing retirement. But Zhang Sun Wuji's pupils contracted. He sensed a major threat to his career. Everyone knew once Xiao Yu stepped down, Zhang Sun Wuji would be the next left prime minister. Li Yuan sneered and said, "Second son, forget about left prime minister. From what I know of him, he wouldn't care even if you offered him the throne." Li II was startled, sat down with a sigh. Yes. Such a person, who does not seek fame and fortune but only wants to benefit the people, and avoids court factionalism, he is truly indifferent to status. How could he be for me? Li Yuan smiled and nodded. That fellow is stubborn and unyielding, harder than a stone in a cesspit. Li II and Li Tai both laughed. Li II nodded. I begin to believe he really is an immortal's disciple. Prince Wei, does your teacher have any other works? Your father would like to hear them. Li Tai tilted his head, thought, then shivered and said fearfully, there is a poem. Last night, my grandfather and I had dinner at Mr. Qing's house. I dropped a skewer of lamb, and Mr. Qing nearly disciplined me with the ruler. Mr. Qing said, hoeing grain at midday. Sweat drips onto the soil. Who knows the food on one's plate? Each grain is hard-earned. Wasting food is shameful. He said I deserved punishment, but fortunately I picked up the lamb and ate it. Otherwise, I would have been spanked. Hearing this, even the court officials were moved. Li II carefully recited the poem several times, then exclaimed excitedly, Wang De, copy the 3-character classic, the admonitions, and this poem to the Hongwen Academy immediately. Spread them across the Tang dynasty. Prince Wei, what is this poem's title? And what is your teacher's name? Li Tai respectfully replied, Father, this poem is titled Sympathy for Farmers, Min Nong, and Mr. Qing's name is Qing Xiu. Li II said, sign it under Qing Xiu. Qing Xiu? Li II murmured, this name seems familiar. Zhang Sun Wuji suddenly realized and said, Your Majesty, this Qing Xiu is the Baron of Lantian County you ennobled, the brick burner. Li II's eyes widened, what? The brick burner Qing Xiu? Li Yuan nodded with a smile. Li II gave a bitter smile, so it's him, the Mr. Qing you mentioned. Father, may I visit the country estate you speak of? Li Yuan warned, what are you trying to do? I caution you not to ruin my relationship with Qing. If you do, I'll hang myself in Wuda Hall. Li II's face changed. He pleaded, Father, please don't say such things. Even if I don't meet him, I don't want to see you hang yourself there. What would people think? I promise, if I meet Mr. Qing, I won't reveal his identity. Also, please tell me what Mr. Qing dislikes so I can prepare myself. Li Yuan thought and said, he's not much for taboos, but he's frugal. Though he earned some money, he didn't squander it, he used most to help villagers build houses. Li II was deeply moved, Mr. Qing is truly virtuous. I am ashamed. Li Yuan proudly added, he's not only frugal, he opened a vegetable garden in his yard and grows his own food. He added sadly, it's a pity, he still doesn't own a house in Chang'an. Whenever I visit, I must travel for half a day. That's why I built a house for him at the estate, haha. His words, innocent as they were, spoke loudly to Li II. Li II moved and said, Wang De, does the Zhongren mansion still have available houses? Wang De thought and replied, Your Majesty, the best house is the Lanfeng Garden, granted to Sun Fu recently. The rest are fine but not as grand as noble residences in the city. Li II frowned, I wish to give Mr. Qing a house to thank him for accepting Prince Wei. Can't do that? Wang De's eyes lit up, Your Majesty, there is indeed a residence, somewhat far from the palace but within the city, near Furong Garden in Qinglong Ward. It used to be a general's mansion. It's not less grand than other noble estates. Li II immediately smiled, then informed the Zhongren mansion to gift the Qinglong Ward general's mansion to Mr. Qing, so he'll have a place in Chang'an. Li Yuan frowned, second son, why are you suddenly giving him a house? Doing so in the royal name risks exposing the identities of Prince Wei and me. Li II was troubled but said, then I'll issue an imperial decree granting him a house, just say the bricks he made were measured cheaply. It'll read the prior reward was insufficient. He began drafting the decree as officials murmured conspiratorially, they were secretly planning to have their unfilial sons follow his example and apprentice under Mr. Qing later. Li Yuan yawned, been an early day. I'll take a nap. Li II rose to see him off. Li Yuan waved, no need, you have affairs to attend. Oh, Mr. Qing likely isn't at home. I saw his carriage this morning heading to Chang'an tea shop. Li II asked, he likes tea? Li Yuan laughed, the Xinglong tea shop is his. Li Yuan left laughing, leaving a stunned Li II. As emperor, he knew tea business in Chang'an made big money, and he was envious, but bound by rank, he could only watch. But when he thought of Mr. Qing using his profits to build for Tang, Li II smiled and wrote the decree vigorously. After finishing, he asked Wang De to obtain the deed via the Zhongren mansion. Li Tai bowed, "Father, I will return to the estate later. I don't want to miss the teacher's lesson." Li II, both pleased and proud, nodded, "Prince Wei, you'll now stay with Grandpa at the estate. You don't need to come every few days, come every 10 to 15 days. Remember, study sincerely under Mr. Qing. Be respectful, don't defy him. Understand?" "Yes, father. I will obey." Excited, Li Tai left, but before departing, he went to the imperial kitchen. Because Mr. Qing said last night he'd like some chilled seafood. Li Tai arrived at the imperial kitchen accompanied by his guards. The head steward of the kitchen hurried forward with a fawning expression. Just as he was about to speak, Li Tai kicked him squarely on the buttocks, and the flattering smile instantly froze on his face. Li Tai looked around and asked, "Chief Lu, does the imperial kitchen have any fresh seafood?" Chief Lu nodded joyfully. "Yes, yes, yes. Is your highness the Prince of Wei in the mood for seafood today?" Li Tai nodded. Chief Lu would not miss the opportunity to curry favor with the emperor's most beloved son. After all, what if this brat became emperor one day? Flattering him properly was a safe bet. As he led the way, Chief Lu said with a smile, "Every few days, the imperial kitchen receives a shipment of seafood, fresh from the coastal regions. We keep them alive in seawater. Each batch brings in quite a lot." "What kinds do you have?" Li Tai asked happily. Chief Lu said obsequiously, "Large sea prawns, abalone, sea cucumbers, yellow croaker, octopus, we have several big vats full." Li Tai beamed with even greater delight. He walked over to the 5 large vats and glanced inside. Each vat was filled with seawater, and the seafood that Chief Lu mentioned was still alive. With excitement, Li Tai waved his arm. "Take them away." A guard was momentarily stunned. "Your Highness, which one?" "All of them. Do not leave a single one behind." Chief Lu froze at these words. He quickly turned panicked. "Your Highness, you cannot just take them all. If you wish to eat some, I will have the cooks prepare them for you. If you must take some, a few of each will do. But if you take everything, how will I explain it to His Majesty and the Crown Prince?" Li Tai fully understood the implications of Li Jing's words. He must not neglect Mr. Qing. With great bravado, Li Tai declared, "Do not worry. If His Majesty asks, tell him that I took them to honor Mr. Qing. If anything happens, I will take responsibility. It has nothing to do with you, Chief Lu. Why are you all still standing there? Move them. If we do not have enough hands, go find more people." Cold sweat beaded on Chief Lu's forehead as he tried to dissuade him, but it was no use. Li Tai was determined to take the seafood to Mr. Qing. Chief Lu could only watch helplessly, not daring to intervene. All he could do was slap his thigh repeatedly in frustration, tears nearly falling from his eyes. Tai Chi Palace, Tai Pond. A maid in a green long dress looked suspiciously at a group of guards and said to the young girl beside her who was painting, "Your Highness, look over there. The Prince of Wei is having a group of guards move something. How strange." The girl addressed as "Your Highness" was just 16 years old, wearing a delicate pale pink outfit. Her black hair was styled in a maiden's bun, with a cascade of glossy hair like a waterfall trailing down her back. She turned her head and looked, her bright eyes as deep and luminous as the stars, eyebrows like freshly sprouted willow, and her petite face was the epitome of classical beauty. Her pristine long dress gave her an ethereal, otherworldly aura. Her demeanor was otherworldly and gentle, with a touch of melancholy in her eyes, a kind of fragile beauty that stirred a man's instinct to protect. When she saw over a dozen guards carrying 5 large vats of water, she was slightly surprised. Her pearly white teeth showed slightly, and her jade-like fingers touched her lips as she said with astonishment, "Yingtao, are they not moving the seafood that was delivered from the coast just yesterday? Strange. What is Qingke doing with it?" Yingtao exclaimed, "Your Highness, it is indeed the 5 vats brought yesterday. Why is the Prince of Wei taking all of them? Unless His Majesty granted them to him, taking seafood from the imperial kitchen without permission could be punishable." Princess Xiangqing looked startled and frowned. "What is Qingke thinking?" "Yingtao, put away the painting. Let us go have a look." Although not born of the Empress, Princess Xiangqing was the eldest princess of Li Jing, known for her exceptional talent and gentle nature. She followed rules and was filial, and was often cited by Li Jing as a model for the royal children. Over time, Princess Xiangqing earned the admiration and respect of her siblings. Li Liju stood and walked quickly to follow. She wanted to see what Li Tai intended to do with the 5 large vats of seafood. Yingtao grabbed the painting board and hurried after her. Once they caught up, Li Lizhu called out, "Qingke." Li Tai turned his head, quickly stopped, and said, "Halt. You may rest now." He walked toward Li Lizhu with a smile. "Sister, what brings you here?" Li Lizhu responded with a calm smile, "I was painting by Tay Pond in my leisure, and I saw you having men carry 5 large vats. Qingke, those were delivered to the palace just yesterday. Where are you taking them? Did you get father's permission?" Li Tai chuckled naively. "I am taking them out of the city, to Sanha village." Li Lizhu frowned deeply, visibly puzzled. "Why send them to Sanha village?" "Sister, best not to ask. I have urgent business and must leave now." As he turned, he happened to glance at the painting board in Yingtao's hands. Just one look and he exclaimed in surprise, "Eh? Teacher?" Li Lizhu was confused. "Teacher? Where?" Li Tai curiously leaned in for a better look, then pointed to the painting and said, "Sister, your painting clearly depicts teacher." Li Lizhu trembled slightly, and even Yingtao's mouth fell open. Gripping Li Tai's shoulders tightly, Li Lizhu pointed to the portrait and asked in a trembling voice, "Qingke, do you know this man?" Her eyes instantly reddened. Ever since that misunderstanding in the hibiscus garden, when she mistook a blind man for a lecher and scolded him harshly, only for the man to apologize instead of bearing a grudge, Princess Xiangqing had felt deep guilt. She had spent nearly a month searching for him in order to apologize sincerely. Despite sending people several times, he was nowhere to be found. All she had was a vague memory from a brief encounter, from which she tried to paint him, without even finishing the eyes, only the nose, mouth, and outline. Now, finally, there was a lead. Li Lizhu was on the verge of tears. She asked again in a trembling voice, "Qingke, do you truly know this man?" Seeing his sister so emotional, Li Tai could not lie. He nodded. "I do. He is Mr. Qing. I have the honor of studying under him." "Sister, why did you paint him?" Li Tai suddenly widened his eyes in realization. "Oh, I see now. Could it be? Sister, do you like Mr. Qing?" Li Lizhu blushed slightly but did not avoid the question. Instead, she asked urgently, "Forget that for now. I have not even painted his eyes, how do you know it is your Mr. Qing?" Li Tai replied, "It is obvious. The mouth and nose are identical, as is the face shape. I have never seen Mr. Qing's eyes either, he is blind. He always covers them with black silk when he goes out. I found him. I finally found him." Knowing he was blind, Li Lizhu was now sure this was the man she had misunderstood. Overcome with joy, she hugged Yingtao and burst into tears. Yingtao, eyes reddened, also cried. These past days, she had watched her princess become increasingly troubled and thin with worry. Now, finally, she could apologize sincerely, and her highness would no longer be burdened by guilt. Li Tai scratched his head, still confused. "Sister, why are you crying? Did Mr. Qing bully you?" If Mr. Qing truly bullied her, Li Tai did not know what to do. One was his sister, the other his teacher, he was torn. He could only hope that Mr. Qing had not done anything wrong. Li Lizhu choked up. "That day when I saw him, his eyes were not yet covered in black silk. But I forgot what they looked like, which is why I could not finish the portrait." "Oh, I see," Li Tai said after thinking for a moment. "Brother Taizhu once said that Mr. Qing was beaten in the city because, being blind, he happened to face 2 rich young ladies. They thought he was a pervert and beat him up. That is why he now always covers his eyes, to show that he is blind." How outrageous. Mr. Qing cannot even see, yet those young ladies bullied him. If I knew who they were, I would definitely teach them a lesson and defend my teacher. Yingtao's expression grew increasingly awkward. Princess Xiangqing felt a deep ache in her heart, and tears flowed uncontrollably. Yes, she remembered that the blind manservant was named Taizhu. Li Tai's words pierced the most sensitive nerve in her heart. He could have pretended to be a normal person, spared himself the prejudice, but instead, because of her misunderstanding, he chose to cover his eyes, declaring to the world that he was blind. How much pain must he endure? Imagining all this, Li Lizhu felt her heart shatter with guilt. Li Tai noticed that his sister had calmed down and asked in confusion, "Sister, why were you crying so sorrowfully? Who made you feel so wronged? Was it perhaps Mr. Qing?" Li Lizhu smiled faintly with a trace of guilt, her voice gentle as she said, "The one who wronged me was not your Mr. Qing. I was simply reminded of some unpleasant memories." "Qingke, just now you said you were going to Sanha village? Where is that?" Li Tai explained, "Sanha village is where Mr. Qing's estate is located. It is 30 li outside the city, by the Ba River." Li Lizhu pointed to the large vats and asked, puzzled, "You are taking all this seafood to Sanha village? Did you ask for father's permission?" Li Tai's eyes flickered, and he immediately nodded, "Yes, father has given his approval." Of course, he did not dare to say he had taken the seafood without permission. If he did, his sister would certainly not agree, and might even report it to their father. Li Tai thought it best to deliver the seafood to Sanha village first and deal with the rest later. Li Liju said, "If that is so, I shall accompany you out of the city." Li Tai was surprised. "You want to go to Mr. Qing's estate as well?" Li Liju nodded gently. At this moment, she was eager to find that blind man and apologize to him sincerely. If she could not gain his forgiveness, she might carry this guilt with her forever. Li Tai furrowed his brow. "What is wrong?" Li Liju asked when she saw his expression. Li Tai said awkwardly, "Sister, I have taken Mr. Qing as my teacher, but I never revealed my identity. If he finds out that I am a prince, there is a high chance he will expel me from his tutelage." Li Liju smiled calmly. "That is simple. I will not reveal my identity either." Li Tai laughed. "That is best. Then let us go together." The siblings boarded the carriage and set off for Sanha village. At the same time, inside a gambling den, upon hearing his servant's words, Do Fengjie's face suddenly turned pale. He grabbed the servant by the collar and shouted angrily, "What did you say? His Majesty wants to bestow the general's residence in Qinglong Ward as a gift." "Yes, young master. Master cannot find the deed to the general's residence and is furious right now." Do Fengjie looked ashen, as if mourning a death. His legs gave way, and he collapsed. "It is over, it is over. Why would His Majesty choose this moment to gift the general's residence? What am I to do now?" "Young master, master told you to return at once. The imperial messenger Wangda is still at the Bureau of Clan Affairs waiting to collect the deed. Out of my way." Do Fengjie pushed the servant aside, mounted his horse, and galloped off. But he did not ride toward the Bureau of Clan Affairs. Instead, he headed straight for the Xinglong tea house in Ani Ward. Soon, he arrived at the tea house and saw the young blind man who had purchased the general's residence. He dismounted and rushed to the counter, tapping it anxiously. "Shopkeeper, do you still have the deed to the general's residence that I sold you?" Qingxiu put down his teacup and smiled calmly. "So it is young Master Do. You sold the deed. Are you planning to go back on the deal?" Do Fengjie said hurriedly, "Shopkeeper, please do me a favor. Return the deed to me. I will repurchase it from you at the original price." Qingxiu frowned. "A deal made is like water spilled, there is no taking it back. 15,000 taels. I will buy back the deed for 15,000 taels." Do Fengjie was becoming desperate. Qingxiu shook his head. "Not for sale. As you said, the general's residence is worth 30,000 taels. How could I sell it back to you for half the price? If I sell, it cannot be below market price, at the very least, 30,000 taels." "You," Do Fengjie was furious. "You are raising the price on the spot." Qingxiu sneered. "Raising the price? A gentleman loves wealth but acquires it with integrity." Old Dao, standing nearby, praised, "Well said, a gentleman loves wealth but acquires it with integrity. Master, what about women who love wealth?" Qingxiu paused, then replied with a straight face, "If a woman loves wealth, she acquires it, charmingly." Everyone was stunned. Their minds could not quite grasp the meaning. Do Fengjie looked terribly distressed. He knew that if he could not quickly recover the deed and His Majesty discovered it had been sold, and the Bureau of Clan Affairs found so many deeds missing, the emperor would erupt in fury. Even as a cousin of Li Jing, he might not die, but he would be severely punished. "Fine." Do Fengjie gritted his teeth. 30,000 taels it is. I will give you the silver. Hand over the deed." Qingxiu leaned back lazily and shook his head. "Money first, then the deed. You cannot just walk off with it. What if you renege? I would be the one at a loss." "I would renege?" Do Fengjie roared. "I am a member of the imperial clan. How could I renege? Do not judge a gentleman with a petty man's heart. Hand over the deed, and I will fetch the silver from home." Qingxiu still shook his head. "No. We are strangers. I cannot take that risk. Money first, deed after." "You. Fine, fine, just wait for me." Do Fengjie was so angry that his face turned green. He mounted his horse and galloped toward the Bureau of Clan Affairs. Old Dao looked worried. "Master, Do Fengjie is the emperor's cousin. If you offend him..." "Humph," Qingxiu snorted coldly. "So what if we offend him? After we escorted him out of the gambling den, he had us followed. Perhaps you two did not notice, but my ears did not miss it." Old Dao and Old Ma were shocked. "Is that true?" Qingxiu nodded. Do Fengjie told his follower, "Check how much tea is in the shop. Tonight, send some men to steal it, and burn the place down while you are at it." Outrageous. Old Ma was furious. Old Dao grabbed his knife, his face red with anger. "That bastard, I will go chop his head off right now." "Calm yourself," Qingxiu said softly. "He was probably tempted by the profits from our tea and had bad intentions. But judging from his anxious look earlier, someone must be conducting an audit at the Bureau of Clan Affairs. He is desperate to save himself. Otherwise, he would not offer 30,000 taels. Master, are you planning to sell it to him? Qingxiu smiled. Who would not take a profit of 19,000 taels? There are many mansions in Chang'an. We do not need that particular one. With 30,000 taels, we can consider properties in other locations. Old Ma cracked his knuckles and said grimly, Old Dao and I will guard the shop tonight. If any thieves come, we will kill them all. Qingxiu said nothing, his silence was consent. At this moment, at the Bureau of Clan Affairs, Duke Zan of the state, Do Gue, was kneeling on a low wooden platform. Beside him sat Eunuch Wang De. Eunuch Wang, please have some tea. We have many deeds, and I am not sure where the deed to the general's residence has been placed. Once my son returns, we will ask him. Wang De did not mind waiting and casually sipped tea with Do Gue, chatting idly. Before long, a figure rushed in, clearly trying to hide his panic, but it was obvious on Do Fengjia's face. Do Gue frowned. Fengjia, what took you so long? Eunuch Wang has been waiting. Where did you put the deed to the general's residence? Go fetch it. Manager Wang needs it urgently. Do Fengjia bowed respectfully. Greetings, Manager Wang, greetings, uncle. Uncle, I have something urgent to report. May we speak in private? Do Gue was taken aback. His expression shifted slightly but quickly returned to normal. He smiled at Wang De and said, Manager Wang, please forgive my son's poor manners. Might I trouble you to wait a bit longer while I speak to him in private? Wang De nodded politely. Do Gue and Do Fengjia entered the inner hall. Once inside, Do Fengjia dropped to his knees and cried out in panic, Father, you must save me. Please, no matter what, you must save me this time. Do Gue's face darkened. He gritted his teeth and hissed, You damned fool. Did you sell the deed to the general's residence? Do Fengjia lowered his head, his body trembling uncontrollably. He was consumed by fear. When Do Gue saw the state his son was in, he was so furious he kicked him to the ground and growled, You bastard, how many times have I told you to stay away from gambling dens, and yet you never listened? Tell me, how much did you sell it for? Who did you sell it to? Do Fengjia stammered, I sold it to a tea shopkeeper named Qingxiu, for 11,000 taels. What? Do Gue flew into a rage and started beating Do Fengjia with fists and kicks. You damned disgrace. The general's residence is worth 38,000 taels, and you sold it for 11,000? You prodigal son, are you trying to send me to an early grave? Do Fengjia squatted on the ground with his arms shielding his head and muttered, Father, stop hitting me. The residence is already sold. If you want to beat me, wait until we get the deed back. We cannot keep Manager Wang waiting too long, suspicion may arise. This time, Do Gue refrained from kicking him again. He snarled, This is the last time I clean up your mess. If you ever enter a gambling den again, I will cut off your hands myself. Come, let us return home to retrieve 11,000 taels and redeem the deed. Do Fengjia said bitterly, Father, we cannot redeem it anymore. I tried to get it back earlier. He said, he will only sell it back at market price, at least 30,000 taels. You unfilial bastard. Do Gue's eyes were bloodshot. His head buzzed, and his body trembled with rage. If Do Fengjia had not been his only son, he might have killed him then and there. Oh heavens, Do Gue cried out in despair. I toiled for half my life, saving and scraping to gather 30,000 taels, and you wasted it all in one day. Father, I am sorry, it was my fault. Do Gue roared, if saying sorry solved everything, what need would there be for law and justice? I should have left you in your mother's womb. If the truth came out, Do Fengjia would not only face execution, exile to a remote region was also likely. Still, he was his only son. Do Gue could not bear to watch him fall that far. When they came out, Do Gue's face was plastered with a forced apologetic smile as he bowed and said to Wang De, Manager Wang, my apologies. I just remembered the deed is stored at home. May I trouble you to wait a little longer while my son and I retrieve it? Wang De was clearly annoyed. Lord Duke, I am a busy man. If His Majesty wonders why I have not returned. Do Gue bowed lower. I beg Manager Wang's indulgence. Wang De waved his hand impatiently. Very well, make it quick. I shall wait here. Do Gue hurriedly urged Do Fengjia out of the Bureau of Clan Affairs. They each mounted a fast horse and galloped back to the residence. At the estate, servants were ordered to load silver onto a cart. When there was not enough silver, they filled 2 wagons with copper coins. Do Gue trembled with heartbreak as he watched. It felt like blood was being drained from his heart. Do Fengjia, like a wilted eggplant, did not dare make a sound, but the resentment in his eyes was hard to hide. Once everything was packed, the procession set out. It was half an hour later when they arrived at the Xinglong tea shop. Do Fengjie jumped down from his horse, his face dark as he said, "Boy, here is your 30,000 taels. Now give me the deed." Qingxiu frowned. "What is that tone? I am selling the deed, not begging you to buy it. I may be blind, but I can still hear the disrespect in your voice. What, if I refuse to sell, are you going to kill me?" "You talk too much," Do Fengjie growled. "We brought your money. What more do you want?" Qingxiu sneered. "I have changed my mind. I am not selling anymore." Do Fengjie was dumbfounded. Do Gue, who had been watching from the side, shoved Do Fengjie aside and barked, "You unfilial son, step aside." Knowing what was at stake, Do Gue approached Qingxiu with a forced smile and bowed. "Dear shopkeeper, my son was ignorant and offended you. But that deed is of great importance to our family. I humbly ask for your understanding." Qingxiu replied coolly, "I do not know you. Why should I do you a favor?" Do Gue's face twitched. Suppressing his rage, he bowed again. "I am Duke of Zan, Do Gue, father of Do Fengjie. My son was rude. He will apologize to you right now. Do Fengjie, get over here and apologize to the shopkeeper." Do Fengjie clenched his jaw so hard he nearly broke his teeth. Seeing the crowd around them grow, he had no choice but to lower his voice and say, "Shopkeeper Qing, I apologize for my earlier behavior. We brought the 30,000 taels. May I please have the deed?" Qingxiu nodded. "That is better. This is the proper attitude when asking a favor. Wife, bring him the deed." Su Xiaochun pulled the deed from her pouch and handed it over. Qingxiu then ordered, "Old Lu, Old Ma, load the silver onto our cart. If it does not all fit, go to the East Market and buy a few more wagons." Do Gue also ordered his men to stay and help the tea shop transport the silver, then he and Do Fengjie galloped back to the Bureau of Clan Affairs. Before leaving, Do Fengjie's eyes were filled with hatred as he glared at the tea shop, snorting angrily as he rode off. Old Ma frowned. "Master, that young man's expression was off. He may retaliate." Old Lu sighed. "Now we have a feud with the Duke. Who knows what tricks they may pull. Are you scared?" Old Ma scoffed. Old Lu shouted, "Scared? Damn you, Old Ma. Of all the words I know, fear is not one of them." Qingxiu interrupted them. "The moment Do Fengjie had us followed, the grudge was already formed. If we injure a servant, they send another. If we beat a lackey, they send a master. We might as well confront this directly." Su Xiaochun nodded. "You are right, husband. But, he is a duke." She looked anxious. Qingxiu smiled. "So what if he is a duke? He is still human, everyone has weaknesses. The ones to fear are not the powerful in plain sight, but the enemies lurking in the dark." Old Lu and Old Ma nodded repeatedly. Do Fengjie caught up with Do Gue and said with a dark expression, "Father, we were extorted. We cannot let this go." Do Gue snorted. "And whose fault is that?" Do Fengjie was left speechless. Do Gue continued coldly, "A mere tea shopkeeper, a lowly merchant, yet I had to bow and scrape just to get a deed back. When have I ever suffered such humiliation?" Do Fengjie gritted his teeth. "Father, tonight I will send someone to take care of him quietly, so no one will ever know." Do Gue pondered for a moment and shook his head. "Not now. If something happens tonight, we will be the prime suspects. We must wait." Back at the Bureau of Clan Affairs, Wang De was already pacing impatiently. When he saw the Do father and son return, he barely contained his anger. "Lord Duke, what took you so long? Nearly an hour has passed. Are you making a fool of me?" Do Gue quickly bowed and apologized. "Not at all, Manager Wang. I beg your forgiveness. The deeds were in disarray and hard to find. But fortunately, we have it now. Sorry to trouble you. I shall host a banquet another day to apologize. Please, forgive me." "Humph." Wang De snorted and turned to leave with his men. Do Gue hurried to catch up. "May I ask who His Majesty intends to gift the general's residence to? May I accompany you?" Wang De frowned. "You have legs. I cannot stop you. As for the recipient, you will know when you see him. You, hurry to Ani Ward." And so, Do Gue and Do Fengjie followed Wang De to Ani Ward. When they arrived at a place called Xinglong Tea Shop, and Wang De read out the imperial decree to a blind man, the expressions on the faces of Do Gue and Do Fengjie were absolutely priceless. What kind of absurd twist was this? Baron of Lantian County, Qingxiu, received the imperial decree. With eunuch Wang De's sharp, duck-like voice echoing through the shop, everyone inside the tea house stood up in unison. Though Qingxiu had no idea what was happening, he quickly stepped outside and respectfully clasped his hands to receive the decree. Do Gue and Do Fengjie stood with their mouths agape, utterly dumbfounded. The Emperor of Great Tang proclaims, "Baron Qingxiu of Lantian County, your bricks are affordable and of excellent quality, this pleases us greatly. As a special reward, we bestow upon you a residence in Qinglong Ward. Pft. The tea still in the mouths of everyone in the shop was instantly sprayed out. Su Xiaochun's delicate face turned bright red as she trembled uncontrollably. Even Yunyang's face flushed deeply. They wanted to laugh but did not dare. Clinging to each other, the two women shuddered where they stood, barely holding it in. Old Dao and Old Ma exchanged glances, both completely stunned. Wang De was not only Emperor Li Jing's personal eunuch, but also his personal bodyguard. Except during sleep, he almost never left the emperor's side. He was fully aware of all matters in the court, big and small. Especially after recently learning that this blind man before him was not only a disciple of an immortal, but also the Prince of Wei's teacher, and even a close friend of the retired emperor. Naturally, Wang De dared not be disrespectful, and his demeanor was extremely polite and deferential. He bowed deeply and said with a smile, "Baron Qing, please accept the decree." Qingxiu accepted the imperial edict with a twitch of his lips and responded, "Thank you, your majesty." He quickly turned and said, "Wife, bring 10 jin of our best jade guanyin tea for the grand eunuch." Su Xiaochun hurried out carrying a wooden barrel. Qingxiu shoved it into Wang De's arms and smiled. A small token of appreciation. It may not be valuable, but it carries deep sentiment. Wang De quickly waved his hands. "Oh no, Baron Qing, I cannot accept this. If His Majesty learns that I accepted your gift, he will never forgive me. Please, do not make things difficult for a humble eunuch like me." Qingxiu had no choice but to take the tea back. Wang De smiled and said, "My task here is done. I shall not disturb you further. Farewell. Grand eunuch, please walk slowly. I am blind and cannot see you off. I hope you do not take offense." "Not at all, not at all. I am not so petty," Wang De said cheerfully as he led the proclamation team back to the palace. Dou Fengjie stood some distance from the shop, dumbstruck and trembling with fury. Though Dou Gue was the more composed and experienced of the two, he was not much better off. He nearly had a stroke from rage. Inside the shop, everyone stared wide-eyed at each other. Eventually, even Qingxiu could not hold back. He let out a loud guffaw, slapping his thigh as he laughed heartily. Old Dao and Old Ma laughed even harder, unrestrained and wild. Su Xiaochun covered her mouth and chuckled, her eyes shimmering with tears of laughter. Yunyang could barely contain herself, her shoulders trembling from suppressed laughter, and even her chest heaved with emotion. The laughter inside the tea shop was an unbearable humiliation for the Dou father and son. Their eyes turned red with rage. At this moment of mounting fury, neither Dou Gue nor Dou Fengjie noticed Wang De's deferential tone. Together, they stormed over, their rage boiling. Dou Gue's expression was terrifying, his eyes bloodshot. He growled, "Well done, boy. Truly well done. You humiliated the Dou family so thoroughly. Very good." Dou Fengjie's face was like still water, but his jaw clenched tightly. "Qingxiu, you bastard, using such malicious tricks to trap us, are you not afraid of divine retribution?" Just moments ago, he had sold the residence to Qingxiu for 11,000 taels. Then this blind man sold it back for 30,000, pocketing a profit of 19,000 taels, and now the residence had returned to him by imperial decree. How could anyone not be furious? Qingxiu, annoyed, replied, "The residence was already returned to you. How was I to know His Majesty would bestow it upon me? What the fuck does that have to do with me? Fine. Very well. Baron of Lantian County, Qingxiu, I will remember this." Dou Gue turned in fury, mounted his horse, and rode off. "You fucking blind bastard, you just wait." Dou Fengjie shouted before mounting his horse and following. Qingxiu shrugged. "Well, that did it. The grudge is now set in stone. Master," Old Lu said, "the Dou family wields great power at court. Judging from their faces, they will not let this go easily. I think we should make some preparations." Qingxiu smiled faintly. "No need to worry. Dou Fengjie has secretly sold who knows how many imperial deeds. If it comes to light, Dou Gue will be charged with dereliction of duty, and Dou Fengjie at best will be exiled to Lingnan. Old Lu, tonight you and Old Ma take a few men and watch the area. If someone comes to steal tea, let them. The 100 or so jin of tea is not worth much. If they burn the shop down, let them, it is not even ours, just rented. After they finish stealing and burning, we catch the mastermind and turn him in." "And what about you and the lady?" Old Ma asked. Qingxiu replied, "My wife will return with me to Sanha village. Tomorrow, she and Yunyang can return to Chang'an and furnish the new home." After giving orders, Qingxiu took Su Xiaochun and Yunyang back to Sanha village, arriving just before noon. Su Xiaochun and Yunyang began preparing lunch. Though Su Xiaochun was now a baroness, part of the nobility, she had not forgotten her roots and remained humble. She still often helped Yunyang with cooking. Qingxiu, meanwhile, was tilling the soil of the small field in the courtyard. On 100 square meters of farmland, he had planted the future of Great Tang. High-yield hybrid rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, peanuts, chili peppers, corn. He had nearly roasted the potatoes and sweet potatoes out of desperation in the early days, but fortunately resisted, preserving the seeds for future crops. Now, everything had sprouted. Tomorrow, he could begin cultivating them in his own fields. In a few years, these crops would be enjoyed with abandon. In the kitchen, as Yunyang expertly stir-fried minced meat with eggplant, Su Xiaochun smiled and whispered, "Yunyang, I have been staying at inns in Chang'an often lately. Has my husband ever gotten touchy with you?" Yunyang shuddered, her pale face turning ghostly white. Her legs nearly gave out. She froze, unable to think or speak. She was never good with people, and this sudden question nearly made her heart leap out of her chest. Su Xiaochun giggled and covered her mouth. Her eyes curled like crescents. "Look at you, you are so frightened your face changed color. Even if you really had been intimate with him, would I beat you to death?" Yunyang was even more terrified. She knelt instantly, trembling. "Madam, I did not." Su Xiaochun lifted her up and frowned. "I know you did not, but you do not have to kneel. My husband hates it when people kneel. Do not do that again." Yunyang was close to tears, shaking as she stammered, I am sorry, madam. I did not mean to offend. I have not done anything with the master, but I." Her face flushed crimson. She could not bring herself to say more and was clearly overwhelmed. Outside, while tilling the soil, Qingxiu had heard every word. Even though they spoke quietly, his enhanced senses picked up everything clearly. What kind of pathetic mental fortitude is this? Qingxiu chuckled to himself. Su Xiaochun had not even accused her yet, and she confessed everything on her own. Su Xiaochun burst into laughter, flicked Yunyang on the forehead, and pouted, "You have been sneaking glances at my husband all morning. Did you think I did not notice? Your eyes are brimming with desire, you little flirt. When I first saw him, my eyes looked just like yours. Do you think you can fool me?" "I am sorry, madam," Yunyang said, blushing with tears in her eyes. "You do not need to drive me away. I will leave after lunch and never approach the master again." Su Xiaochun looked down at her belly and sighed, placing a hand gently on it. "Yunyang, I did not mean to drive you away. What I mean is, you should become my husband's concubine." "What?" Yunyang was completely stunned. When Su Xiaochun saw that Yunyang was stunned, she leaned close to her ear and whispered, "My monthly period has not come this month. It is already 7 or 8 days late. I am likely pregnant. In the coming months, I will not be able to serve my husband. A woman with child must not share a bed with her husband. 10 months of pregnancy, followed by childbirth and recovery, it will take at least a year. With how handsome our husband is, if he does not touch me for a whole year, will he not be utterly tortured? Now that we are a respectable household, when a well-born woman becomes pregnant, the mother-in-law must arrange for a concubine. Although you have been married once, you said yourself your husband never touched you apart from beating you. You are someone we know well. Your body is clean and untouched, you are still a virgin in all but name. Becoming a concubine to my husband would not be a loss for you." She pulled her aside and lowered her voice. "The reason our husband never touched you is that he feared upsetting me. He cares for me, so I should also consider his needs. He has no parents, and I have no mother-in-law. Finding a concubine for him will ultimately fall to me. Yunyang, you have a gentle nature and a kind disposition. I am satisfied with you. If you are willing, just nod your head. If not, I will not force you." Yunyang glanced at Su Xiaochun's belly, which showed no sign of swelling. At first, she was surprised, then nodded slightly, but hesitated. "But the master, he never touched me. There were only two occasions." Her face turned red, and she could not continue. Su Xiaochun squinted with a teasing smile. "Madame Zhang truly lives up to her background in the pleasure quarters. She even taught you such things. Since you already had some degree of skin-to-skin contact with him, becoming his concubine is unavoidable. I will speak with him. You just focus on cooking. Oh, and when you get a chance, teach me some of the techniques Madame Zhang taught you." "Ah?" Yunyang cried out, "The food in the pot is burning." The minced pork with eggplant had become a charred mess, black smoke curling from the pot. Yunyang quickly removed it from the stove, her face full of embarrassment. "Well, if it's burnt, just make another batch," Su Xiaochun said casually and left the kitchen. Meanwhile, Qingxiu, who had been tilling the garden soil, was both excited and anxious. He was excited because he had heard what Su Xiaochun said and knew she was very likely pregnant. And Su Xiaochun was not young. At 18 or 19, her body was fully mature. It was the ideal age for childbearing, both for health and recovery. But he was also worried about himself. Before traveling to this world, he had been well past 30. But after arriving here, not only did he gain supernatural abilities, his body had become youthful again, appearing no more than 20 years old. He feared his body might have mutated. What if the child that came out? He dared not continue the thought. His excitement and worry were soon replaced by a touch of frustration. He clearly remembered avoiding the dangerous days. Every time he slept with Su Xiaochun had been during the safe period. Yet she still got pregnant. Perhaps it was destiny. Su Xiaochun came over with a gentle smile, just about to share the joyful news with her husband, when a youthful voice rang out from outside. "Teacher, when did you return from Chang'an?" Li Tai ran into the courtyard with a delighted look. Upon seeing Su Xiaochun, he respectfully bowed. "Greetings, mistress." Su Xiaochun smiled softly. "Qingke, you certainly have good timing. Yunyang is cooking now. You will have a good meal today." Li Tai beamed and called over his shoulder, "Hurry up. Bring everything in." Qingxiu also noticed that outside the courtyard, more than a dozen guards were carrying 5 large water vats with thick wooden poles. He could not yet tell what was inside. When the guards had brought the vats in, Su Xiaochun asked curiously, "Qingke, what are these?" Qingke smiled sheepishly. "Mistress, last night master said he was craving chilled seafood. I brought this from from my family store." He almost slipped but quickly corrected himself. Su Xiaochun approached and exclaimed, "Wow, such big river prawns." Li Tai corrected her, "Mistress, these are sea prawns." Qingxiu also came closer. With his enhanced sense of sight from his supernatural perspective, he could clearly see inside the vats, and he was ecstatic. Good heavens! A whole vat of giant lobsters the size of a man's forearm, dozens of them. 10 or more large yellow croakers, over 100 abalones the size of a palm, hundreds of sea cucumbers thick as rolling pins, and even a full vat of octopuses. He suspected that Li Tai had emptied the entire imperial kitchen's seafood reserves. Feigning ignorance, Qingxiu asked, "Qingke, what is in these vats?" Li Tai listed them all one by one. Qingxiu said meaningfully, "Qingke, I heard footsteps outside the courtyard. Are they your guests?" He had already sensed that 2 young women were standing just beyond the wall. And he recognized them. They were the young lady and her maid who had once mistaken him for a rogue in the hibiscus garden. Could she be related to Li Tai? Li Tai exclaimed, "Nothing escapes teacher's ears. That is my elder sister. May I bring her in?" Qingxiu smiled. "Of course." Li Tai ran out and shortly returned with Li Lizhu and Yingtao. Li Lizhu appeared anxious and uneasy as she looked around with a hint of guilt in her eyes. Qingxiu said, "Wife, please make some tea for our guests." Su Xiaochun, intrigued, gave Li Lizhu a curious glance before heading to the kitchen to boil water. Per Qingxiu's instructions, there was always a kettle ready with hot water in the kitchen. Soon, she brought out a pot of tea. Smiling, Su Xiaochun invited her, "Since you are Qingxiu's sister, you are one of us. Please, have a seat." Qingxiu sat on a small stool and said, "I apologize. I cannot see and cannot properly host you. I hope you do not mind." Li Tai instructed the guards to move the vats into the kitchen. Li Lizhu hesitated for a long time before finally biting her lip and stepping forward. She bowed in the traditional feminine salute and said gently, "Master Qing, we met once in the hibiscus garden. I came to apologize for that misunderstanding." She folded her hands over her abdomen, bowed slightly, and said sincerely, "I am sorry, Master Qing. I was wrong that day. I did not know you were blind. The harm I caused has weighed heavily on me. I sincerely apologize." Since she was Li Tai's sister, Qingxiu had already guessed her identity. The eldest daughter of the second prince, Princess Xiangqing. He had not expected someone of such high status to come all this way to apologize so earnestly. He was just about to respond when Su Xiaochun's voice turned cold, "So it was you. The whip marks on my husband's back that day, were those from you?" A month ago, her husband had come home with welts on his shoulders. It had made her heart ache terribly. Now, seeing the culprit in person, how could she not be angry? If this woman were not her husband's student sister, she would have slapped her then and there. Qingxiu felt a wave of warmth. His wife Su Xiaochun was fiercely protective of him. Yingtao frowned and snapped, "How dare you speak to my lady like that?" Li Lizhu gently reprimanded her, "Yingtao, enough. We were in the wrong. It is right that we come to apologize." She turned to Su Xiaochun and said apologetically, "Madam Qing, the one who whipped Master Qing that day was not me, it was my younger cousin." Su Xiaochun's expression softened. She nodded and said, "Every grievance has a culprit. If it was not you, I will not hold it against you. But whether to forgive you, that is up to my husband." Li Lizhu lowered her voice. "My cousin has been filled with remorse since that day. She has not smiled in a month and has searched tirelessly for Master Qing. If she knew he was here, she would have come herself to apologize." Qingxiu nodded. "In that case, I forgive you. You are guests, please sit and enjoy some tea. Li Liju's face brightened. She bowed slightly and said, Thank you, Master Qing, for your magnanimity. She breathed a sigh of relief. The heavy burden on her heart was finally lifted, and she felt an immense sense of ease and clarity. Through his supernatural vision, Qingxiu observed Li Liju's appearance. He had to admit, Li Er and Zhangsun Wugo had truly powerful genes. Their sons were each more handsome than the last, and even their daughters were stunningly beautiful. Her face was extraordinary, eyebrows elegant without being drawn, lips naturally red without rouge, eyes clear and expressive, a delicately sculpted nose, and skin like congealed cream, whiter than frost, fairer than snow. Her noble aura was ethereal, her white robe purer than snow, like a spotless lotus rising from the mud. Li Liju did not sit immediately. Instead, she bowed once more to Qingxiu and expressed her gratitude. Thank you, Master, for teaching Qingke. Qingxiu chuckled. Since he has entered my tutelage, it is only right that I pass on all I know. There is no need for thanks. With that, he stood up and said, Qingke, see to your sister. I shall go prepare some seafood. As Qingxiu walked toward the kitchen, Li Liju asked Li Tai in a hushed voice, surprised, Qingke, does Master Qing cook for himself? Li Tai smiled and shook his head. Master Qing normally does not cook. Yunyang is the cook. But whenever he hosts esteemed guests, he does it himself. Last night, when grandfather came, Master Qing grilled lamb skewers personally. Li Liju's expression shifted. She asked quietly, Master Qing considers me an honored guest? Li Tai nodded. Of course. Otherwise, he would not personally cook. Li Liju showed a hint of excitement on her face. Her heart swelled with respect and astonishment toward Qingxiu. But in truth, Qingxiu just had a craving for seafood. Yunyang's culinary skills, though now equal to his, had never included seafood, so he decided to handle it himself. Li Liju asked curiously, Qingke, what are lamb skewers? Li Tai perked up, licked his lips, and said, lamb skewers are a delicacy created by Master. Chunks of lamb are threaded onto bamboo sticks, grilled over charcoal, and sprinkled with pepper and salt. The flavor is simply divine. He even wiped the corner of his mouth as he spoke. Even Princess Xiangqing could not help swallowing, mentally picturing the delicious taste. She, too, had nomadic ancestry and shared a strong preference for lamb and pepper, no less than Li Tai or Li Yuan. Now her heart was full of eager anticipation to try these skewers. After roughly half an hour, dish after fragrant and colorful dish was served. 6 steamed giant lobsters, a plate of chilled octopus, stir-fried sea cucumber with scallions, chicken soup with abalone, minced pork with eggplant, twice-cooked pork with celery, and chilled tofu skin salad. And, of course, a main dish, braised yellow croaker in soy sauce. Though Tang Dynasty cuisine lacked many spices, sauces were a mainstream flavoring method, and this sauce was similar to soy sauce. Li Tai kept swallowing his saliva but dared not touch his chopsticks. Li Liju was no better. The rich aroma wafted endlessly into her nose, far more enticing than anything served by imperial chefs in the palace. Even her maid Yingtao could not help salivating. But as a servant, she could only stand behind the princess, eyes wide and hands empty. Li Liju asked in surprise, Master Qing, why are these dishes prepared in this style? Tang cuisine knew only one method, stewing. Regardless of the ingredient, it was always stewed, failing to bring out the true flavor of the ingredients. Li Tai answered proudly, Sister, this is Master's special method, stir-frying. In the entire Tang dynasty, only his household knows of it. Qingxiu sat across from Li Liju. Su Xiaochun sat on his left, and Yunyang on his right. Li Liju glanced at Yunyang in surprise. Was she not the cook? Why was she sitting at the table? Su Xiaochun, seeing through her thoughts, said calmly, Yunyang is not an outsider. She is my husband's concubine. Li Liju exclaimed, a concubine cooks herself? To her, this was a breach of traditional etiquette, understandably shocking. Li Tai explained, Sister, there is no hierarchy in Master's home. Everyone eats together, that is what makes it a meal. Su Xiaochun smiled at Yingtao. You should sit, too. You are in our home, no need for formality. Join us. Yingtao hesitated, embarrassed. She had earlier spoken harshly, yet they bore no grudge and even invited her to dine. She felt unworthy. Still, she knew her place. She stepped back and said, I dare not. Qingxiu frowned. If I say sit, you sit. Why such unnecessary rules? Li Liju tugged on Yingtao's sleeve and whispered, just sit. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. This, very well. Yingtao sat cautiously beside her mistress. Qingxiu picked up his chopsticks and began eating. No need to stand on ceremony. Food is meant to be eaten. Thick-skinned people eat their fill, thin-skinned ones go hungry. When it comes to meals, one must have a thick skin. Li Lizhu smiled slightly and gave Qingxiu another look. She picked up a piece of tofu skin and put it in her mouth, without covering her face with her sleeve. This gesture drew everyone's attention. Her cheeks turned red, and she slowly lowered her arm. Although covering the face while eating was not a common civilian practice, it was a rule of the royal family. But now, she had set it aside. Gradually, Li Lizhu discovered that Qingxiu's household truly did not care for rules. Even during meals, everyone spoke and laughed, none of that silent dining etiquette. The whole family dined joyfully, chatting about pleasant things, sharing delicious food. Qingxiu occasionally sipped his homemade liquor. This was distilled from Sanla brew that Li Yuan had brought, a strong alcohol. Though harsher than modern liquor and likely to cause headaches, it had a kick of around 50 degrees and was far better than the original brew. Watching this warm and cheerful gathering, Li Lizhu's gaze revealed envy. She had dreamed of such moments, family sitting together, joyfully eating. It was a beautiful, rare happiness. The meal was so hearty that the table was cleared completely. Li Tai burped and slumped into his seat. Yunyang sensibly began collecting the dishes for washing. Even Princess Xiangqing had eaten her fill. Suddenly, she let out a small burp. Her face flushed with embarrassment, she wished she could disappear. Qingxiu could not help but smile. Li Lizhu saw him laugh and quickly lowered her head in embarrassment. Qingxiu teased, "A burp is no big deal. It is part of being human. Who in life has not burped, ground their teeth, or passed gas?" With that, he got up and returned to tending the garden. Li Lizhu secretly observed him. She pointed at the vegetable patch and whispered, "Qingke, Master Qing even grows vegetables?" Li Tai explained, "Those are not vegetables. Master says they are the future of the Tang dynasty, seeds that will feed the entire nation." Li Lizhu covered her mouth in shock and tried to ask more. But Li Tai did not know what those plants were, so she dropped the matter. After sitting a while and having tea, Li Lizhu approached Qingxiu from behind and said, "Master Qing, if you cannot see, how can you so precisely locate the seedlings?" Qingxiu replied casually, "Because I planted them myself. I simply remember the distances and can find them easily." Li Lizhu said in awe, "Master Qing, no wonder you are fit to teach Qingke. Your precision is remarkable. What exactly are you planting?" Qingxiu shook his head. "For now, I cannot say. You will know once they are harvested." Li Lizhu hesitated, then said apologetically, "Forgive me for asking too many questions." "Help me with something," Qingxiu said, pointing to a bucket. "Water these seedlings, just half a scoop each." Li Lizhu was stunned. It was the first time in her life that someone had ordered her to do manual labor. Yingtao widened her eyes in disbelief and was about to protest, but Li Lizhu silenced her with a glance. Then she began watering the newly sprouted plants, carefully and attentively. Ling Tai's small eyes gleamed slyly as he watched the harmonious scene before him, a flash of excitement gradually lighting up in his gaze. His sister and master, how harmonious they looked together, just like a married couple. Standing at the kitchen doorway, Su Xiaochun tilted her head while watching the scene, her lips pursed in a pout, her face full of jealousy. She had to admit that Princess Xiangqing was indeed breathtakingly beautiful. Even Su Xiaochun began to feel a hint of inferiority. Yunyang crept quietly up behind her and whispered softly, "Madam, could it be that master has taken a liking to her?" Su Xiaochun's jealousy grew even stronger. She immediately stormed forward, snatched the gourd ladle from Ling Lizhu's hands with a cold snort, and began watering the seedlings herself, her eyes full of hostility. Ling Lizhu was suddenly at a loss, unsure of what to do. Qingxiu quickly said, "Wife, you are pregnant. There is no need for you to do such rough work. Give her the ladle, she is free labor. Why waste it?" Ling Lizhu opened her mouth in shock, her eyes wide, she could hardly believe her ears. Su Xiaochun was equally astonished. "Husband, you already knew?" Qingxiu replied impatiently, "The way you and Yunyang were talking, anyone standing at the village gate could have heard you. Do you think your husband could not?" Su Xiaochun blushed, suddenly bashful. Then she realized what her husband meant. He was worried she might harm the fetus, so he did not want her to lift a finger. All her jealousy vanished in an instant. Smiling brightly, she took Ling Lizhu's hand, gently opened her fingers, and placed the ladle back in them. Ling Lizhu was utterly bewildered throughout. Yingtao fumed, "This is too much, how could you make my lady do such rough labor?" Qingxiu said with displeasure, "She ate at our table, what is wrong with helping us a little in return?" Yingtao was so angry she was panting. Ling Lizhu was a little upset as well, but she was clearly in the wrong. After all, one should not complain after accepting hospitality. She had no argument, so she could only swallow her frustration. Even so, when watering the seedlings, she was extra careful, afraid she might damage them. Though she did not know what kind of crop it was, Ling Tai had said it could be a new grain never before seen in the Tang Empire, so she treated it with particular care. After finishing in the garden, Ling Lizhu found an excuse to leave and return to Chang'an. But before leaving, she asked Qingxiu, Master Qing, will you attend the Midsummer Poetry Gathering at Furong Garden in 3 days? Midsummer Poetry Gathering? Qingxiu asked with a puzzled expression. Ling Lizhu smiled faintly. Furong Garden hosts 2 poetry gatherings every month, on the 1st and 15th days, organized by Confucian scholars. Many talented poets from Chang'an are invited. In addition, there are 4 grand seasonal poetry gatherings each year, hosted by great Confucian masters: the Spring Equinox Gathering at the start of spring, the Midsummer Gathering at the end of spring, the Autumn Equinox Gathering at the beginning of fall, and the Winter Solstice Gathering in winter. The day after tomorrow is the 15th of the 4th month. If all goes as planned, the Midsummer Gathering should be held on schedule. Not only will most of Chang'an's literati attend, but also many renowned scholars, including grand academicians from the Hongwen Institute. There will even be talents and scholars from Jiangnan and Shandong. These grand gatherings are always magnificent in scale, and the winner of the poetry contest receives generous rewards. For a man of such exceptional talent as Master Qing, not attending the Midsummer Gathering would be truly regrettable. Qingxiu shook his head. I do not know if I will attend. I am not particularly interested in poetry gatherings. I see. Ling Lizhu nodded. In that case, I shall not disturb you any further. Farewell, Master Qing. With that, she gave Ling Tai a few parting words, then departed with Yingtao for Chang'an. Later, Qingxiu taught Ling Tai for the entire afternoon, covering just one multiplication mnemonic. Ling Tai treated it like a precious treasure and spent the whole afternoon reciting it with great joy. That night, Qingxiu bathed and went to bed early. Su Xiaochun, having finished her own bath, nestled into his arms. Qingxiu toyed with her slightly rounded belly. Su Xiaochun, breathless from his teasing, blushed and gently pushed his hand away, her eyes resentful. Husband, I am pregnant, and you are still teasing me like this. You are too wicked. Qingxiu calmly placed his hand back. Just playing. Not doing anything real. Su Xiaochun sighed. Husband, since you heard my conversation with Yunyang at noon, what are your thoughts? What thoughts? Qingxiu feigned ignorance. Su Xiaochun sat up, the pale glow of her body flickering before Qingxiu's eyes. She said with irritation, what else could it be? Taking a concubine, of course. You already heard everything, and even let Yunyang do that for you. If you do not take her as a concubine, that would not be right, would it? Qingxiu sighed. Yunyang is a good girl, but she is too shy and gentle. If we make a big deal out of taking her as a concubine, the village gossip might drive her insane. I am not concerned, but can she, a young woman, withstand that kind of public pressure? Su Xiaochun hesitated. You are right. Then, let us keep it secret for now. Yunyang does not care about status. It is clear she truly likes you. Today, she kept sneaking glances at you the entire morning, she could not even hide it. You have already done that to her, you have to take responsibility. Once the house in Chang'an is ready, we can move there and close the doors to the outside world. No one will gossip about Yunyang anymore. Qingxiu nodded. Discuss it with her. If she agrees, I have no objection. Su Xiaochun sneered. I knew you would say that. Humph, filthy man. She turned her back and lay down. The night passed without incident. Early the next morning, old Dao returned on horseback. Seeing Qingxiu, he reported, Master, the shop in Chang'an was safe last night. Nothing happened. Do Gue and Do Fengjie, father and son, made no move. This surprised Qingxiu somewhat. He nodded. All right. Escort Madame and Yunyang to Chang'an, and help them purchase anything needed for the new home. I am going to visit Carpenter Zhang. Old Dao obeyed and began preparing the carriage. He led a team of guards to escort Su Xiaochun and Yunyang to Chang'an. Qingxiu, meanwhile, went to Carpenter Zhang's house and handed over some furniture blueprints. Recently, Qingxiu had not only taught Wang Tiniu some blacksmithing skills and knowledge, but had also passed knowledge to Carpenter Zhang. He even designed a simple lathe for Zhang, which produced woodwork smoother and more refined than even the imperial craftsman's. Both Wang Tiniu and Carpenter Zhang were deeply grateful to the young lord. After leaving Zhang's house, Qingxiu visited Wang Tiniu again and gave him another drawing. Brother Tiniu, can you forge this? Wang Tiniu studied the drawing, frowning. It is rather complex, but I can manage. It will take a few days though. What is this? Does the lord need it urgently? Qingxiu explained, this is a plow. It is much faster than a traditional cedar. Just 2 people can plow over 10 mu in a day. It will not only save time but also improve efficiency. Most importantly, it tills the soil, making it looser and more fertile, which increases crop survival and yield. Conservatively, it could raise output by 50% per mu. Wang Tinio's eyes lit up. He exclaimed excitedly, "Heavens, this is genius! Lord, this plow is a marvel of craftsmanship. With it, farming will become twice as effective with half the effort." Tang-era farming methods were incredibly primitive, just using a hoe to break the surface, scattering seeds, and praying for water. Survival rates were barely 50%. With this plow, tilling depth was several times greater than with a hoe. It left furrows for planting, and with such a tool, it would be difficult not to boost crop yields. Sadly, such an excellent tool had already existed since the Han Dynasty, but the Ministry of Works, full of useless drunkards, had never implemented it, wasting its potential. However, the design Qingxiu gave Wang Tinyu was an improved version, more efficient and easier to use than traditional plows. There was no morning court session today, so Emperor Li Ji enjoyed a rare moment of leisure. He had stayed overnight in the Empress's residence, Lijing Hall. At dawn, he lifted the quilt and got out of bed. The beauty lying beside him, with skin as fair as snow, had delicate features like those painted in a portrait, a graceful figure with astonishing proportions, a face of peerless beauty, an air of noble elegance, and a presence that could outshine all others in the realm. Empress Zhongsun was, after all, only in her 30s. In later generations, it would be common for women of this age to remain unmarried, but she had already borne several children. The eldest, Crown Prince Li Chengqian, was already 9 years old. Breakfast had been prepared early. After being tested for poison by the palace attendants, it was placed on the imperial table. Li Ji frowned at the millet porridge before him and asked, "Why is there no seafood porridge? What is the imperial kitchen even doing?" Wang De whispered, "Your Majesty, this is all the imperial kitchen delivered. Even I found it strange. But the attendant who brought the meal said that the seafood sent the day before yesterday had all been taken away by His Highness Prince Wei." The dignified Empress Zhongsun looked slightly puzzled. "Prince Qingke took all the seafood?" Li Ji's expression turned displeased. "That Qingke, what a preposterous thing to do. If he wanted seafood, he could have simply asked the cooks to prepare it for him. Why take all of it? Wang De, summon the chief steward of the imperial kitchen. I want to question him personally." "Yes, Your Majesty." Soon, Chief Steward Lu of the imperial kitchen arrived, trembling with fear, and entered Lijing Hall. Without a word, he dropped to his knees upon seeing Li Ji. Li Ji asked sternly, "I hear that Prince Wei took all the seafood delivered the day before yesterday?" Chief Steward Lu began to sob. "Your Majesty, His Highness came to the kitchen with a group of guards. I did not dare to stop him. I tried, but I could not stop him no matter what." Li Ji asked with a furrowed brow, "Where did he take the seafood?" Chief Steward Lu continued, "I do not know, Your Majesty. I only remember him saying he was sending it to his teacher." Li Ji's expression froze at those words, the corner of his mouth twitching slightly. Empress Zhongsun frowned. "Qingke is becoming increasingly unruly. Do not worry, Your Majesty, I will certainly teach him a proper lesson." But Li Ji smiled and shook his head. "No need. Let him be. Guanyin, Qingke has taken a master among the common people, a man of great skill. I have seen the knowledge this man has taught Qingke. Every subject is without precedent in our times." "Is that so?" Zhang Xuan's expression lit up. "What exactly has he taught Qingke?" Li Ji replied with a smile, "This man, Qingxiu, is indeed quite capable." He then told Empress Zhongsun about the 3-character classic and the moral lessons for the worldly, and decided not to pursue the matter of the seafood. Just yesterday in court, with one imperial decree, Li Ji had ordered the Pity for the Farmer, 3-character classic, and moral lessons to be included in the national curriculum. Within a single day, these 3 texts had spread throughout the streets and alleys of Chang'an. In particular, the poem Pity for the Farmer had become a hit upon release. Although it was written by a famously corrupt official, no one could deny how incredibly popular it became. Not only was it easy to recite, it also resonated with the common people, its meaning clear and simple. Many citizens discussed it with great enthusiasm. In just one day, Pity for the Farmer had become a nursery rhyme sung everywhere in the city. Within the palace, at the Imperial College. This was the most prestigious academy for scholars from humble backgrounds. Not only did princes and princesses study here, but also children of high-ranking officials and nobles. A sedan chair, carried by several guards, entered the Imperial College. Seated in the sedan was a frail elderly man, apparently over 80 years old. This was Master Li Gang, a highly esteemed Confucian scholar in the Tang Empire. His status was so revered that even if he were to strike Emperor Li Ji, the emperor would not dare retaliate. This was not only due to his age, but also his unparalleled scholarship and the elevated position of Confucianism. Indeed, Li Ji himself had set the standard for evaluating status. Because Li Gang had difficulty walking, the emperor had arranged for a dedicated escort to take him to and from his duties. After stepping down from the sedan, Li Gang, leaning on his cane, entered a classroom with a smile on his face. The noisy chatter of the children immediately fell silent. Li Liju stood and said to her younger siblings and cousins, "Be quiet. The teacher has arrived." She then led the royal children in bowing. "Greetings, master." Li Gang smiled and waved his hand. Sit, all of you. Today, I shall not teach the 4 books or the 5 classics, nor will I teach calligraphy or law. Today, I will teach you the 3 character classic, the moral lessons, and pity for the farmer. None of these works were known to Li Liju, they had only begun circulating the previous day. Li Gang unrolled a scroll and began, "Let us begin with Pity for the Farmer." A Tang poem, written by Baron Qingxiu of Lantian County, hoeing grain at midday, sweat dripping onto the soil beneath. Who realizes, upon the plate, each grain comes at great cost. Well written indeed. Li Liju widened her beautiful eyes in astonishment. She asked in surprise, "Master, you mean this poem was written by Baron Qingxiu of Lantian County?" Li Gang nodded and smiled. Not just this poem. He also authored the 3 character classic and the moral lessons. That baron is indeed a man of great learning, producing such smooth, accessible, and educational texts. I am ashamed by comparison. He then recited, "The blade of a treasured sword comes from countless sharpenings, the fragrance of plum blossoms emerges only after enduring the bitter cold." As each line left Li Gang's lips, Li Liju's face reflected increasing shock. By the end, she was thoroughly amazed. No wonder even her clever younger brother, Li Tai, had chosen him as a teacher. Such talent, it was otherworldly. Due to his advanced age, Li Gang taught no more than 2 hours a day, resting the remainder. After the lesson, he returned to his sedan and departed. Li Liju packed up and left the city by carriage, heading toward the Zhangsun residence. Upon receiving word of the princess's visit, Zhangsun Wuji came to the gate to welcome her. "Greetings, your highness." Li Liju returned the gesture. "Uncle Zhangsun, is Pingting at home?" "She is. She has not left her chambers all morning." Zhangsun Wuji's expression was somewhat helpless. He already knew the full story. His daughter had misunderstood a blind man at Furong Garden, which led to her dramatic change in personality, from lively and direct to withdrawn and silent. But no matter how he searched the city of Chang'an, he could not find the blind man who had caused this change in his daughter. This left Zhangsun Wuji feeling utterly powerless. Li Liju entered Zhangsun Pingting's room and found that she had grown thin, her spirit clearly diminished. Even though she tried to smile upon seeing her, she only managed a weak sister. But Li Liju knew, the guilt over not apologizing to the blind man was a knot in her heart. Li Liju smiled and said, "Pingting, I found that blind man." "Oh? What did you say?" Zhangsun Pingting's eyes lit up with excitement. You found him? Where is he? Who is he? Sister Liju, please take me to him. I must apologize." Overcome with emotion, tears began to stream down her cheeks. Li Liju explained the whole story, and Zhangsun Pingting wept with joy. "This is wonderful. I must go to Sanha village immediately and apologize to him." Li Liju frowned. "Pingting, it is already late. By the time you reach Sanha village, it will be dark. Why not wait a day? He may even attend tomorrow's midsummer poetry gathering." Zhangsun Pingting asked in surprise, "Are you certain he will attend the gathering at Furong Garden?" Li Liju shook her head. "I am not certain. I only told him about it. Whether he will attend or not, I do not know." Zhangsun Pingting paused, then said with determination, "Then I shall go to Furong Garden tomorrow. If he does not attend, I will go to Sanha village and apologize in person." The two reached an agreement. The weather in April was pleasant, perfect for an outing in the countryside. Since her standard of living improved and after 2 months of traveling for business, Su Xiaochun had transformed from a simple village girl into a radiant and elegant beauty. Her entire aura had changed dramatically, and her face now bore the confidence that had not been there before. Wearing a pink gown, Su Xiaochun said to Qingxiu, "Husband, I am illiterate when it comes to poetry. Listening to others recite poems is like hearing a foreign language. I shall not go to Furong Garden to join the excitement. There are still many items missing in our new residence in Chang'an. I plan to go out with Yunyang to make the final purchases today. That should just about do it." Qingxiu nodded. "If you are not going, then I shall go alone." As Su Xiaochun left the house, she said to Taizhu, "My husband cannot see. Take more household guards with you this time. Do not let what happened last time happen again." He did not even hear the poem before he got whipped. Taizhu patted his chest and vowed solemnly, "Madam, do not worry. With us around, if our master is harmed again, we will offer our lives in atonement." With Tiezhu's assurance, Su Xiaochun and Yunyang boarded the carriage and headed for Chang'an. Qingxiu also tidied up briefly and got into a carriage bound for Furong Garden. By the time he arrived, the garden was already packed. Everywhere were elegantly dressed young gentlemen and noble ladies in colorful gowns, creating a lively and splendid scene. Qingxiu even noticed several peasant women from the countryside pushing small carts and setting up stalls, selling cold noodles, fried noodles, rujiamo, meat sandwiches, pine needle water. Pine needle water was a small business Qingxiu had started for poor families in his village. It was made by adding sugar and water to pine needles in a sealed container and fermenting it for 3 to 5 days. The result was a fizzy drink with a taste somewhat like Sprite. Whether it was cold noodles, fried noodles, rujiamo, milk tea, or pine needle water, all the stalls were surrounded by crowds. Many came out of curiosity, but many genuinely loved the snacks. Dressed in a black long robe, Qingxiu appeared tall and refined. A lock of hair draped romantically over his cheek. If it were not for the black silk eye mask, he would have looked every bit the ideal noble young man. Passers-by noticed his cane and realized he was blind. Many showed expressions of pity. Even some young noble ladies, stirred by romantic thoughts, were drawn to his looks and demeanor. But once they discovered he was blind, their expressions turned regretful. Erguzi found a spot near the pavilion steps where they all sat down. Through his divine perspective, Qingxiu took in the scenery of Furong Garden. Compared to its future reconstruction, there were not many differences, the beauty remained largely the same. Several decorated boats were moored by the pavilions on Sujiang Pond. The pavilions were built over the water, open on all sides, bright and airy, and filled with people. But those inside the pavilions were of a very different status from those outside. Grand Scholar Kong has arrived. Someone shouted, and the crowd stirred. People began murmuring. Not only Grand Scholar Kong, Old Master Yen is here too. Do you not know? This year's Midsummer Poetry Gathering is hosted by Old Master Yen Silu himself. I wonder what prize awaits the one who wins the title of Poetry Laureate? I know Grand Scholar Kongingda, but who is this Old Master Yen Silu? What? You do not know Old Master Yen? Are you even from Chang'an? I am from the south. That explains it. Old Master Yen is extraordinary. A descendant of the renowned Yen Jitue, he is a Confucian scholar of great renown. Though Kongingda was over 50, he was still considered a junior in front of Yen Silu, who was now in his 70s and second in prestige in Chang'an only to the great scholarly gang. With Kongingda accompanying him, Yen Silu entered the pavilion. Energetic and with a kindly face, Yen Silu's voice rang out like a great bell. This year's Midsummer Poetry Gathering is upon us. I thank all the talented scholars for gracing Furong Garden with your presence and joining this humble event hosted by me. Master Yen, what is the prize for the Poetry Laureate this year? Yes, please tell us. Yen Silu stroked his beard and smiled. Whoever wins the title of Poetry Laureate at this Midsummer Gathering shall marry my legitimate daughter and receive my personal recommendation for an official post in the court, a guaranteed path to a career in government. The moment his words fell, the entire garden erupted in excitement. What? Not only marry his daughter, but also gain a recommendation to enter government service. Old Master Yen never ceases to amaze. When he speaks, he stuns the world. I wonder how old the Yen family's daughter is? And what she looks like. Who cares how she looks? Marrying a Yen daughter is enough to bring glory to one's family. You want to nitpick her appearance? By the pavilion steps, Taizhu exclaimed, "My lord, the Poetry Laureate comes with a wife this time." Xuanzi, who had studied in a private school for a few years, said, "Ignorant. Shallow. Taizhu, all you see is that the winner gets a wife. But the Yen family is a literary and Confucian aristocracy. Back in the day, even high-ranking ministers took pride in marrying into the Yen family. Although not among the top-ranking clans, their scholarly lineage is highly prestigious." Qingxiu nodded in agreement. Women of the most elite clans were status symbols in the Tang dynasty. Marrying one was considered an honor even for nobles and high officials, and even the royal family shared this ambition. Though the Yen daughter was not quite of that rank, she came close. Taizhu sneered, "You think you are all that just because you studied a few years? Why are you not writing poems then?" Xuanzi shook his head. "I know my limitations. I am not cut out for poetry." Erguzi grinned at Qingxiu and said, "My lord, with your poetic talent, why not win the title today and dazzle us all?" Qingxiu smiled and shook his head. "I have no interest in marrying the Yen family's daughter." Xuanzi said, "Even if you win, you can refuse the marriage. They cannot force it upon you." "Exactly. With your talent, not winning would be a real pity. Not far away, a young man in white sneered, You? A blind man, aiming to be the poetry laureate? If the theme is flowers, scenery, or landscapes, how will you write anything when you cannot see? Qingxiu frowned and carefully observed the man from above through divine vision. Erguzi jumped up, drew his tang saber, and snarled, You little bastard. Say one more word of disrespect to my lord and I will cut you down where you stand. Who the fuck do you think you are? Insulting my master like that, want to see me feed your tongue to the dogs? Bastard, are you tired of living? Taizhu and Xuanzi also glared fiercely. The young man turned pale and trembled, saying, Gentlemen resolve issues with words, not violence. Everything I said was the truth. Are you really going to kill me in broad daylight? Do not believe us? I will chop you up right now. Erguzi charged forward, causing the man's legs to give out. He collapsed to the ground. Qingxiu said, Ergo, calm down. Ignore such snobs. Only then did the three put away their weapons, cursing under their breath. This scene made many young noblemen nearby frown. So crude. A bunch of thugs. Bullying others, what skill is that? Said a refined voice. The man on the ground brightened and quickly saluted the new arrival. So it is young Master Fang. A pleasure to meet you. Fang glanced at Qingxiu with disdain. A blind man boasting about winning the poetry laureate? Laughable. Erguzi flushed with rage, hand on his sword. The man in white mocked, What, you dare pull a blade on young Master Fang? He is the son of Chancellor Fang Xianling, a middle-ranking general in the Right Martial Guard, a proper official. If you attack him, that is treason. Erguzi, Xuanzi, and Taizhu were all startled. Qingxiu said calmly, Put your swords away. We are law-abiding people, we do not commit treason. Then he turned with a broad smile and said, So it is the famous cuckold king, young Master Fang Ei. My apologies. Though he had no idea what cuckold king meant, Fang Ei took it as flattery and smiled smugly. Since you know your place, I shall let it go. He walked toward the pavilion and added, Today's poetry laureate, consider it mine. Rip. Taizhu gasped, inhaling sharply. My lord, he is actually the cuckold king. Erguzi said in a deep voice, Cuckold king? I have never heard of any noble title in our great Tang bearing such a name. Xuanzi scratched his head in confusion. I heard my father say that Fang Xianling was only a duke. How is it that his son is now a prince? Qingxiu's mouth twitched. He sighed, Ignorance is terrifying. Cuckold king is not an actual noble title but a derogatory nickname. It means his wife is fooling around with other men, and he has been made to wear a green hat. Pfft. Ha 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 ha. Erguzi and the others burst into laughter, drawing the attention and frowns of many around them. Even Yen Silu, up in the pavilion, showed a hint of displeasure. To make such a ruckus at a solemn event like the Midsummer Poetry Gathering, after this gathering ends, I shall advise His Majesty that those lacking virtue should not be permitted to participate. Kong Yingda's expression also darkened. He cleared his throat and called down, Silence. This is the Grand Midsummer Poetry Gathering, not a vegetable market. If anyone continues to make noise, they will be asked to leave Furong Garden. The crowd immediately quieted. Qingxiu said in a low voice, You three, rein it in. The three men shrank back their necks and immediately quieted down. Kong Yingda stroked his beard and nodded. Then he declared in a loud voice, Next, I shall announce the rules for today's poetry gathering. There are 8 judges within the pavilion. You must each submit a written poem on the subject of plum blossoms. Only those who pass the preliminary selection may proceed to the next round. You have half an hour to submit your poem. If you fail to do so within the allotted time, you will have to wait until the autumn equinox poetry gathering for another chance at the laureateship. As the gong sounded, the time began. Countless gentlemen and ladies swarmed into the pavilion to compose their poems. That young man in white sneered, What now? Stuck, are you? You have to write your poem, but as a blind man, you cannot even see where the judges are. Best stop making a fool of yourself, ha ha. With that, he squeezed into the crowd. Erguzi clenched his teeth in fury, raising his saber as he searched for the man, but he had already vanished into the crowd. Taizhu scowled and said, My lord, are you really going to endure such humiliation? You may be able to swallow this insult, but we cannot. Qingxiu remained composed and stood slowly. Xuanzi, you have studied and can write. Lead me to the poetry gathering. I will dictate, you will write. Xuanzi lit up with joy and nodded at once. Rest assured, my lord. Though I cannot read many words, my handwriting is not ugly. I will not bring shame upon you. The two lined up in the queue. Inside the pavilion, 3 beautiful young women were glancing about, searching the crowd. Suddenly, Yingtao's face lit up. She grabbed Li Liju's arm and pointed excitedly. Miss, there he is. At Master Qingxiu's place. Upon hearing this, Li Lizhu and Chang Sun Pingting looked over and indeed saw Qingxiu in the line. Chang Sun Pingting grew excited and nervous. What should I do? Must I apologize in front of so many people? Ying Tao said, Miss Pingting, why not let me invite him into the pavilion? You can apologize in private. But Chang Sun Pingting hesitated. He is in line, clearly preparing to enter the gathering. If we pull him away now, and he misses his turn, would that not be wrong? I cannot make him lose his chance just for my apology. Li Lizhu smiled lightly. That is easy. We will ask Master Kong for a favor and let him skip the line. Chang Sun Pingting's eyes lit up, and she nodded in agreement. Soon, the two approached Grand Scholar Kong Yingda of the Hongwen Academy and obtained permission for a shortcut. Then they made their way toward Qingxiu. Qingxiu noticed them approaching but pretended not to, maintaining the role of a blind man. Master Qingxiu, Li Lizhu greeted joyfully. Many turned to look. Upon seeing such a stunning woman referring to a blind man as Master Qingxiu, their eyes filled with envy. Qingxiu smiled and replied, Ah, it is Miss Li. Li Lizhu smiled serenely. I knew you would come to the gathering. We searched everywhere for you. Qingxiu asked, What matter brings Miss Li to me? Chang Sun Pingting looked hesitant, glancing around before lowering her head. Li Lizhu spoke softly. Might I have a word with you in private? Qingxiu considered it and shook his head. No. I must participate in the poetry gathering. Li Lizhu paused for a moment but did not get angry. She leaned closer and whispered, I can arrange for Master Qingxiu to skip the line. Qingxiu nodded without hesitation. Very well. Let us go. Li Lizhu smiled with lips pressed gently, stunning every nearby onlooker into a daze. Master Qingxiu, you are quite the pragmatist. Come with us. Qingxiu followed the ladies to a nearly deserted area by the judges' tables. Now, Miss Li, what is it you wish to say to me? Li Lizhu looked to Chang Sun Pingting. Without hesitation, Chang Sun Pingting bowed. Master Qingxiu, I wronged you last time at Furong Garden. I have felt guilty ever since and did not know where to find you. When Sister Lizhu said she had news of you, I came today specifically to apologize. I hope you can forgive the offense and excuse the rudeness of a foolish girl. She watched Qingxiu anxiously. Qingxiu gave a faint smile. So that is why you came. Since you have shown such sincerity, and I am not a petty man, let us put the matter behind us. Chang Sun Pingting beamed. Thank you, Master Qingxiu, for your magnanimity. If that is all, I shall proceed with the poetry gathering. If we delay, I may be too late. Li Lizhu asked, Poems must be written. As you cannot see, how will you write it? No matter. I brought someone who can write. Qingxiu pointed at Xuanzi. Xuanzi had already been stunned by the girl's beauty. His face turned red like a monkey's bottom. Scratching his head, he stammered, I went to private school for 2 years. I can write a few words, but not all of them. The girls giggled at his awkwardness. Xuanzi grew even more flustered, unsure what to do with his hands. Qingxiu sighed inwardly. This boy is a hopeless daydreamer. A girl glances his way, and he imagines she is in love with him. Li Lizhu composed herself and said, Master Qingxiu, he does not even know all the characters. If he miswrites your poem, others may laugh. Though I am unworthy, may I serve as your scribe? Qingxiu considered and nodded in agreement. Please follow me, Master Qingxiu. Li Lizhu and Chang Sun Pingting escorted Qingxiu straight to the judges. Showing the fish token given by Kong Yingda, they were allowed through unimpeded. After a brief conversation, Li Lizhu picked up a brush, positioned herself at the desk, and turned to ask, Master Qingxiu, I am ready. The topic is Ode to Plum Blossoms. Please dictate your poem. Without hesitation, Qingxiu recited. Several plum branches by the corner bloom alone in the cold. From afar one knows it is not snow, for its subtle fragrance comes through. This plum blossom poem by Wang Engshi, though not the greatest in history, was more than enough to pass the preliminary round. As a proper time traveler, Qingxiu not only met the standards of forged genealogy but also possessed the shamelessness of a true plagiarist. Although this plum blossom poem might not be described as stunning, it nonetheless elicited praise from Li Lizhu. What a fine poem. Sir, you truly compose exquisite verse. Qingxiu gave a dry cough. He felt something slightly off about her wording. Even the official judge could not help but praise it. Excellent poetry, far surpasses those composed by the previous noble gentleman by an immeasurable degree. Qingxiu asked, has it passed the selection? The official judge nodded repeatedly. It has. Such a fine poem will surely draw unceasing admiration even from Master Kong and Master Yen. Would this young lord please assign a double title to the piece? By double title, he meant both a title for the poem and the name of the author. Before Qingxiu needed to say anything, Li Lizhu had already written the characters for Qingxiu beneath the poem. Roughly half an hour later, Kongingda stood on high and announced in a loud voice, "Today's poetry gathering has yielded 39 selected entries. Those who were not selected, please exit the pavilion. Those who were selected, proceed to the main hall to compete in poetic talent." The unselected participants, faces full of gloom and regret, beat their chests as they departed. Meanwhile, those who had been selected entered the main pavilion brimming with excitement and anticipation. The once crowded area soon quieted noticeably. The unselected lingered outside, watching with envy. Kongingda continued, "The second round of poetic competition shall now begin. The topic remains the plum blossom, but the poem must not contain the character, plum. You have the time it takes to burn 2 sticks of incense. Submit your work within the limit to proceed to the next round. Anyone who exceeds the time will be eliminated." Kongingda's announcement was like a bucket of cold water poured over the crowd, immediately causing a commotion. What? A plum blossom poem without the word plum? That is far too difficult. How can one compose such a poem without that word? Is this not asking the impossible? Just because you cannot do it does not mean others cannot. This year's midsummer poetry gathering topic is truly harsh. Looks like I have no chance. Many scholars racked their brains, most of them frustrated and sighing deeply. Only a few individuals showed calm confidence. After hearing the topic, Qingxiu displayed a quiet, knowing smile. Beside him, Li Lizhu asked curiously, "Master Qingxiu, you seem quite confident. Do you already have a new poem in mind?" Qingxiu nodded. "Let us go. Time to write the poem." Changsun Pingting asked softly, Master Qingxiu, may I be the one to write it this time?" Qingxiu shook his head. "I only compose the poem. Whoever transcribes it for me makes no difference. You may decide among yourselves." Li Lizhu did not insist and graciously yielded the writing role to Changsun Pingting. At the same time, in a pleasure barge near the pavilion, Li Er squinted at the distant pavilion and suddenly frowned. "Fujiji, look, is that Lizhu and Pingting?" Changsun Wuji looked and was surprised. "Indeed, it is Her Highness and my daughter. Strange, who is that man with the black ribbon across his face standing beside them?" Fang Xianling, seated at the nearby table, also looked on with interest. "Prime Minister, your daughter appears to be writing on behalf of that blind man." Changsun Wuji's expression turned sour. He said gravely, "That girl, I have been too lenient in my parenting. She is out there cavorting with men." Ahem. Li Er cleared his throat and said displeased, "Fujiji, are you suggesting my daughter is also cavorting with men?" Changsun Wuji quickly responded, "Your Majesty, that is not what I meant. I only meant, why is Pingting accompanied by a blind man?" He added with concern, "Should we not send someone to investigate that blind man's identity? He may be up to no good." Li Er shook his head. "It is fine. In broad daylight, even if he were a scoundrel, he would not dare act recklessly. Moreover, Lizhu is accompanied by guards and Yingtao. No ordinary ruffian would dare approach. Better to observe for now." Inside the pavilion, Changsun Pingting held the brush and leaned over the desk. Looking up, she said, "Master Qingxiu, I am ready." Qingxiu dictated. "In ice and snow, this being thrives. Apart from peaches and plums, it alone survives. Suddenly one night, its fragrance takes flight, and spreads spring across the world, pure and bright." Upon hearing it, even Changsun Pingting's hand trembled, and her face betrayed astonishment. Li Lizhu was visibly moved as well. "What a beautiful poem. Master Qingxiu, if this were saved for the final round, you might have taken the crown. Could you not have waited to reveal this masterpiece?" Qingxiu smiled lightly. "It is only a poem. The next round may have an entirely new topic." "True enough. Wonderful." Changsun Pingting looked at the verses on the paper in admiration. "No wonder you are Master Qingxiu. My father adores poetry. If he were to hear this, I cannot imagine how delighted he would be." As Qingxiu recited the poem, many of the nearby noble sons were visibly shocked. Heavens, was that poem truly composed by a blind man? I am not even equal to a blind man? Wait, is that the daughter of the Changsun family? She is writing for a blind man? Who is this blind man who can command the personal attention of Lady Changsun to write his poem? How can he write about plum blossoms if he cannot see? He must have copied it from someone. Changsun Pingting turned icy. She stormed over and snapped, "What do you fools know? Master Qingxiu may be blind, but that does not mean he was always so. Could he not have composed the poem based on what he saw before losing his sight? Why are you all so bitter? What if he is blind? You still cannot compare to him. A mere poem about plum blossoms without using the word, and you are all flustered? Master Qingxiu composed Pity the Farmer. Of course he can craft even better poetry. Humph, insult him again and I shall throw you into the Tsujiang pond to feed the fish." With that, she huffed and stomped back. Facing Qingxiu, her cheeks flushed red as she said hurriedly, Master Qingxiu, they insulted you, so I spoke up. I am not an unruly or unreasonable person, really. If you do not believe me, ask Sister Liju. I am not like that. Qingxiu smiled and nodded. I believe you. Only then did she breathe a sigh of relief, sticking out her tongue in embarrassment, secretly resolving to temper her stubborn temper in the future. She suddenly recalled her mother's words, with your temper, what man would like you? Be careful or you will never marry. This thought made her glance nervously at Qingxiu again. Seeing him composed and serene, she felt reassured. Not far away, a scholar exclaimed, What? Pity the Farmer? He is the author of Pity the Farmer, Baron Qingxiu of Lantian County? Ah, the Baron of Lantian. My idol. I love his admonitions for the wise. So it is Master Qingxiu, who wrote Pity the Farmer. No wonder he could write such a masterful plum blossom poem without using the word. A blushing scholar ran up, clasped his hands, and said, Master Qingxiu, I adore your admonitions for the wise, especially the line, the sword's edge comes from honing, the plum blossom's fragrance from bitter cold. May I be your student? The scholar looked at Qingxiu with hopeful eyes. Qingxiu was taken aback. How do you know about admonitions for the wise? The scholar, excited, replied, Not just me, everyone in Chang'an knows it. Just 2 days ago, His Majesty ordered that admonitions for the wise, 3-character classic, and Pity the Farmer be included in the national primary curriculum. All private schools are now required to teach your works alongside the 4 books and 5 classics. Qingxiu gave a bitter smile. He had suspected it must have been Li Tai or Li Yuan who brought those works before the court, leading to the current situation. Before long, more people discovered Qingxiu's identity. At least a dozen scholars came rushing to ask to become his disciples. But Qingxiu politely declined them all. Teaching and nurturing students was a calling for others. As for him, he simply wished to earn money, take more concubines, and ensure the flourishing of the Qing family line. Inside the tower pavilion, Kong Yingda, visibly excited, brought a sheet of rice paper before Yen Silu and exclaimed, Master Yen, look at this poem, White Plum, it is truly outstanding. This is undeniably a masterpiece worthy of lasting renown through the ages. Yen Silu received the rice paper, squinted to read it, then suddenly widened his eyes and examined it thoroughly. Finally, he slapped the table and burst out laughing, Excellent. A true poet, this is indeed the work of a great talent. Apart from peaches and plums, it alone survives the dust of spring, spreads spring across the world, pure and bright, this poem is worthy of claiming the poetry crown. What a pity, Yen Silu sighed with some regret. It is just that the handwriting is too elegant and delicate, lacking any strength. Could it be written by a woman? Kong Yingda pointed to the name at the bottom of the paper, stunned. Master Yen, look, it is Qingxiu. It was written by him. A gleam of sharpness flashed in Yen Silu's usually clouded eyes. Could it be the same Qingxiu who authored Pity the Farmer, the 3-character classic, and Admonitions for the Wise? Master Yen, to compose such a fine poem as White Plum, it surely must be that same Qingxiu. Quick, invite him into the pavilion. I wish to verify his identity personally. Kong Yingda frowned slightly. Master Yen, perhaps not. He came to compete in the Midsummer Poetry Gathering, clearly aiming for the poetry crown. If we abruptly invite him inside now, many scholars may think we are giving him special treatment, which would not reflect well. Yen Silu nodded in agreement. You are right, Chong Yuan. Let us wait until the event concludes, and then invite him for a conversation. Kong Yingda asked, Master Yen, what will the next topic be? Yen Silu pondered a moment and asked, How many passed the second round? 45. Yen Silu frowned. Only 45? That is quite few. Kong Yingda smiled. It is not so few, considering how difficult your topic was. A plum blossom poem without using the word plum, even the senior scholars at the Academy of Literature would struggle with such a challenge. Indeed, that is true. After a moment of thought, Yen Silu smiled faintly and said, The first round weeded out those trying to pass by trickery. The second round tested their poetic talent. For the third round, we should test their lofty aspirations and depth of thought. Let the topic be lofty aspirations, with a time limit of 1 incense stick. Having received the theme, Kong Yingda went to the window and called out to those who passed the previous round, There are 45 who passed. I will now read out the list. Those not named must immediately leave the pavilion. He read through the list of names. Those whose names were called were thrilled. The rest left the long pavilion with heads hung low. The long pavilion, built over Tsujiang Pool, had been packed moments ago. Now, only a few dozen remained, and the atmosphere grew calm. Kong Yingdao once more declared loudly, the third round topic is lofty aspirations. The time limit is the burning of one incense stick. Submit your poem before time runs out to proceed to the next round. Those who fail will be eliminated. Because of Qingxiu's performance in the first 2 rounds, both Li Lizhu and Chang Sun Pingting were filled with admiration. But now that the crowd had thinned, Li Lizhu grew concerned. She pulled Chang Sun Pingting aside and said in a low voice, Pingting, you take over the writing for Master Qingxiu from here. My identity could become a problem. Chang Sun Pingting nodded. Sister, I understand. I will not let Master Qingxiu learn who you really are. Li Lizhu approached and said, Master Qingxiu, I have matters to attend to and can no longer write for you. I ask your understanding. Qingxiu nodded. In that case, let us not take up any more of Miss Li's time. Li Lizhu gave a graceful smile and quietly withdrew. Only Chang Sun Pingting and Qingxiu remained. Chang Sun Pingting asked, Master, do you have a poem in mind? Lofty aspirations. Qingxiu murmured, deep in thought. Humph. What good are lofty aspirations for a blind man? A sneering voice said nearby. The young man in white from earlier came forward with mockery on his face. Even if you win the poetry crown, do you think Master Yan would let his daughter marry a blind man? He followed behind Fang Yayai, who passed by Qingxiu with a slight smirk. I did not expect a blind man like you to pass the second round. Still, the crown is mine today, you do not stand a chance. Qingxiu's expression darkened, his hand moving to the hilt of his cane sword. One stroke was all it would take to end that white-clad youth's life. But he reconsidered. Killing someone in broad daylight would stir massive public outrage, no matter if even Li Yuan himself came forward. Instead, it was Chang Sun Pingting whose chest heaved in anger. She snapped, Who do you think you are, to insult Master Qingxiu like this? And you, Fang Yayai, son of a noble family, associating with such foul-mouthed lowlifes? You shame your lineage. Fang Yayai sneered, Who I associate with is none of your concern. For a noble daughter of the right deputy prime minister's family to consort privately with a blind man, if word reaches the court, your father's face will be dragged through the mud. You, shameless. Chang Sun Pingting trembled, her face pale and eyes filling with tears. Qingxiu said quietly, Miss Chang Sun, perhaps it is best if you do not write for me. Let us avoid giving others something to gossip about. Chang Sun Pingting's eyes were wet, but her expression was defiant. Master Qingxiu, I have already decided to write for you, and I will not go back on my word. I am not afraid of idle talk. To write for someone of your extraordinary talent is my honor. Very well, Qingxiu nodded. Then heed my words, do not respond to the bites of a mad dog. If you stoop to bite back, you become a mad dog too. Ignore them. Chang Sun Pingting took a deep breath, forced back her tears, and suddenly smiled. Master, you are right. I refuse to be a mad dog. Who are you calling a mad dog? Fang Yayai's face darkened, his eyes full of malice as he glared at Qingxiu. Qingxiu acted as if he had not heard. He scratched his ear and frowned. Did you hear that, Pingting? Was that a mad dog barking just now? Yes, I heard it too. Definitely a mad dog barking. Fang Yayai's mouth twitched. You looking to die? An official nearby shouted, Are you writing or not? Half the incense stick is already burned. Any longer and you will be disqualified. Fang Yayai snorted coldly. Blind man, just wait and see. He left, trailed smugly by the white-robed youth who continued to fan the flames. Qingxiu raised his blind cane and struck the stone steps. A few small stones broke loose. He silently picked one up and tossed it. Ah, the white-robed youth suddenly collapsed to the ground, clutching his ankle in agony. Who the fuck threw that rock at me? He wailed in pain, his face contorted. The stone had embedded itself in his ankle, shattering the bone. He glared at Qingxiu. It was you, was it not? You threw that rock. Qingxiu frowned. You can eat whatever you like, but you cannot speak recklessly. I am blind. Do you really think I could aim a stone at you? The young man stood up, limping, and growled, It had to be you, you blind bastard. This is not over. Then he hobbled away. Chang Sun Pingting looked at Qingxiu in amazement. Master Qingxiu, you are incredible. You cannot see, how did you throw it so precisely? Lucky guess, he replied casually. Then he beckoned to Erguzi in the distance. The man leapt nimbly into the pavilion. Yes, my lord. Follow that white-clothed youth. Something is off about him. Without another word, Erguzi tailed him. The white-robed youth left Furong Garden and stopped beside a carriage in an alley. He endured the pain and bowed. Master, the matter is taken care of. That blind man and Fang Yayai are now at odds. Understood. Go find a doctor for your injury. A 10-tael silver ingot was tossed from the carriage, and then it rolled off down the street. Inside the carriage, Do Fengjie praised, Father, you are truly wise. We did not even need to lift a finger, and others were already dealing with him. Do Gue replied with a stern face, if you unfilial son, were not drinking, whoring, gambling, and wasting away, would I have resorted to such disgraceful means? Yes, father. It was my fault. I swear never to gamble again. But still, Do Fengjie grinned, I must say, you are brilliant, father. You figured out Fang Yai's temperament so precisely. To know others and to know oneself is the key to never losing a battle. You must remember to act cautiously from now on. If you can achieve something without acting yourself, then never place yourself in danger. I understand, father. Return home. The carriage rolled slowly out of the ward. In the distance, Erguzi followed openly and leisurely behind the carriage, so brazenly that he did not draw any attention. If he had been sneaking around, he likely would have been discovered by the hidden guards. One must admit, Erguzi did have a bit of cunning. When the carriage entered the Do residence, Erguzi turned to leave and followed the trail of blood to locate a medical shop. He easily found the white-clad young man being treated at a clinic. In Furong Garden. The examiner, seeing Qingxiu deep in thought, began to grow anxious. Master Qingxiu, time is running out. 2/3 of the incense has burned. Have you composed your poem on lofty aspirations? It was not that Qingxiu had no ideas, it was that he had too many. Especially poems on lofty ambitions, there were several just from Li He alone. Finally, he chose one of Li He's poems, reluctantly discarding the others. Chang Sun Pingting, holding the brush delicately, asked nervously, Master Qingxiu, have you not decided yet? I have, Qingxiu began to recite. Why should a man not bear a golden hook? To reclaim the 16 prefectures of Yan and Yun? Please, ascend the Lingyan pavilion for a while. And see whose name is worthy of a marquis estate. The examiner froze momentarily, then flushed with excitement and his eyes lit up. Indeed, this poem expresses lofty aspirations. If all sons of the Tang dynasty had such ambition as Master Qingxiu, the recovery of our northern territories would be within reach. Chang Sun Pingting's eyes glowed with admiration. This poem not only expressed high aspirations, it was deeply stirring. Just hearing it stirred one's blood. If you are a man, bear the golden hook, cross the Qilian mountains, and recover the 16 prefectures of Yan and Yun. Does it pass? Qingxiu asked. The examiner replied, yes, absolutely. But it is not up to me alone. It must be approved by Master Yan and Master Kong. Please wait while I submit this. If it passes, you will be notified. The examiner carried a stack of submissions up to the tower. Suddenly, Chang Sun Pingting asked, Master Qingxiu, if your eyes were not blind, if you could see, would you really, as in the poem, set out to recover the lost lands of the Tang, to take back the 16 prefectures? Qingxiu thought for a moment, then nodded. This made Chang Sun Pingting's gaze burn with passion, though a touch of sorrow appeared in her eyes. If he were not blind, surely he would gallop across the plains, reclaiming lost lands, just as in the poem? Alas, he was blind, and that future seemed forever out of reach. Thinking of this, Chang Sun Pingting felt a pang of sorrow for the blind man before her. She heard the lofty aspirations in the poem, but also sensed the deep helplessness embedded within it. Such grand ambition, and yet plagued by the torment of blindness. He must suffer greatly inside, she thought. She looked at Qingxiu, simply gazing at him. Before she knew it, her eyes had begun to moisten. From an outside perspective, Qingxiu found it odd. Why was she crying all of a sudden? Just then, a slightly excited voice echoed from within the tower. Kong Yingda announced, the third round is over. The 6 who have passed are Qingxiu, Fang Yai, Lu Chuanxiu, Wang Pingshan, Yang Shuiyong, and Meng Fangran. Will the 6 finalists please enter the tower? Chang Sun Pingting exclaimed joyfully, Master, you have passed. Come, let us go to the tower. Qingxiu tapped his blind cane and followed her. As they approached the steps, Chang Sun Pingting hesitated for a moment, then blushed slightly and gently supported Qingxiu's arm. In a soft voice, she said, Master, there are steps here, please be careful. Qingxiu smiled faintly. Thank you. You are welcome. Her face flushed even more. When they reached the tower, Fang Yai said with some surprise, I did not expect you to make it. So your name is Qingxiu? What, do you want to remember my name so you can take revenge later? Qingxiu replied coldly. Fang Yai frowned and snorted. Humph. If I wanted revenge, I would not need to do it behind someone's back. Just then, Kong Yingda and Yen Silu approached. Yen Silu asked excitedly, which of you is Qingxiu? Qingxiu tapped his cane and replied, I am. Yen Silu stared at him in astonishment. You are Qingxiu? You are blind? Qingxiu responded, can a blind man not compete in a poetry contest? Yen Silu hesitated to speak. Kong Yingda was also shocked. To think the author of Pity the Farmer is blind. Can a blind man not compete in a poetry contest? Qingxiu asked again. Yes, of course he can. But Yen Silu's face showed disappointment. He clearly did not wish for his legitimate granddaughter to marry a blind man. His frustration was understandable. Kong Yingda, seeing Yen Silu's thoughts, sighed gently. He could not help but feel a bit of pity for Qingxiu. Fang Yai stepped forward and asked, Master Yen, Master Kong, what is the next topic? Yen Silu said, I have read each of your poems. They all display great ambition, especially Qingxiu's. It inspires all Tang people. I am very pleased. The next topic must not only show high aspirations, but also a determined resolve to serve the nation. You have 1 incense stick's time. This final round will decide the victor. Resolve to serve the country? Qingxiu frowned. Instantly, he thought of Yu Fei's Man Jiang Hong. But at this moment, that might not be the most fitting. Begin. Yen Silu returned to his seat. He glanced at Qingxiu and sighed slightly. Kong Yingdao whispered, Master Yen, please do not show favoritism. Yen Silu looked conflicted and said softly, Chong Yuan, it is not favoritism. It is just that, he is blind. My granddaughter, proud of her own vast talent, could never favor a blind man. Moreover, the Yen family is a house of Confucian scholars, a noble lineage. If word spread that my legitimate granddaughter married a blind man, would we not become a laughingstock? Chong Yuan, I ask for your understanding. Master Yen, this, sigh. Kong Yingdao was visibly torn. He had always been a man of integrity, yet was now being asked to show bias. It made him deeply uncomfortable. Just then, a voice full of murderous energy rang out. By drunken light, I polish my sword by lamplight. Dreaming I charge through trumpet-blaring camps. My meat sizzles under the banners of the 8 banners. The strings resound with sounds from beyond the frontier. On the battlefield, autumn reviews our troops. Kong Yingdao's eyes widened, his whole body breaking out in goosebumps, chilled to the bone. Even Yen Silu stared at the blind man in shock. Kong Yingda said hoarsely, Master Yen, this poem, it carries killing intent. Yen Silu's expression was complex. He shook his head. No, this is not a poem. It is a lyric. Though the first 2 lines are 6 characters each and perfectly paired, and the next 2 are 7 and also match well, why add a final line with 8 characters? Why is the structure arranged like this? Even the other finalists were confused. What kind of poem is this? Could it be a new style UFU? Though a bit disorderly, it undeniably stirs the soul. This poetic style is unheard of, yet it paints a vivid scene, as if one were truly on the battlefield. Then, the cold and solemn voice rose again. My steed runs as fast as the black Lu. My bow twangs like thunder. To complete the emperor's work in this life. To earn a name in life and after death. Pity this crippled sight I now bear. The tower fell into absolute silence. Everyone had a different expression. Some were envious, some astonished that poetry could be composed this way, and others shaken by the poem's martial energy. Because he was blind and had never seen battle, Qingxiu replaced gazing at the sword with wiping the sword, dreamed of returning with dreamed of entering, and pity the white-haired man with pity the blinded one. But one thing was undeniable, the atmosphere of the poem was utterly captivating. I concede, said a young scholar with a self-aware expression and a hint of dejection, shaking his head. Another scholar accompanying him also shook his head and gave a wry smile. Master Qingxiu's poem possesses such profound artistic conception, I am ashamed to compare. I cannot compose anything better than this, so I, too, concede. If you are both giving up, then I might as well concede as well. I am certainly not arrogant enough to think I can rival Master Qingxiu's poetic talent. His Pity the Farmer and White Plum Blossom are already masterpieces among Tang poetry. The 3rd round had barely begun, and already 3 contestants had conceded. The other 2, aside from Fang Yai, braced themselves and composed 2 poems, but when compared to the Song of the Breaking of the Battle Formation by Xin Qiji, the difference was as stark as heaven and earth, there was no comparison at all. As for Fang Yai, he too forced himself to write a poem. But no sooner had he finished than he, in a fit of frustration, crumpled the rice paper and looked at Qingxiu with eyes full of jealousy. He could not understand how a blind man could possess such poetic brilliance. Chang Sunpingting's delicate face was slightly flushed with excitement, and the admiration in her eyes could no longer be concealed. She gazed at Qingxiu's face, her voice trembling slightly. Master Qingxiu, this poem of yours will surely win you the title of poetry champion today. Qingxiu shook his head and replied in a low voice, not necessarily. What I composed is not a poem, it is a lyric. During the Sui and Tang periods, such compositions were called long-short meter lyrics. When accompanied by music, they formed what later became regulated musical verse, UFU. Whether it is a poem or a lyric, in my eyes, master, you are already the poetry champion, Changsun Pingting said. Her cheeks flushed red again in slight embarrassment. What young maiden does not yearn for romance? In this moment, she was simply a girl in the throes of infatuation. Especially at her age, just entering adolescence, every 16-year-old girl harbors dreams of a princely figure. In ancient times, talent could win a woman's admiration, just as in modern times wealth could. Master Yen, Scholar Kong, may we ask who has won the title of poetry champion? Could the two esteemed gentlemen please announce the name? Though they already knew they would not win, two participants still could not let go of their hopes. In the distance, Kong Yingda and Yen Silu were whispering furiously, their faces red from the heated argument, nearly on the verge of blows. Kong Yingda declared, "This song of the breaking of the battle formation deserves to be today's champion." Yen Silu rebutted, "Nonsense. That is a lyric in irregular meter. It is not even a poem." Kong Yingda said, "Master Yen, I know you do not want your legitimate granddaughter to marry a blind man. But Master Qingxiu's poetic talent is unmatched. If you insist on this decision, people will accuse you of bias." Yen Silu said, "Young Kong, let me be willful this once. My granddaughter is proud and aloof. How could she favor a blind man? My mind is made up. You need not say more." Yen Silu stood and announced, "Today's poetry champion is Meng Fangran's Vast Heavens. Allow me to recite it. 10 years of cold nights by the window, all hardships endured. My ambition high and path resolute. If one day my name appears on the golden list, I vow to govern with integrity and serve the common people." This poem not only expresses lofty aspirations, but its structure is balanced and its heart is with the people, truly worthy of the poetry champion title. Kong Yingda slumped into his seat, his head lowered in disappointment. When he looked at Qingxiu, his eyes were full of regret. When Yen Silu's announcement came, everyone was stunned. Even Meng Fangran, the one declared champion, looked disbelieving. His face flushed red. He looked toward Qingxiu, his gaze complex. The poem he submitted had been written with great reluctance, and compared to the blind man's song of the breaking of the battle formation, it was utterly inferior. The difference was obvious to anyone. But Master Yen had awarded him the championship. That, indeed, was puzzling. "What?" Changsun Pingting exclaimed, her face full of disbelief. "How could it be him? It should have been Master Qingxiu's song of the breaking of the battle formation. Master Yen, Scholar Kong, did you make a mistake?" Kong Yingda pretended not to hear and turned his back, hands clasped behind him. Yen Silu glanced back and explained with perfect logic, "Meng Fangran's work is a proper 7-character poem. What Master Qingxiu composed was not a poem, it was a lyric in long-short meter." Fang Yai said with a smile, "Master Yen is quite right. I believe he is merely resentful for not winning the championship." Changsun Pingting wanted to argue further. But Qingxiu gave a calm smile and said, "Right and wrong, good and evil, are not for one man to decide. Let posterity judge. As for the so-called poetry champion, Miss Changsun, do not take it seriously, just treat it as a joke." "What? You compare the poetry champion to a joke?" Yen Silu's face darkened. Qingxiu ignored the old man and smiled at Changsun Pingting. "Miss Pingting, thank you for transcribing for me today. If fate allows, we shall meet again. Farewell." Changsun Pingting, fuming, cried out, "Now I see it clearly, this so-called poetry gathering is nothing but a joke. Master Qingxiu clearly composed the best piece and yet was treated so unjustly. They speak of fairness, speak of Confucian virtue, what a lie. This is nothing but discrimination against the blind. From now on, I want nothing to do with such gatherings." She caught up with Qingxiu and said, "Master, there are stairs ahead. Allow me to assist you." Qingxiu stepped aside and said calmly, "Miss Pingting, you are unmarried. Please refrain from physical contact with me, lest some small-minded individuals gossip. Farewell." Fang Yai's nose nearly twisted with anger. That was clearly a jab at him, even if no names were mentioned. Qingxiu clasped his hands in farewell, picked up the blind cane resting at his waist, and tapped his way out. Though he left, a loud, sonorous voice echoed outside. "One day, the great rock shall rise with the wind, soaring 90,000 miles high, laughing at the heavens as I stride forth. How could I be a weed among men? Ha 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 ha." A mere poetry title meant nothing to him. He had already made his point. Changsun Pingting gazed at his solitary figure, feeling a strange emptiness and sorrow in her heart. At that moment, several men were about to enter the tower when they heard those bold and unrestrained lines of verse and stopped in their tracks. It was Emperor Li Er, Changsun Wuji, and Fang Xianling, just coming down from a boat, trailed by a group of guards. Li Er looked at the receding figure with awe. What a poem! One day, the great rock shall rise with the wind, soaring 90,000 miles high. Laughing at the heavens as I stride forth, how could I be a weed among men? I have not heard such bold and unrestrained poetry in a long time. This man is a true talent. Changsun Wuji quietly memorized the poem, his expression stirred. Your Majesty, this poem is truly remarkable. This man's spirit is so heroic, far beyond mine. With such a work, he surely deserved the title of poetry champion. Fang Xianling nodded. Indeed heroic. This poem deserves the title. Father. As Changsun Pingting was about to leave, she saw Changsun Wuji and the others and greeted them respectfully. She then bowed to Emperor Li'er. Pingting greets Your Majesty, and greets Uncle Fang. Li'er and Fang Xianling smiled and nodded. Changsun Wuji, however, scowled and said sternly, Pingting, how could a young woman like you associate with a blind man in public? If word spreads, it will bring disgrace to our family. Father, I did not, he is. Changsun Wuji barked, I do not care who he is. From now on, avoid such dubious individuals. Now go home immediately. Changsun Pingting wanted to protest but held back. She pouted and left without looking back. She had already wanted to leave this place that made her nauseous. Now that she was going, she walked with vigor. In her heart, she muttered repeatedly, what a ridiculous poetry contest. It was a joke from beginning to end. She vowed never to attend another goddamn poetry gathering again. One day, the great rock shall rise with the wind. Are we the weeds among men? Kongingda could not help but exclaim aloud. What magnificent poetry! So bold and unrestrained. In my eyes, Master Qingxiu is the rightful poetry champion today. He cast a glance at Yen Silu, his expression now tinged with visible distaste and displeasure. Yen Silu seemed as though he wanted to speak, but in the end, he merely lowered his gaze with a somber expression and shook his head. Unexpectedly, the man declared poetry champion, Meng Fangran, suddenly stepped forward, cupped his hands, and said, Master Yen, Scholar Kong, what virtue or talent do I possess to deserve the title of poetry champion? Compared with Master Qingxiu's timeless masterpiece, my own poem is mere empty lamentation, lacking any true artistic conception. I implore you, sirs, do not shame me with this honor. Please withdraw the title. Yen Silu responded with irritation, are you certain you wish to relinquish the poetry champion title? Do you know how many scholars across the realm dream of marrying a legitimate daughter of the Yen family? To wed into the Yen clan is to gain access to our vast literary troves and to ensure a future filled with promise. Meng Fangran, though tempted, also knew that should he foolishly cling to the title, he would be met with scorn and ridicule from the community of scholars. With Qingxiu's brilliance shining before him, he had the self-awareness to recognize that his poem could not surpass Qingxiu's. It was only a matter of time before Qingxiu's masterwork spread throughout the Tang Empire. Meng Fangran bowed again and said, I know my limits. In the presence of a gem like Master Qingxiu, I am ashamed of my own inadequacy. No matter the perspective, his works outshine mine entirely. If I were to falsely claim the honor, I would be the laughingstock of scholars everywhere. I do not deserve the title of poetry champion. I beg the two sirs not to make this public, for I truly feel unworthy. His reasoning was well articulated and difficult to refute. Yen Silu, at a loss for words, waved his hand in frustration. Suddenly, a hearty voice rang out from outside, Master Yen, Scholar Kong, has today's poetry champion been decided yet? With that voice, Li'er and two officials of state stepped into the pavilion. Upon seeing Li'er arrive, Kongingda and Yen Silu immediately rose to greet him. We pay respects to Your Majesty. Li'er hastened forward and helped Yen Silu up with a laugh. Master Yen, you are of advanced age. There is no need to greet me so formally. You are an elder, such formalities from you would shame this junior. The Yen family was a grand Confucian house, and Li'er naturally accorded its head some deference. Kongingda, standing to the side, slightly pursed his lips and muttered to himself, what kind of elder is he, really? Only today did Kongingda finally see the true face of this so-called grand scholar, and he was filled with quiet dismay. Li'er smiled and said, just now, I heard a blind man recite an extraordinary poem outside. You must have heard it too. Kongingda nodded, yes, Your Majesty. It was indeed excellent, bold, even a bit unruly, but full of unmistakable meaning. Li'er laughed, with such poetic talent, then the blind man must be today's poetry champion, yes? Kongingda turned his face away, pretending to study the mural inside the pavilion. Yen Silu suddenly broke into a sweat and shook his head. No, it was another person. Oh? Li'er's eyes sparkled. Then someone else surpassed even that blind man? Yen Silu began to fumble for words. Kongingda smiled and said, Master Yen, the poetry champion was your decision. His Majesty inquires, why are you now at a loss for words? Yen Silu frowned, then forced a smile. Indeed, it was another. Meng Fangran, wait, where is he? He searched around but saw no sign of Meng Fangran. Kong Ingda chuckled. Meng Fangran felt unworthy of the title and left after declining the honor. Yen Silu's mouth twitched. Li Er and his two companions looked at each other in disbelief. The poetry champion, declined? They were all completely baffled. Kong Ingda picked up 2 sheets of rice paper from the table, handed them to Li Er with a smile, and said, Meng Fangran wrote Vast Heavens, while the blind man wrote Song of the Breaking of the Battle Formation. Master Yen declared that the latter, being a lyric in irregular meter, was not a proper poem, and so awarded the title to Vast Heavens. Li Er frowned upon reading Vast Heavens. It is indeed not bad, but compared to One Day, the great rock shall rise with the wind, it falls far short. If you ask me, that line is the true mark of a poetry champion. Then he looked at Song of the Breaking of the Battle Formation and read aloud with wide eyes. By lamplight in drunken haze, I polish my sword. In dreams, I hear the war horns in camp. 800 soldiers roast meat under banners. 50 strings resound with border songs. In autumn, troops are mustered on the field. My steed gallops like a black whirlwind. My bow strikes like a thunderbolt. For the sake of the emperor, the world's burdens are shouldered. Fame in life and death is one. Yet pity this pair of blinded eyes. Chang Sun Wuji and Fang Xianling craned their necks to read. Li Er exclaimed, Master Yen, with such heroic writing, how could this not be the poetry champion? Yen Silu replied stiffly, Your Majesty, this is a poetry contest. Song of the Breaking of the Battle Formation is irregular in form, it does not conform to poetic standards. Li Er's mouth twitched, he was momentarily speechless. Then he looked again at the signature, Qingxiu. Li Er was stunned. So were Changsun Wuji and Fang Xianling. The 3 of them gasped in unison, Qingxiu? Li Er hurriedly handed the poem to Changsun Wuji and rushed outside to find the blind man, but he was already gone. He turned back urgently. Quickly, Kong Ingda! Bring me all the poems Master Qingxiu submitted for the contest. Soon, the poem White Plum Blossom was produced. After reading it, Li Er slapped his thigh in excitement. Excellent! Absolutely excellent! Scattered across the vast land, bringing spring to all beneath the heavens, what a line! And this one, why do men not take up the golden hook and reclaim the 16 prefectures of Yan and Yun? Li Er grew visibly animated. Finishing all of them, Li Er's face darkened. Waving the pages in his hand, he exclaimed, Look! Now this is poetry. Master Yen, Master Kong, Master Qingxiu's White Plum Blossom did not win the poetry champion title? Are you blind? Kong Ingda, arms folded, smiled calmly. Your Majesty, the champion was not my decision, it was Master Yan's. Ask him. Yen Silu's face turned a shade of embarrassment. When questioned by the emperor, he gave a forced smile. Your Majesty, White Plum Blossom was entered in the 2nd round. Song of the Breaking of the Battle Formation was in the final. And that piece cannot be called a poem. Li Er's hand trembled in rage. Even if it is not a poem, it is a masterpiece that will be remembered through the ages. Look again at that vast heavens, what utter trash! Master Yen, have you gone senile? Yen Silu's face flushed bright red, his body trembling with anger and shame. Li Er had always treated him with deference, but now he was openly scolding him like a fool. This was deeply humiliating. Kong Ingda took the opportunity to twist the knife. He said coolly, Master Yen said, he is blind. My granddaughter would never look favorably upon a blind man. So we discussed choosing another champion. I dared not oppose Master Yen and followed his decision. Li Er looked furious but restrained himself. He knew that the Yen family had immense prestige, and Yen Silu was a senior figure of high standing. If he provoked him into a medical crisis, scholars across the nation would blame him. He forced down his rage. Still, his tone grew thick with sarcasm. Wonderful. A grand family of Confucian virtue, upheld by the conduct of gentlemen, and guided by ancestral maxims, yet they cannot tolerate a blind man. Marvelous. Then he gathered Qingxiu's poems and said with a smile, Since Master Yen cannot appreciate these unsightly works, I shall take them myself. He turned and left, sneering. The Yen family's legitimate daughter is of such noble birth, more noble than my own daughter. Even the teacher of Prince Wei is beneath her? I wonder, then, who in this world could possibly be worthy of her? As they departed, Yen Silu stood wide-eyed in shock. He abruptly rose to his feet. He is Prince Wei's teacher? The old man gasped, his breath caught, and he collapsed unconscious. Had Kong Ingda not caught him quickly, he might have suffered a concussion from the fall. Fang Yai caught up with Fang Xianling and asked in a hushed, astonished tone, Father, is this Master Qing truly His Highness Prince Wei's teacher? Although Li Er and Changsun Wuji were present, Fang Xianling did not conceal the truth. He nodded and replied, indeed. Master Qing is the teacher of His Highness Prince Wei. Yai, if you have the chance to meet Master Qing again, you must consult him often and treat him with the utmost respect. Have you understood? Fang Yai's expression twitched slightly. He nodded weakly, I understand, father. After watching Li Er and the others depart, a bitter smile crept across Fang Yai's face. Respect? He had utterly offended Master Qing during the poetry gathering. If not for that flatterer Wang Xiutong constantly fanning the flames and currying favor, how would he have been so foolish as to provoke Master Qing? Now Fang Yai regretted it bitterly. He was no fool, he had clearly seen that even the emperor favored Master Qing and was willing to offend the esteemed Yen Silu to defend him. This alone made it evident that Master Qing's status was destined to rise beyond reach. And now, thanks to his own misstep, he had ruined any hope of forming a relationship with him. Just then, a dark-skinned young man approached and said, Young Master Fang, my master requests your presence. Fang Yai looked up and recognized him as one of Qingxiu's attendants from that morning. Somewhat surprised, he asked, Master Qing is summoning me? Erguzi nodded. Fang Yai gestured respectfully, please lead the way. After leaving Furong Garden, they arrived at a narrow alley where a carriage stood ahead. Qingxiu sat outside the carriage. Fang Yai quickly stepped forward and cupped his hands. Master Qing, I offended you terribly this morning. I beg you not to take it to heart. I was blinded by foolishness and provoked by that scoundrel Wang Xiutong, which led me to seek you out in such poor temper. Qingxiu smiled and tapped his blind staff toward the side. The Wang Xiutong you mentioned, is it that man there? Fang Yai looked closely and saw, curled in the corner by the wall, a young man bruised and battered, blood trickling from his nostrils. Upon closer inspection, he recognized him as Wang Xiutong. It is you. Fang Yai exclaimed. Master Qing, why have you beaten him like this? Then, startled, he took a step back and nervously swallowed. Master Qing, you do not intend to beat me as well, do you? Erguzi sneered, my master is not one to be petty. His heart is as vast as the ocean. This Wang Xiutong was acting under orders, deliberately stirring conflict between you and my master. My master summoned you here not to seek revenge, but because he did not wish to see you used as someone else's pawn. Fang Yai was stunned, then furious. He rushed forward and kicked Wang Xiutong squarely in the face. The blow knocked out 3 of Wang Xiutong's front teeth. Young Master Fang, forgive me. Please stop hitting me. Wang Xiutong cried as he backed away in terror. You bastard. Why did you provoke me into conflict with Master Qing? Wang Xiutong quickly answered, it was Du Fengjie, young Master Du. He promised me 10 taels of silver to stir enmity between you and Master Qing. Damn it. I did not offend him, why would he incite me against Master Qing? Fang Yai cursed, delivering another vicious kick. Qingxiu said with a faint smile, Young Master Fang, I do not know what relation you have with this Du Fengjie, nor do I care why he sought to provoke conflict between us. I do not even know this Du Fengjie. Perhaps you or someone in your family once offended him, and he now seeks revenge. The truth is clear. You should not be enemies with me, but rather settle matters with Du Fengjie. Whatever grievances you have, do not involve me. Farewell. With that, Qingxiu boarded the carriage. Fang Yai bowed deeply toward the carriage and said solemnly, Master Qing, rest assured. I was in the wrong today. I shall come another day to offer my formal apology. Qingxiu added with a calm voice.